The knights drove the lonely young man to a cliff with rocky Sidish had just stumbled upon their hideout. The weapons closed tighter around him, and the tension was mounting. The wizard squinted and carefully examined his own face, suspecting that some unusual tracking spell was upon it. He did not even manage to blink. The ground gave way beneath his feet. His body fell into a blue void flooded with blinding light. At that moment he hit the forest floor hard, stunned and breathless. The trembling trees surrounded him until the meaning of what had happened finally reached him. He suddenly realized he was in another world. The roaring bear burst out of the forest with a crash, cornered the young man, and cut off his escape route. Fear clouded his mind as the beast relentlessly drew closer. He wavered between decisions and could not decide quickly. The beast's jaws opened incredibly wide a roar, and the claws lunged forward with all their might. But suddenly the ground beneath the creature gave way, pulling it into the darkness. From the depths of the pit rose a thick slimy mass and swallowed the driven bear whole. The young man recoiled backward as the slime crawled along the ground, and its surface rippled strangely. The knife rose up and he forced himself not to retreat, to stay alert. The sudden shock front slammed him against the rocky wall, and he froze stunned, powerless, gasping for air. Through the fog in his vision he saw slime growing in the pit, and its mass sliding with a strange, disturbing movement. In a moment the bear was gone, it dissolved without a trace. Absorbing into his breath, the phenomenon was breaking down inside him into compartments, and he began to grasp its nature. Jumping over the slippery spot, he plunged into the forest and sank even deeper into the thicket, but quickly realized the dangers were not over. Later he came across cruel people who hunted humans, but he managed to break free with a blow from a rough wooden swordwood. Finding at least some normal road, such relief overwhelmed him that the confirmation of civilization nearby immediately became obvious. From the top of the hill he saw a walled city, and for the first time in a long time felt true hope. An encounter with people might actually happen. But his plan was cut off mid-sentence. The guards seized him and locked him behind iron bars. Locked behind iron bars, he screamed desperately, not understanding the guards' language, until despair overwhelmed him completely. Fatigue quickly swept away anger, and he heavily sank onto the cold floor, replaying in his mind the fatal journey that brought him here. While he drifted among thoughts, a sudden sharp blow from above shattered the silence in the cell. Before him stood a shining woman in armor, holding a sword with calm and commanding confidence. Stunned and confused, he looked up at the unexpected figure, unsure whether it was salvation or another threat. Inside the cage, an armed woman in light armor lightly touched him with her sword while peering through the bars. Instead of hostility, a radiant, almost playful smile flashed across her face, and that completely threw him off. In a moment, she suddenly lifted him with unreal strength, and he realized she understands his language. As if without any effort, she carried him through the castle courtyard, and with frightening speed headed toward an unknown place. Bound and panicked, he struggled to break free from her grip, having no idea what fate awaited him next. In the vast hall of the cathedral, the armored knight led him to an elegant woman who calmly examined him from the side. To his surprise, their words suddenly became clear, and he realized he could understand their language. The woman explained that a simple possession spell allows communication. The spirit conveys their common language. Although he still could not comprehend what exactly was happening, he admitted there are many things he cannot explain. Smiling warmly, she assured him that honesty can be recognized and encouraged him to speak openly. In the quiet hall, he tried to pull himself together while the elegant woman carefully observed him, reserved, but with clear interest. Summoning courage, he finally confessed. He came from another world and honestly gave his name. Two women did not take their eyes off him and listened while he recounted about the bear and the slime that almost killed him. As soon as he voiced that he survived on that cursed mountain, the refined woman immediately asked how he managed to stay alive. When she learned that he ate a strange fruit, she concluded its effect weakened because his mana was too low. During the conversation about mana, he suddenly realized there was no unusual power or hidden talent in his body despite surviving deadly threats. The refined woman only confirmed his mana was incredibly low, so in this world it would not provide any special advantage. With relief, he concluded that survival was within ordinary physical limits, not some secret power. At his question about equipment, he admitted honestly he had nothing but an ordinary wooden stick, and it was already broken. There were rumors in the mountains about dangerous bandits, and he understood everything depended not on skill, but on sheer luck. When he recalled the meeting on the mountain with grim people called bandits, the knight's face twitched sharply, the mask cracked. Her shock turned into urgency, and without losing a second, she demanded to name the exact place where he saw them. Grabbing him by the collar, she forcibly interrogated the location, while someone else vainly tried to calm her down. In panic, he assured that he remembered everything in detail and immediately told about the cave near the mountain. Knight declared that she would set out immediately on the conquest squad, and his composure was shaken by her very determination. The knight introduced herself. Ilya's Ratzel from the kingdom of Tai, she was entrusted with destroying the mountain bandits. Obedient to his orders, she led the squad through the forest all the way to the hidden cave. Inside, several rough men were sprawled carelessly. They had no idea that their shelter had already been exposed. One bandit chatted shamelessly while the others relaxed, and no one even noticed how danger was creeping up. In a moment, Ilya struck decisively, knocking down one before he could recover. In the cave, the bandits' Asik sensed the approach of the squad through detection magic, but warned the others too late. Ilya's moved forward without hesitation. The narrow entrance allowed a quick and easy flanking maneuver. Dale flashed like lightning with incredible speed, so suddenly and swiftly that it cut through resistance before they could even gather. He sneaked a glance from behind, and every knight noticed. She had strength comparable to his, which made his heart tighten with fear. When the final blow thundered in the cave, silence covered everything around and he collapsed, stunned by their destructive power. In the cave, Ilias ordered his squad, mercy to those who lay down their arms, and death to anyone who tries to flee. Armored knights surged forward. With coordinated strikes, they crushed the resistance, and bandits fell one after another. Against this chaos, a huge bound weapon swung toward Ilias and crashed down on him with devastating force. She blocked the blow with her head and dug her feet into the stone, parrying the heavy strikes with her clubs. Calmly smiling, Ilias challenged the attacker's strength and met his furious counterstrike without retreating a step. With a powerful swing, Ilias delivered a verdict to the giant bandit woman, not letting her size intimidate him. His blade cut through the defense with a wide sweeping arc and the man fell away. The strike, carried through to the end, decided everything. When the dust settled, she ordered her squad to thoroughly search the place in search of any survivors and at least one alive. Knight quickly closed the cave, confirming the operation ended without complications. Assessing the consequences, he calmly asked why she never forced the sword to come out completely, even once. Ilias calmly explained that she refused to dirty the blade with bandits' blood and, by this demonstrated pride in her weapon. Confused by her pressure, he quickly retreated as soon as she lowered the sword. Hitsari reported they managed to capture several survivors, and the rest they vaporized without losses. Without any warning, she raised the sword again and carried it lightly and effortlessly, despite his protests. From the city walls, from above, he wondered why he was even pulled into this world, although he had no special talent. Left on the mountain after a failed summoning attempt, he wondered, was it fate or a divine whim that brought him here? Despite everything, he only desired a quiet life without greed for fame and without the wish to defeat great enemies. Clinging to that hope, he silently begs to survive in this world safely and peacefully. Beyond the borders of this place, the news of the bandits' defeat reached another hidden camp deep in the forest. There, the leader of the Mountain Bandit Alliance, Decola, calmly dismissed the defeat, confident that his authority instills even greater fear. In the conference hall of the Kingdom of Taya, King Marito T acknowledged Lady Razel's completed mission and calmly reviewed how she fulfilled the assignment. Advisors reported the disappearance of direct leads until she spoke about ongoing interrogations and requested a little more time to gather reliable information. Nather Noble proposed to involve his squad, expressing doubt about her abilities despite Lady Razel already handling the bandits. Whispers followed him as he compared his 300 knights with her smaller elite squad. Confidently, he emphasized, the threat of the bandit has not yet passed, and insisted on his proposal to come to help. The couple rose from a simple dish when the boy first tasted unfamiliar food from this world. Chewing carefully, he noted strong herbs and admitted, the taste is unusual but acceptable. Fatigue overwhelmed him after a sleepless night, so he asked for rest while being led to prepare for sleep. Later, the bearded elder introduced himself with a long name, and because of this, the boy hesitantly stumbled, as if his tongue failed him. Eventually, the elder simplified his name, warmly invited to conversation, and left the boy quietly stunned. Ilya, sitting across the table, looks intently at the boy and asks how to catch the rest of the bandits. He explains that the robbers transmitted information secretly. Because of this, they were hard to capture even despite the strength of his squad. She adds how detection magic helped them avoid clashes and not get involved in looting supplies without any problems. The boy compares detection magic to a sensor. It finds creatures with mana within a given radius. But Ilias clarifies, the bandits after fleeing used magical seal stones, so the tracking spell lost its power. The boy placed a small stone on the table and called it the key object. He showed exactly how his size limited the maximum power, and with this simple, accessible approach, he stunned Ilias. She explained, large versions are capable of suppressing magic across entire battlefields, so suddenly there are far fewer mages. Realizing that even hypnosis magic exists, he learned, bandits had implanted small sealing stones into themselves. Gloomily, Ilias admitted, removing these stones by force almost certainly meant condemning the captives to death. The boy calmly asked for permission to conduct the interrogation himself. Soon he came across a bandit with limited abilities, endured his hostile mood, and did not respond. Instead of force, he spoke evenly. He examined the bruises on the prisoners and saw the tortures that had already left their mark. Carefully examining him, the boy concluded, the man is stubborn but already exhausted by wounds. Leaning back, the boy pressed demanded unknown information, hinting that execution was inevitable if cooperation did not begin. Leaning forward, the boy asked why the prisoner was still silent, although execution was about to occur. He reasoned bandit alliances are fragile, and repeatedly said that fear after death keeps them in submission. The prisoner challenged, but the boy calmly asked to name the real reason for his silence. When he was offered a peaceful end in exchange for the truth, the prisoner refused to betray his comrades. Sighing, the boy concluded that cooperation was impossible and handed the knights other methods. The Hellion declared that death has no meaning and stubbornly repeated, torture is a trifle if it is met with fear that does not end even after the end. When the boy realized that someone could instill eternal fear even after death, he finally understood why they were silent. Later, he began to seek knowledge about magic capable of interfering with dead souls. The scholar, puzzled by the very question, began to object, and Ilias restrained the misunderstanding. Calmly, the scholar acknowledged the existence of such a soul and said that magic truly exists it is simply strictly forbidden. The scholar said that soul-summoning magic sounded desirable, but her face did not soften, it remained stern. She warned the boy, never publicly express even the slightest interest, because in some countries the mere whim was punishable by death. Approaching closer, she showed that those who were once revived by such forbidden spells later became the greatest enemies of humanity. Looking firmly, she concluded that they all turned into demon lords. Hearing this, the boy froze, stunned by the consequences hidden behind the forbidden magic of resurrection. The boy realized those who were revived later became demon lords and immediately understood why this magic was forbidden. But he also felt something else. The bandits feared not the same thing, so the scholar spoke about the curse of the deadly spirit. She explained this curse is capable of forcibly tearing the soul from the dead and humiliating it among the living. Stepping aside, she whispered about its cruel uses up to the point that corpses were bound or sacrificed. Quietly, the boy wondered whether these disturbed souls retained consciousness even after such torments. The scientist silently and attentively examined the boy, immediately noticing his stubbornness to pursue exactly those troubling topics from which others turn away. Balancing a stack of books in his hands, he clarified, he was interested not in the curse itself, but in the fear that entangles and does not let go. Settling in memory, the recollection returned to her how she fought with the user of the death creature and destroyed the monsters he unleashed. Among those who were fading, one dared in spirit and whispered gratitude and then simply disappeared, leaving her stunned. Having listened to this account to the end, the boy respectfully bowed. Finally, he had received the confirmation he had long lacked. The scientist warned Ilias, the boy understands darkness too well and requires close supervision. Somewhere far away, bandits gathered restlessly, unaware that something was already approaching and waiting for them. Calmly entering, the boy introduced himself as their new inquisitor, and a disarming smile flashed across his face. Suddenly, the prisoners cried out about death, and in this audacity despair pierced through. Noticing their panic, he immediately faced the same fear that they would become victims of the death spirit curse. Pressed against his own thoughts, the boy continued his speech, while the frightened captives only denied and insisted that they understood nothing. He lowered his voice and voiced a new proposal, just now realizing what their real trouble was. Without promising freedom, he promised only to postpone the execution, let them die as humans if they admit guilt. Standing right in front of them, he seized the moment with negotiations and forced them to imagine how they would challenge their leader. Coldly and calmly he explained, confession will enrage the user of death spirit, but at the same time guarantees that they will not die. Promising humane treatment, the boy resolutely assured them of detention, food, and safety from torture until the fate of the main instigator is confirmed. After these words he added, when everything is over, they will be allowed to die as humans. Rage flared among the prisoners. They argued that the execution would happen anyway and rejected his proposal. Taking a step forward, he questioned them how they could consider their situation no longer dangerous. Calmly he revealed that their stash had already been found, and with this, he completely shattered their confidence. Continuing, the boy suggested, the master might suspect betrayal if he were captured, relying on another source. With a sharp smile, he forced them to think about whom they would blame when the suspicion finally subsided. As soon as he voiced his proposal, he addressed everyone who could confess to gather courage by the next day. Leaving the room, he ignored the stunned looks of Elias and the senior scholar. Outside, he admitted doubt about immediate results and, preparing to seek additional support, moved on. As soon as the boy left the cell, he quietly whispered instructions to Elias and the senior and immediately refused to explain further. Pretending to be innocent, he shook off their suspicions, yet they still branded him a shameless scoundrel. Reluctantly, they accepted his plan and realized there was no other way out, no matter their doubts. Soon the prisoners were scattered across different cells. They could neither coordinate actions nor check that each still held firm resolve. Loneliness in captivity squeezed their chests with fear. Terrible visions of tortured souls overwhelmed the last fragments of their courage. Falling into visions of torment, the leader raged madly over the betrayal and ordered twice harsher measures. Meanwhile, the guards reported, none of the prisoners confessed despite the postponed executions. According to the elders' plan, only 3 have a reprieve, and the rest face death immediately. Confusion spread among the captives as they were interrogated and asked to explain why only 3 were needed at all. The realization that the offer was limited struck one prisoner, and this sparked panic and mutual suspicion among them. Under the threat of expulsion, one prisoner burst out shouting for the boy and demanded a chance to speak his mind. The elder, though dissatisfied but attentive, handed him a paper, while the man stubbornly insisted he would confess everything immediately. Panic overwhelmed the others as soon as they understood. Only 3 would be pardoned, and everyone was driven to desperate solitary writing. Alone in the cell, one prisoner frantically noted every detail just to somehow secure a place among the chosen. By the next day, 5 out of 7 had already confessed, and their written testimonies were handed over to Elias. When the boy finished eating, he noticed that Elias was looking at him with a troubled expression. While telling his confession, he listened as she questioned what his life had been like before he ended up here. With gratitude but anxiety, she admitted, his methods disregarded nocturnal honor and relied on using fear. Emphasizing, she said that using someone's weaknesses is something she does not respect. He turned away and replied that he is an ordinary person who just wants to live peacefully. She looked at Elias closely, so close that the boy felt that in her confusion, distrust and doubts about his plan were mixed. Then he calmly, without unnecessary emotions, explained, a peaceful life is knowing how to avoid troubles and blend unnoticed into the usual flow of events. Again and again replaying the past world in his thoughts, he recalled how he learned to read people and keep protection from any harm. Consciously, he added, everyone adjusts their behavior depending on who you seem to be, a decent citizen or a criminal. And finally, he summarized, unlike him, she remained sick like a knight even in any situation, not retreating from her position. Elias stopped him and asked if, standing before evil, he intended to become evil. In a calm tone, he answered that he just wants to understand evil, not blindly reflect it. She held her cup, thoughtfully mulled over the words in her head, and finally slowly admitted, now she understood what he meant. Softening, she compared his approach to a distorted mirror. It reflects darkness, but does not truly accept it. Under the dim light of the quiet hall, he said that living peacefully is much harder than it sounds. The guy flips through the gathered intelligence, while Elias and Maya silently watch the reports about how the bandit organization is growing and gaining strength. Information establishes, Dokala, the same sorcerer with the deadly spirit in one hand, is the leader of the bandit alliance, which is expanding. Records link him to a former assassination squad, even before he started reaching out to Garn and tightening the screws on his own operations. Having comprehended all this, the guy concludes, if you figure out how Dokala builds his schemes, fighting him will become much easier. His calm conclusion confuses Elias, and Maya notes without extra words that the guy suddenly switched to a sharply different manner of behavior. The guy sneaks through the noisy market, quietly observing the wealthy kingdom he just looked at it upon arrival, and that was enough to become wary. Elias proudly tells that both former kings and current ones maintained stability and sincerely cared for their citizens. Suddenly attention shifts to the bandit alliance, and she confidently suggests calling upon Lord Ragdo's knights to respond. He is asked about numbers, and she admits only 30, revealing the limits hidden behind her decisiveness. Hearing this, the guy advises seeking help from other knight squads, and Elias has to stop and reconsider everything again. Elias steals doubts within himself and makes a decision. When citizens' safety is at risk, public image no longer matters. She convenes an emergency meeting and tries to extract cooperation from other knight squads, although this entails political complications. For now, the boy stubbornly stands his ground because he says he will go anyway, as his strategy requires direct participation inside the castle. Night falls on the towering fortress, and urgent meetings are prepared silently step by step. Inside the chamber, Ilyas addressed the gathered knights, named the threats of the bandits, and spoke about the unstable state of the kingdom. A sharp clap breaks the silence in the hall. The dispute has gone too far. The senior knights begin to state how many soldiers they can provide, and the tension does not ease. A dispute rages around the choice of the supreme commander. Lord Leonard shows off with confident boasting. His family holds 300 knights. Rumors about Ilyas' merits and his favoritism spread further, exposing quiet dissatisfaction among some captains. Disrespect bubbles to the surface, and the boy silently watches, memorizing faces, while fragile alliances begin to crack. An elder pushes the boy to speak while the captains quarrel, belittle any attempts of Ilyas, and do not give him a chance to breathe. The stern lord demands his identity, intently, without any gestures of unnecessary pity, staring at the quiet outsider inside the room. Not succumbing to anxiety, the boy firmly explains, leadership should be given to the largest squad. It will be easier to remove suspicions that way. And then he steps forward and places the documents on the table, capturing attention exactly where it was needed. The prepared map outlines the bandit's base and his movements, diverting the meeting from a wounded pride to coordinated planning. The boy suggests deploying squads at key positions, placing puppet units strategically and confidently, confirms that Lord Leonard will confront the enemy leader. He asks which captains are ready to cooperate and pushes hesitant knights to acknowledge shared responsibility. Calmly smiling, he gives the order, Lady Razel's squad logistical support, ready to reinforce any unit that falters. The agreement flows through the camera, and Ilyas is left stunned, how smoothly and easily control shifts. She realizes she has been pushed out of her own campaign and snaps. Restraint no longer holds. Ilyas surged forward, and the logistical support, determined to prove its capability to everyone, held course while the boy struggled with all his might not to fall behind her. Gasping and exhausted, he laments his lack of endurance and clearly understands, in this world he has no special advantage. After another round of weakly apologies, he collapses weakly under the trees while others continue moving forward. Grandfather Kara assures everyone, the plan remains unchanged, even as the boy lies unconscious. Somewhere in the distance, a wild knight breaks through the barrier, signaling that the operation has started in full. Warriors from the Order storm the fortress gate, cutting down fleeing men, and panic sweeps the entire camp wave after wave. Under the moonlight, Lord Lenore gathers his forces and gives the order, destroy every enemy without mercy. He moves forward and suddenly realizes that the documents given to him by the boy turned out to be unexpectedly effective. In the heat of battle, Lenore reflects on how cleverly the plan elevated Lady Razel's role during the assembly. Driven by ambition, he vows to claim all achievements for House Lenore, unaware that something unusual is already approaching behind him. Lenore notices a fallen body moving unnaturally. A hand jerks sharply and grabs the ground as dark energy gathers together. In a moment, the corpse rises fiercely under the spell of the death spirit, forcing the knights to face a sudden undead threat. The bandits realized their sentries had already been taken out, so night panic covered the forest clearing. A long-haired man watched calmly from the shadows, gauging their fear and recognizing that they were completely unable to sense danger. Confidence settled in him, and a premeditated strategy clearly formed in his mind. And as soon as metal met steel, flames flared up, and the fighters of the sudden attack were cut down as they fell one by one. Finally, the decayed body lunged forward, and with one precise strike of the blade, it was cut in half. The commander realized the magical stones on the ceiling were supposed to stop any spell, but an invisible force still pierced a passage through his ranks. Soon the corpse was torn in half and it fell, while dark liquid spilled onto the ground. The knight leader called for restraint and ordered a cleansing before the fallen soldiers could rise again as undead. And while the troops retreated through the forest, chaos spread around. They broke free from the shadows that approached and pressed from all sides. Fearing further corruption, the commander decided risking a few more knights was unacceptable. The dark-haired man clenched his teeth, while the subordinate asked how magic was supposed to work if the ceiling stones were already under a spell. Calmly he explained, the stones only disperse the magical composition, not every phenomenon that grows from established principles. He stated that the death spirit spell was fundamentally different from ordinary magic. This forbidden work of art infused souls into corpses, creating undead that could release mana and influence nearby bodies. Hiding the undead behind a barrier near the camp, he ensured that the ceiling stones scattered the protection and allowed more monsters to rise. Barely curling his lips into a smile, he made it clear, releasing the undead on the knights was done deliberately. Nearby in the ruins, a corpse writhed, and he quietly warned his subordinate, dying nearby means becoming one of them. A weak laugh escaped him as he credited the foolish knights for advancing his plan. After this, he noticed, their deaths removed the need to divide the loot and maintain alliances. Under the moonlight, there was not a drop of satisfaction in his heart or gaze from the gratitude expressed by the person he hated. Ilias stood on the top of the rocky hill under the full moon and declared that the end of the bandit leader had come. From the shadows, the long-haired man watched as she approached with the soldiers, and surprise flashed across his face. Calmly moving forward, he asked if she had found the hidden escape route herself. Skepticism froze on his face as he dismissed the idea that the cruel knight used allies as bait. Unwavering, Ilias denied the accusation as soon as he sensed another strategist acting nearby. Ilias stood ready with a blade, while the boy looked directly at the bandit leader, and soldiers gathered behind him. The leader inquired whether the boy was truly responsible and clearly doubted his strength. Lowering his gaze, the boy admitted, probably, he was the weakest among them. Calmly, he explained that he had delayed the execution and claimed to have found the cave by accident. Not fully believing, the bandit leader still pressed further and demanded, by what exact method did they track his location? The boy quietly gave a sign that he understood while observing the reaction of the bandit leader. Without hesitation, he said that this was exactly what he expected. During this commotion, Dokula would try to escape. Carefully, he outlined how the lack of corpses and the well-thought-out routes proved that he relied on the curse of Death's spirit. In his eyes burned a firm conviction. He had reached the conclusion that the bodies were preserved for this very moment. Pretending to be innocent, Dokula laughed and approached indirectly, asking the boy about his allegiance, while hiding sharp suspicion behind a relaxed smile. The bandit leader mocked the idea of ordinary morality and rejected any evidence claiming he was a peaceful citizen. A slow smile crept across his face as he carefully studied the boy's black hair and eyes, and a strange unease grew within him. Recognition struck instantly. He finally realized the boy did not belong to this world. Watching his reaction, the leader increasingly confirmed his suspicion. With growing intensity, he declared knowledge of the earth and the magic of rebirth that once plunged the world into darkness. Dokula revealed the forbidden origin of the earth. The boy was shocked by this, and Ilias was deeply affected. The boy learned that the magic of rebirth might originate from the earth, and this completely confused his understanding of this world. Doubts did not let go while he calculated the risks. If Ilias removes Dokula prematurely, everything will get worse. Dokula revealed fragments of the truth, and at that very moment released hidden blades at the boy, revealing hostile intentions. Steel clanged into the ground, but Ilias caught both weapons effortlessly, becoming a shield and preventing the strike from landing. Standing firmly ahead, Ilias ordered him to stay behind while she prepared to confront Dokula directly. Dokula pressed his own, urging them forward. Hesitation means death. They rushed into battle without discipline. Ilias broke forward alone and intercepted the attack, forcing the opponent to clash directly with her strength. The blades met in a series of strikes again and again, as she pushed him back evenly, precisely, and with power fully under control. Enlightenment struck when ordinary attacks failed and irritation clenched movements, driving forward, compelled by a single intent. Cornering Dokula, he prepared a hidden trump card to turn the tide of battle. Dark Energy SB stretched across the sky as Dokula activated forbidden magic, forcing Ilias to shield the boy with a barrier. It struck as soon as she recognized Death's spirit magic, and tension locked the boy in place. Smiling just as calmly, Dokula revealed, his followers are loyal figures bound to his will. Twisted bodies rose under his helm, closing around Ilias and pouring relentless hostility. One undead creature lunged forward. With a furious roar it charged at her defense, while the battlefield sank into utter chaos. Dokula revealed the resurrected giant, whom Ilias once defeated, and now twisted with anger bound him under his command. Corrupted mana spread across the field, and he claimed that the death spirit spell would last regardless of what happened to his fate. Realizing what was happening, Ilias decided not to waste time and confront the corrupted mana directly. She grabbed the boy and surged upward, commanding her own powers to leap with her. Hovering over the battlefield, the boy looked down and froze in shocked disbelief. Dokula tried to seal Ilias' magic, convinced that without spells he would be powerless, advancing steadily. Ilias usually showed, her strength did not rely on magic at all. With a sweeping strike, she shattered the infected ground and pushed him back. Shock rolled across the entire battlefield. Her primal power washed away both the undead and the masters. Standing unwavering before her, Dokula prepared another hidden move and realized, ordinary tactics did not work at all. Takala threw a smoke grenade and retreated backward, hoping that the confusion would give him a chance to break away from Ilyas's pursuit. But before he could escape, a spear from the forest hit him and pinned his leg to the ground. Falling increasingly heavily, he suddenly realized the trap had tightened more than he could have expected. Ilya approached while the boy stood nearby, and it became clear they were waiting for his very attempt to escape. The boy silently confirmed every move, even the last strike, they executed exactly according to their plan. The boy explained Dokula's confidence before the escape gave the perfect moment to exploit his overconfidence. Defeated and pinned, Dokula admitted that he was completely outplayed and calmly accepted the trap quietly, restrained with playful amusement. Yet the boy refused to praise the killings, and Dokula froze for a moment, pondering and acknowledging his defeat. His defeat, Dokula warned him not to step back and revealed the hidden basis. Faintly smiling, he presented this information as a final farewell gift. When the defeat settled, Dakota asked the boy's name so as to hear the answer before everything ended. He sank in the last movement and ended Dakota's life before any further words were spoken. I turned back to the clearing while Ilyas lowered her blade and the rest of the soldiers retreated. She asked if the boy regretted not learning more about his origins from the deceased man. After a brief reflection, the boy admitted, curiosity still flickers, but he believed that Akola hardly knew anything beyond what he had already told. The boy admitted that he himself had organized the ambush, but still could not come to terms with the consequences, although he knew that Dokula would not escape. Ilyas agreed. His strategy made sense, no matter how much she disliked the necessity behind it all. Seeking to understand, he asked her why she delivered the final blow despite his hesitation. Clenching her fist, Ilyas confessed, it was fear that made her make that decision at that moment. With firm determination, she acknowledged that Dokula's actions disgusted her, so she chose to end him without any remorse. Ilyas admitted, as soon as the boy spoke with Dokula, she felt an alarming similarity, and it began to grow between them. Fearing that he would again drift into the same darkness, she struck because she could not ignore that feeling. The boy admitted that he understood Dokula, although he knew he was a ruthless killer. Upon hearing these words, Ilyas insisted that her act was born from disgust and fear of losing him because of that path. Calmly, the boy assured her, the very choice to act and then to think everything over is already worthy of respect. When the tension eased a little, Ilyas teased the boy for speaking as if he were already older and wiser. Taken aback, he asked her age, and it turned out she was older, although she looked very young. Shame flared up when she misinterpreted his question and accused him of doubting her origin. When it became clear that there was a misunderstanding between them, the boy hurriedly apologized, and she became even more confused from embarrassment right in that conversation. Blushing slightly, Ilyas asked if his apology was sufficient. The tension that had brought her to the edge suddenly released and was replaced by awkward relief. After that, they finished. During the silence, he finished clearing the battlefield and laid the fallen on a cart under the dim sky. Reinforcements finished off the rest of the undead, so only the wounded remained, but among Lord Liner's knights there were no losses. When they withdrew, the boy pondered the revelations about the people from Earth and the prohibition they themselves had established. He clearly realized, to maintain a peaceful life in this world, he would have to exert much more effort. Somewhere else, deep in a mountain range covered with forest, another presence stirred unnoticed under a hidden shelter. Under the moonlight, the girl with bald ears moved, woke up, and immediately sensed a foreign, unfamiliar threat nearby. Morning light pierced into the small room while the boy calmly woke up on an unfamiliar bed, listening to the birdsong outside, and only for a moment felt relief. Pain clenched his muscles, trying to get up, and the feeling immediately threw back the thought, in this world, life demands endurance. Next to the wagon, Ilyas did not take her eyes off him while he pondered his uncertain future in this land. His plan was simple: find housing, obtain a residence permit, learn the language, and take control of his strange magic. Then he decided to enter the city and earn money steadily without failures, without unnecessary adventures. Ilyas reacted sharply as soon as the boy suggested living outside the country and did not let her benefactress endure hardships. Soon she firmly offered him to move in with her if he really had nowhere else to stay. He was surprised but agreed immediately. Pleasure prevailed. After that, she explained that the empty room would not be a burden for him. Yet Ilyas asked directly if he intended to pressure her through guilt. The boy, smiling calmly, denied any conspiracy and admitted that he just wanted to avoid extra problems. Settling in Ilyas' two-story house near the market, the boy began his new life so far without money, but with unexpected comfort. By the window, he admired his simple Spartan room and decided to set off to explore the country, but his black hair and restless nature immediately distinguished him from others. The streets of Nestling Streets greeted him with noise. Vendors were laying out kebabs and fresh produce on the stalls, and he involuntarily caught the lively rhythm of the market. Carefully examining the coins, he checked their value, tasted the food, and noted, spices make even simple flavors much better. A sudden blow knocked the load it scattered on the ground right in front of him. The boy quickly helped the girl who had fallen to gather the scattered fruits, returned her basket, and she smiled with relief. The crowd parted and surrounded them in a circle, while he led her aside so as not to block the noisy street, stunned by his own straightforwardness. He behaved too directly, so she for a moment suspected that he had some intentions but still followed him without any resistance. Very soon she introduced herself as Sarah and sincerely thanked him for his help. After that, she proudly showed her family and invited him to visit despite the strange name. Near the inn, the boy stumbled over a barrel while Sarah watched closely, and a big man approached to assess the situation. Introducing himself as Gauze, the owner took responsibility for the basket and welcomed the boy as a customer. While the boy waited for food, he listened as Sarah told details about the city and the routine during her shift. Gift, she revealed her dream to become a seamstress and study diligently while working. Her bright enthusiasm did not fade. Azam amazed the boy. She was confidently breaking through to independence, and it happened at the very end. Then Sarah asked about his overnight stay, and the boy admitted he was allowed to live in a room for one night. As soon as he mentioned Ilya's Ratzel from Ragdo Company, the hall immediately exploded with surprise. And when they began to talk about her fame as a strong woman knight in this country, the shock became even louder. Guz spoke about her victories, how she defeated the skilled knights, and how she won the fencing tournament in Tezu. Stories about Lord Karagug had just been told, and the boy was instantly stopped, stunned by the grandeur surrounding him. Sitting quietly, the boy realized his minor role in the recent purge had drawn him into events much bigger than he expected. Sarah enthusiastically imagined Lady Ilya's fighting at the epicenter, while he, silently awkward, downplayed his own role in this conflict. Later, she had to admit, despite the general admiration for Ilya's, some townspeople still openly cling to her power and influence. Hearing this, the boy firmly stated that Ilya stopped the internal strife, and by this eased Sarah's anxiety. Before leaving, he decided to visit Ilya's someday, knowing that sincere supporters already appreciate her efforts. In the tavern, the boy felt tension as soon as he sharply criticized the food and saw how Marlia and Sarah reacted to his words. Instead of retreating, he suggested simple improvements and was confident that better cuisine would attract more customers. Outside, Ilyas watched him and noted how quickly he made new acquaintances. During the walk, he recalled the exquisite dinner at the church and compared it to the food at the inn. His words knocked Gauze out of consciousness, while Sarah silently observed, feeling his influence grow. Standing calmly, Ilyas revealed she was known as a demon banisher, and she held power in the Tezu church. After that, she explained, the report had already been submitted, so today she was temporarily free. Her influence seemed to rock his boyfriend like waves and would not let go. While they talked, she recalled how young officials took on responsibilities, and he doubted her strength. Curiosity prompted him to ask about trade networks and salt supplies to improve the quality of food as soon as she mentioned it. He offered help and quietly wondered how long such support would last. Maya explained that the spell she cast on the boy would last a week. He would recover as soon as it faded when she turned her back. Avi, she asked, did the magic of possession trouble him, and he awkwardly insisted it was a joke. Barely smiling, Maya admitted she had not used this spell recently, and perhaps she reacted incorrectly to its effect. Later, she explained about the delayed muscle pain as a side effect and warned it could suddenly and unexpectedly worsen. In a moment, agony overwhelmed the boy. He screamed, because even healing magic could not ease the pain. The sealed document lay in the box until a hand pulled it out, and this became the signal for the start of the official agreement. After that, the young man confidently entered the huge estate with his companion, while the servants escorted them inside. In the luxurious hall, the lord of the manor approached and received the guests with measured politeness, without any unnecessary movement. The owner introduced himself without hesitation as Ban, and clearly made it known that he was the one holding the reins of the company. Then negotiations about salt supplies began. Ban reviewed the request and weighed the conditions that could be accepted. Then the boy proposed lowering the price of salt in the state in exchange for cooperation, and the Bans focused all their attention precisely on this. He explained that each portion of salt was too expensive even despite the scarce distribution within the country, which has no access to the sea. Maya pondered how exactly. He then compared magical energy with nutrition in his former world. Gently, she hinted, his weak magic could have been a consequence of nutrition, and this momentarily threw him off balance. Gathering his courage, the boy announced his plan to increase demand by claiming that salt had mistakenly become a luxury item. The boy explained. They claimed that an increase in supply would reduce purchasing costs, so if it worked out, they could get salt cheaper. Ben questioned the feasibility, warning that daily price fluctuations were inevitable, and the guy insisted he had already prepared a plan. Later, the whole event unfolded in the tavern. Maya was lively, serving ale energetically and in a way that everyone around noticed her. She placed a new dish on the table, surprising the customers who had not ordered it. Despite hesitation, the men still examined the meal while Maya encouraged them to try the free offer. The patrons tasted the salted potatoes and gasped in surprise. A simple seasoning sharply enhanced this cheap dish. Requests for additional portions immediately poured into Maya, so she quickly darted between tables, catching the wave of growing demand. Meanwhile, the guy thought Ben probably saw in him a young traitor trying to prove he was worth something. He took these praises as a fortunate coincidence, not as proof of his own genius. Soon throughout the tavern, the order was heard again, and again everyone could see that the value of salt was being reviewed again. That day the rumor spread quickly, and the tavern remained full until closing, while Maya tried to keep up with the orders. Exhaustion caught up with success, and both workers collapsed powerless, while the owner considered whether to hire someone else. Somewhere far away, a young woman waited alone at home, quietly sitting by the fireplace, and she did not touch the prepared dish. Anxiety crept in little by little as soon as she realized how late it already was. Uncertainty came to her mind, and she wondered if he planned to return the next day. The next day, the young man endured muscle pain and pondered how to cope with the growing shortage of workers in the tavern. In the overcrowded establishment, workers were trained hastily, and demand grew faster than expected. Seeking advice, he visited Ben's house and came across the elderly man Kara and his stern wife. Kara decided to introduce him to that wife only after she found out what the problem was. Soon, the confident woman gathered the wives of other soldiers and offered them as reliable help for the tavern. Kara's wife said she wanted to cook regularly, not just wait alone for her husband, quietly showing understanding of his efforts. She assured the young man that helping in the tavern would keep her busy, and that was quite enough for her. Soon she dismissed both men from work and forcibly drove them outside, despite their surprise. Under the quiet sky, the young man and Kara shared a peaceful moment alone. Then the boy pulled out a copied map with the locations of the bandits' hideouts and presented it as a protected secret. The boy confessed to Corey that he had hidden something in an outlaw shelter, possibly related to knowledge about Earth. Showing the map, he pointed his finger at the hardest place where it was most difficult to reach, and presumably the secret was hidden there. He explained the troops would soon search every location, although the original map had already passed through nobles and reached the king. Given the urgency, he suggested retrieving the hidden item before the officials noticed it. Kara acknowledged his curiosity and agreed. He really needed to find out what Decora had left behind. Kara decisively picked up the pace she proposed, fleeing before the authorities could forbid their plan, and the boy agreed, though he looked uncertain. Leaving the city limits, they hid the horse by the roadside and relied on its strength. It would defend itself if disturbed. In the forest, the boy recalled a story, as if once Kara had defeated a wyvern in a very unusual way. Quietly and proudly, Kara explained, she threw her helmet instead of a spear to knock it down. The boy hesitated a little more, examining the weapon in his hands as they went deeper among the trees. Hidden under twisted roots, the cave entrance showed a barely noticeable color change. This confirmed that a hidden layer stretched behind it. Caution restrained their steps as they entered. Torches were raised, and uncertainty still trembled in the shadows. Delving deeper, they came across hidden wars, stones of magic, and chests of treasures they pressed tightly against a simple bed. Among everything, the boys spotted an old handwritten notebook that seemed to belong to Dakura. He gasped in shock as he read its contents, so that Karia looked on with concern. In the cave, the boy showed Karia the diary and realized it was written in Japanese. Recognition struck him in the very heart. As soon as he confirmed it was the language of his homeland, it became clear Dakura shared the same origin. While examining the cover, he immediately came across investigation materials about the young evil king. In the abandoned cave, the boy and Karia review the recovered report tied to the deceased young evil king. Carefully, the boy lifts the worn book, feeling how danger pulses within its sealed pages. The estate of troubling consequences leads to forbidden magic. It can resurrect the demon lord, but only through a specific person. After confirming the investigation results, realization overwhelms him. He compares the report to himself. Restrained determination pushes him to confess. He came from another world, and Karia freezes in shock. Kara senses a serious sadness through the air. when she looks into the determined face of the boy decisive for the fate of the book. Instead of opening it, the boy chooses to postpone reading, afraid of the consequences hidden inside. As soon as Kara understands his logic, she accepts this secrecy and warns, lost chances rarely return. Trust comes to the forefront. Under torture, the boy admits his own weakness and insists that the book remain in the hands of someone reliable. With restrained determination, he was about to voice a cautious request, firmly knowing his future depends on how much he restrains himself. Weighing the risks, the boy hands the sealed report to Kara, convinced that the entrusted knight is the best guardian. Their hands meet for a moment as the packed book passes from hand to hand, and responsibility covers everything without any additional hesitation. Step by step retreating through the cave, the boy convinces himself that this choice will prevent Kara from being caught between duty and personal promises, forced into conflict. Firm resolve strengthens his steps. He decided not to betray the loyal knight and not to drive him into impossible decisions. Outside the cave, Kara asks him a question again, and the boy answers quietly and confidently. Beyond the city walls, the boy thoughtfully weighs how much he desires a peaceful life together with everyone. Returning home, he throws his leg inside, expecting a quiet evening. On the stairs, Ilias freezes. Her presence throws him off track. At dawn, understanding finally comes. He realizes that she stayed there all day while he was absent with Kara. Warm, soft quietness like a blanket. Tom follows Ilias as he shows loneliness that still seemed unfamiliar but strangely comforting. Tension passes abruptly and becomes awkward as soon as the boy tries to respond in any way to Ilias' quiet disappointment. She nods toward the empty kitchen and reminds him, while he was waiting, she couldn't even go get groceries. Clumsy excuses pour out one after another as soon as she hints that he no longer needs her company or advice. Guilt grows immediately as he realizes it. When he was with Kara, she was left alone and spent the whole day restless. Calm returns as soon as Ilias admits. Her irritation grew from the desire to spend the whole day next to him. Embarrassment flashes across his face as he admits his still inexperienced hand in matters of the heart. Sudden determination washes away hesitation, and he moves forward as if with new energy in his chest. Resolute urgency becomes palpable in the room as he announces that they are leaving immediately. Confusion overwhelms Ilias, but she still follows him outside without resistance. Under the open sky, both freeze and stare ahead at a strange object, and it immediately becomes clear. This might be the very dog's bones. Regret drives Ilias after the boy into the city. She is certain that earlier he definitely did something wrong. He leads her to a tavern rumored about. The dishes there are harsh in taste, and when it comes to disputes, he insists, saying that lately it has gotten better there. Inside, lively people are bustling, and the startled workers notice Ilias among the crowd. The confession instantly spreads. The waitress, reacting to her unexpected appearance, shudders from shock. When the boy watches closely, a respectful chaos flares up in the tavern, and Ilias is treated as carefully as possible amid the noise. Sharp shyness follows Ilias into the tavern, while memories of yesterday's tension flare up again in her mind. Trays arrive and the boy asks her to listen and encourages her to try the food. Carefully, bites are taken out and she admits the taste of the dish turned out better than she expected. The conversation slowly dulls her mood. She recalls the warm welcome they were given then. Serious resolve returns as soon as he notices others looking at him with respect and makes him reflect on duties that go beyond the quiet refuge. Quiet honesty emerges when Ilias admits it. She worries about others' thoughts, feels insecure and inexperienced despite all her efforts. The boy gently challenges her with his gaze, as if to say, emotions and doubts cannot diminish either her strength or her father's legacy. The surface of memory, younger Ilias proudly presents flowers to his smiling father. Warm approval still warms her from within, and it is this that defines how she measures herself now. After a brief pause, clarity settles between them. Accepting emotions, not suppressing them, is true resilience. She will see a warm smile spread across the boy's face as he encourages Ilias to keep going and not lose oneself. The playful exchange eases the tension, but he understands. She is still growing, so it is too early to let her go beyond her mastery as a knight. Silence and contemplation tickle his thoughts deeply, how easily he once wounded the hopes she places in others. Relief washes over him as he notices a tavern full of allies supporting her. Against the backdrop of laughter and raised glasses, he believes this shared warmth can become her strength. The laughter only reinforces this thought. And the crowded tables force visitors to sit on the floor while the tavern bursts with noise and drink, overflowing to the brim. Morning light shows Ilias waking in bed, haunted by vague memories of having drunk too much. Embarrassment dissolves into a gentle smile as she recalls the previous night unexpectedly pleasant, somewhere else in a cloak. He runs through the huge hall, straight to his boss. He is still waiting. In the cell, Commander Ragdo listens carefully. Urgent matters for the official report are being prepared nearby. The wrapped book is passed from hand to hand. No one knows where it came from, just as no one knows why it is needed at all. In the formal hall, the nobleman studies it, while this copy is found in official reports during a separate investigation. Turning the pages, he notices unfamiliar notes and freezes. His eyes fixate on the lines, but he cannot read them. Doubts grow as he wonders who else could have taken on this volume. Learning that the book remained untouched, he thinks about the cautious young man who was involved in finding it. Kara and the noble reconciled, easing the tension that flared up because of the hidden book. The conversation breaks down to its title and Blue Demon Lord, weaving everything with bloody historical disasters. Lonely, the noble intentions choose silence and trace the origin of the book. Elsewhere, the boy devises a plan. One can earn money if first securing a stable job through merchants. After several visits, he returns to the estate firm as Stone, determined to fight for his chance. Noble guest approves the estate for its progress, observing how the boy is increasingly involved in management. Conversation shifts to expanding the salt trade. They propose increasing demand so that prices fall through wider popularity. Economic growth and safer roads promise more merchants and cargoes converging in Tezu, making the plan even more feasible. With calm confidence, the boy presents the idea of rock salt as a new opportunity. The nobleman quickly gets to the point. He recognizes the salt and understands that it is about ore from the mountains as a resource being offered to him. Then he suggests searching for salt in unexplored mountainous areas, hinting that the vast lands of Tezu may hide valuable resources. He explains salty water or hot springs can be boiled to obtain salt, especially where there are many caves and rivers. Not being certain of the outcome, he still insists that importing such goods could start a national trend. Excitement overwhelms the merchant. He greedily reaches for the idea of hidden treasures and new profit. Unfolding a map on the table, the boy prepares to reveal the next stage of his plan. Unrolling the parchment, the boy shows a copy of a map taken from defeated bandits. The area and routes are already marked. Surprise overwhelms the merchant as soon as he recognizes its value, and he agrees to keep it secret. Detailed notes display caves and yet unexplored lands. Everything was surveyed, and the information was carefully recorded and documented. Instead of blind attempts, he proposes to use this knowledge to significantly increase their chances. The merchant, satisfied, acknowledges the insightfulness of the young man and the potential that has just been revealed. The boy confidently accepts the idea of partnership, ready to adapt to the true nature of the merchant. Somewhere in the distance, rumors reach a high nobleman. They say this youth helped during the suppression campaign to carry out a reprisal against bandits. Sitting quietly, the nobleman ponders how the youth from another world was drawn into the events that led to the achievement of Seratial. Curiosity grows stronger and stronger until he voices a clear desire to meet this amazing person in person. Finally, he gives the order to invite the young man to the upcoming awards ceremony. At that very moment, Van Sand, suddenly ignited with enthusiasm, pulls the boy onto the mountain slope. He is eager to start the search immediately. When they compare the map together, they notice a marked cave nearby and decide to check it out personally. Excitement escalates faster as the merchant insists on joining, relying on memories of the past as a traveler. Among the forest paths, they both confidently move forward, and the boy notices a wonderful, familiar manner for Vanshan of reading the terrain. Watching how he keeps a steady course every time, the boy quietly wonders, why is it that capable people keep appearing beside him again and again? Reaching the marked cave, Vanshan and the boy slow their steps. Something feels wrong immediately at the narrow entrance. Inside, the tunnel ends abruptly, as if their search has choked off by itself. Suspicion grows when Vanshan carefully scans the wall and notices an area saturated with magic. Relying on his experience, he explains, barely noticeable differences reveal hidden structures, those that others cannot see. Van hands over his belongings and orders the boy to retreat before striking the hidden barrier. He swings and drives the heavy hammer into the enchanted wall, releasing a powerful shockwave that shatters the hidden barrier. Dust settles and he shows the weapon, an enchanted hammer that multiplies the power of each strike but consumes significant magic. Beneath the broken surface, a hidden passage opens the wall, truly concealed a route. Energy waves through Vanshan, and within him awakens the instinct of a traveler, driving him forward relentlessly. Carefully, the boy follows him into the newly opened tunnel, alert. Anything could be waiting ahead. Breaking through the destroyed wall, Vanshan and the boy emerge into a hidden forest, bathed in light diffused through the leaves. Although at first glance everything here looks mundane, Vanshan feels they have stumbled upon something truly significant. He kneels down near the unusual plants and examines them carefully, while the boy closely watches how they lack natural luminescence. Consciousness clears the vegetation, suddenly looks like the same species found on Black Demon Lord Mountain. Realizing that such plants grow only in dense magic, Van San recalls his survival among the slime there, and it impresses the boy. Van San declares that Hidden Forest is an amazing business opportunity, and he is overwhelmed by the scale of their unexpected discovery. They rejoice in their sudden success. He celebrates loudly, and the boy notes how happily their first test went. But suddenly, a warning cuts through the excitement. The boy says that this place may hide even more valuable plants. The forest twists with a strange distortion, and an invisible presence begins to follow them. A deaf heavy pulse beats through the darkness, voices hum faintly, and something ancient awakens very close by. He is surrounded by beastmen executioners. The boy kneels down and realizes his own enthusiasm has brought pain. The boy wakes up tied with ropes, quietly considers how he was kidnapped, and does not let panic break through. Armed beastmen rushed through the wooden hall holding weapons at the ready and sharpening their senses to the limit. Steel flashes above him until giant figures close in around he is kneeling. Suspicion grows with every second. His black hair reveals him as a stranger. Spears draw closer, and the boy carefully watches their reactions, cautiously calculating negotiations because here, in an unfamiliar world, intellect weighs more than strength, and survival is necessary. The boy listens as the woman explains the spell of possession. It translates a foreign language into their shared dimension. He tried to touch understanding and realized he understands all languages, but can only respond in one they do not know. The woman speaks about the old beast with sharp eyes. Scrutinizing, she weighs that his youth is strange and almost unheard of beside her. Warriors report how they found him. He was fleeing nearby, so they caught him before they could notice any suspicion. The old woman tests him with magic, pressing her palm to his head and relentlessly watching how it all responds. The boy suddenly spoke, and the warriors shuddered. The spell of possession reacted unexpectedly. The elder examines him again and admits, the spell works but has flaws. After that, he adds a bit more magic to stabilize it. When the connection was restored, he calmly states that there are no hostile intentions and invites a normal conversation. Far away, a silver-haired woman gazes at a distant castle and quietly whispers one name. In the noble halls, officials decide the young stranger should come to the upcoming celebration after he has subdued the bandits. Ilias notices that the elder lord is watching her closely and asks if anything has changed since yesterday. Barely smiling, he entrusts her to deliver the invitation and persuade the young newcomer to come. As she leaves, two elders quietly ponder her height and the positive influence surrounding her. Somewhere far in the forest, a tired traveler rushes forward as if on his last breath to return and save someone. Returning to the village, the Beastmen warriors react to the news that the demon lord has fallen with shock. Black Wolf's clan explains, they long ago fled into a hidden forest to escape the demon lord's rule and have lived quietly ever since. Hearing that the terrifying ruler was reportedly killed by slime, the elder remains convinced the outside world may still stand intact. Anxiety spreads further. They assume that the fallen lord's allies will rally, gather strength, and eventually begin searching for him. The boy thinks if he speaks calmly with these allies, everything can be resolved without bloodshed. Despite lingering uncertainty, the elder weighs the request and decides to stay within their village boundaries for a while. Standing before the clan, the boy is asked to act as a mediator with the strangers. He alone understands both languages. Reciting details, the elder tells how the numbers melt away and what a hardship it is to survive endlessly, hiding in the hidden forest. After brief reflection, he agrees to the role of translator, but insists official decisions remain with their appointed representative. Suspicion slowly fades as soon as the elder confirms he has not said a single falsehood, so the warriors reluctantly move to hesitant apologies. When the agreement is already made, curiosity leads him to the next step, and he requests a tour to see the village in person. Having passed through the settlement, the boy learns about a beast that crosses the mountains via pass and threatens the livestock. Because of this, the clan is forced to hunt within their own forest. Beyond the houses, warriors train relentlessly daily, honing their strength, preparing for a possible conflict against the forces of the demon lord. While he was watching the exercises, his attention was suddenly drawn to a distant movement deeper in the trees. Among the dense foliage hides the so-called damned children's den, a place the clan avoids because they fear the curse. Under the moonlight appears a girl with fox ears, and the boy freezes, staring blankly, not uttering a single word. Hiding in the bushes, the boy watches as villagers chase after a fox, the girl with ears sent. Stones waving it like a warrior, he boasts that he caught the cursed child. He is overwhelmed with confusion. He cannot understand why there is just one little girl standing here. Mocking laughter rolls as they warn, approach her and you will bring trouble. Disgust rises in him as he recalls similar cruelty he once saw in another world. Fear turned ordinary people into willing executioners who torment the defenseless. The boy briefly closes his eyes and suddenly understands. The villagers completely misunderstood everything. Resolutely, he asks to be taken back to the elder. He plans to address the matter directly and stop further harm. Alarming messages reach the castle. The boy was captured by the demi. The people and the elderly knight prepared to act, but everyone understood this could have political consequences. Behind the city walls, a secluded village lived quietly near the forest. A guest appeared in a modest house. He came to the clan living there to finally get answers. Serious concern settled on the young man's face as soon as he asked why the little girl was considered cursed. Clansmen explained, her pale features are considered unacceptable among the black wolves, and so she arouses suspicion, as if her existence stretches from birth itself. Her mother died during childbirth, and soon her father was torn apart by beasts, and the girl was left completely alone. The clan admitted they left the girl outside the village to avoid bringing trouble upon themselves. The fear of the curse stopped them from killing her, but still, they abandoned her. Listening more carefully, the youth realized her existence was used as a shield against misfortune, not as a child at all. The elder insisted she has no other purpose. The man's face, hardened by years, did not flinch. He showed neither pity nor doubt in their decision. Despite warnings about the danger beyond the village, the young man was determined. He had to see everything for himself. Stepping past the houses, he headed to the forest where the lonely girl stayed and decided to see the truth firsthand. Hiding behind broken wooden boards, the girl remained alone among the thickets. Torn fabric covered the entrance to her shelter. Catching the footsteps, she barely turned her head. The emptiness vanished from her face, replaced by anxiety. Fear gripped her body as soon as she sensed someone approaching. A young man cautiously appeared in her field of vision, raising his hands as if to say he was not a threat. Though his posture was calm, panic overwhelmed her fragile state without warning. Confusion froze in her eyes. She could not comprehend why he was there or what he planned. Isolation had made her unable to understand even simple words. Rough shackles bound her ankle. She had been tied from birth, abandoned and locked away. Within these walls, she endured complete solitude. She looked at him while the chains stretched between them, her body trembling, a whole life clenched only by fear and loneliness. Questions full of tears burned in her eyes, but there was no answer as to why she was left alive to suffer in solitude. He could not watch her suffer. The young man stepped forward and, despite the shackles binding her, pressed her to himself. Shock flashed across her face as he held her tightly, and anger rose within him over the cruelty that forced her to exist. Shaking with emotion, he recognized her loneliness and bitterness and silently promised she would never be left abandoned again. Kneeling before her, he pressed her body to himself. It was still trembling, and tears streamed down his face like rain. Years of restraint broke apart right in this quiet forest glade. Gently lifting her chin, he caught her confused gaze and suddenly realized some burdens can only be lightened by one's own choice to act. For a long time, he convinced himself that a quiet life within his means was quite enough, but as soon as he saw her suffering, his faith seemed to shatter completely. Overwhelmed with emotions, he hugged her tightly while she sobbed without any restraint, and the pain poured out from both of them at once. Eventually, their breathing evened out, and he loosened his grip. The forest fell silent again, but his determination had irrevocably changed. When the tears finally subsided, he tried to find out if she understood him. She responded only with simple gestures and watched intently as the expression on his face changed. Suddenly, under his hand, her hair barely shimmered. A shadow of surprise flashed across his face, and he immediately realized that something was no longer the same, not as before. He grabbed her shoulders firmly and asked abruptly if she wanted to leave the village. Suddenly, determination awoke in him, and former doubts began to shift. She silently looked at him. Her gaze was steady, but doubt trembled within it. The air between them was tense, and with every moment a new possibility sprouted. Before he could make the next move, villagers appeared nearby and interrupted their moment. Their presence threatened to shatter the fragile instant he had just managed to create. From the forest suddenly emerged a masked man, instantly frightening him. In a moment of recognition, the figure removed the mask and turned out to be an ally. The newcomer explained that he had been hiding nearby and returned only after hearing a cry for help. Relief melted the tension between them. Anxiety displaced calm when he clenched. "We must leave the forest immediately." The others waited behind the trees until he returned. Straightening himself inside, he announced his intention to negotiate peacefully with the peasants about the isolated girl. Resolve aligned his facial expression. Meanwhile, the girl retreated back into her shelter, shuddering at the unfamiliar faces. The The fragile trust he had built still held but shakily under their watchful eyes. Seeing them, the ally broke into loud sobs. For a moment, the relief that overwhelmed him faltered from tension and turned into awkward, embarrassed misunderstanding. Looking away, the young man froze with the thought. His choice might lead him away from a quiet life, yet he still could not ignore what he had witnessed. Finally, decisively, he took her hand and accepted the burden himself. To save her, that was what he would not back down from. Without averting his gaze, he promised her freedom, and in his heart determination displaced all hesitation. Under the open sky, he began removing from her what bound her, choosing a path of such purity as to leave no room for reproach. In the castle grounds, a young woman anxiously searched for her missing husband. Fear blurred her thoughts until she suddenly realized he had vanished. A messenger brought a letter and delivered troubling news about the man living in her dwelling. Unease spread as soon as it became clear what was happening. The report said he had been taken by half-humans. Shock immediately pressed her into silence. The weight of these words settled heavily on her heart, like a stone. Meanwhile, he entered the homes of the clan leaders and, focusing, calmly put forward conditions for official negotiations. With cold confidence, he assured them that they could argue on equal terms, but instead demanded to accept only his one condition. In the dwelling, the clan elder was broken by doubt, whether equality really rests on satisfying his demand. Tension pressed into the cramped space. Calmly, he clarified, the negotiations would rely on their own confidence. His condition should not become an obstacle to the discussions themselves. Holding his gaze steady, he finally stated his demand. He wanted the cursed child to be given a chance to leave the village. The elder carefully examined him, noticing how he had become attached to the girl. Beneath her restrained face, suspicion still flickered. Unyielding, he insisted, this decision would benefit both the child and the clan. Despite close scrutiny, his determination did not waver. Sudden news arrived. Armed men were gathered at the forest entrance, and anxiety rippled among the clan members as tension sharply increased. Standing calmly, he explained that the soldiers had come for him alone and, instead of retreating, he insisted that the conversation continue. Then he threw out a harsh alternative in response. The strongest warrior must duel the cursed child, and her freedom would depend on victory. The elder woman scrutinized him intently, trying to determine whether his feelings truly differed from theirs. Doubt smoldered in her gaze. He did not back down. He accepted their suspicions and revealed the truth. What they called a duel was only an attempt to remove the girl. After a brief silence, the clan agreed to the duel in his terms. He clearly demanded, no one but him should bear any curse. Beyond the tree's armored soldiers prepared their weapons. He watched them calmly, understanding one would have to fight for real. Steel clanged just as the knight delivered a powerful blow. The echo slammed into the ground, and fragment dust scattered across the clearing as far as the alder tree. Blow after blow fell without pause, each heavier than the previous. The clash forced both sides to endure the full weight of the fight until the end. Faces hardened with determination as the battle flared. No warrior intended to retreat from the clash. A fierce exchange of blows erupted. The warrior's strike, cutting through the earth, scattered debris across the forest clearing, and the soldiers froze in defensive stances. Without averting his vigilant gaze, he calmly explained, the soldiers did not seek a real battle, they only came to show strength. Silence held in waves among the spectators as soon as he announced that negotiations would begin. Chaos slipped away from the place, and restrained waiting prevailed against its backdrop. Next to the trembling girl stepped the village's strongest fighter. A decisive duel was to put an end to everything. In the village square, beast warriors surrounded the girl with white hair, and nearby several residents lay unconscious. The boy silently watched as tension spread beneath the huge tree. With a calm gait, the boy returned to the elderly mage after staging a convincing performance. The guards dragged the girl away, and he only wore an expression no one could read. A faint smile slid across his face as he considered how it had worked. Shoulder to shoulder with the elder, he walked and silently listened while the elder recalled another task. In the village, they whispered about the humiliation their strongest fighter had suffered. Tension exploded as soon as suspicions arose about his intentions towards the girl, but the boy still remained calm as if he was ready to accept any consequences that would follow. Dark energy rose above the square as the beastman lunged at the blonde girl. With rage, he lowered his eyes, and the boy silently just watched. As soon as the duel flared up, tears ran down her cheeks, and the beastman leaned forward, gripping his weapon even tighter. Lunged ahead. The table sweeps the table. It attacks without any restraint. It drives a blow toward her smaller figure and shakes the ground beneath them. The peasants shuddered in shock. Fear covered her face, but at the critical moment, the boy stretched out his hand. A sudden force burst from her body. She pushed the beastman back and evened the course of the fight. The beastman recoiled as soon as the sudden strength of the girl struck his body, pushing him across the square and breaking his attack. Shock swept like a wave among the peasants, while the Karagrams watched calmly, understood the true goal behind the staged confrontation. The young man stepped forward, sharply raised his voice and addressed the crowd. The girl's paleness is her natural state, not a curse. He explained that the death of her parents was only a tragedy, not proof of an evil plan, and that fear had blinded the entire village. Loudly condemning their ignorance, the boy proclaimed the accusation a real crime. He placed a steady, sure hand on the girl's shoulder and it immediately became clear. The duel was arranged to defend her dignity before the doubtful peasants. He described rare trees that flare up as soon as an excess of magic fills them, and he compared their glow to the light flowing from her hair. In a calm tone, he explained that glow conceals incredible power, and her might equals that of legendary heroes of the past. Carefully lifting her, he assured that she was not cursed, she was a blessing born of extraordinary talent. Silence covered the square, while villagers from the entire village tried, with all their might, to comprehend the truth laid before their eyes. The boy pressed the girl to himself and declared he would take responsibility for her, so the promise made before the village would be fulfilled without any objections. After that, he led her away from the square, followed by elders and guards. Former hostility seemed to melt away, giving way to reluctant acceptance. As they walked away, he secretly replayed in his mind how the duel was arranged, recalling the careful preparation and the help he sought to control her magic. She passed the trial through fear and endured, proving her own strength. Her confidence was to become a support for further growth. In the end, he was sure, this lesson would stop further darkness and ignorance settling in the village. The boy admitted that the Karagrams helped arrange a small trick to enhance the effect of the duel before the villagers. Even before the battle began, he secretly warned the girl about the danger, forcing her to shift the fear from its place and thereby awaken her own power. After everything that happened, she suddenly broke into tears. She was overwhelmed by the tension that simply had to be endured. Watching her cry, he realized she had to go through hostility, and for the sake of his plan, she risked herself without hesitation. He did not dare to end everything with a harsh truth. The boy remained silent, choosing carefully to direct her future and make sure that from now on she lived in safety. Suddenly, behind the trees, a tense presence stirred, and the boy felt a powerful magic descending into the clearing. A woman in armor with long hair stepped through the light barrier. Her cloak flew apart, and an invincible force seemed to cover the entire forest. Pulling a sharp smile, she declared that here was her arrival, and the whole group froze, confused by the unexpected interruption. The boy rushed into explaining her lateness, trying to suppress the panic that was already rising among his comrades. Laughing coldly, the armed woman in armor mockingly commented on their gathering, and under her threatening gaze, tension and uncertainty immediately intertwined within the group. The armed woman in armor stood before the group, and the boy was pushed forward while the others retreated, leaving him alone against her. Feigning confidence, he tried to shift the responsibility while she weighed his actions and motives under heavy doubt. Noticing her exhaustion after searching in the forest, he approached closer and gently placed his hand on her head. Having listened to her concerns, he admitted, perhaps she really felt uncomfortable in this situation and suggested calming down. A visible relief appeared on her face as he whispered a quiet thank you, easing the tension between them. The guy carried the woman in armor out of the clearing while the others watched him. Everyone breathed a sigh of relief. The clash was over without further destruction. It smelled of tree scent in the shade behind them. Two comrades quietly conversed, pondering how events might have unfolded differently if she had arrived earlier. Pressing her to himself, he suddenly understood everything. His careless phrase had already reached her ears and an awkward silence hung between them. Shame quickly turned into retaliation. She hit him several times, forcing him to retreat, while the others silently watched everything. After the guerrilla attack, the boy regained consciousness in the castle room. Ilias, the long-haired blonde, gave him a scolding for his reckless behavior. Soon Ilias took the little girl animal to the bathhouse, while the boy went to report the situation to the local authorities. The just cleaned and frightened girl rushed forward, tears rolling from her eyes. Her intensified strength was still out of control and the air in the room stretched to the limit. Panic flared up instantly when she lunged at the boy and almost strangled him. As soon as restraint disappeared, the conversation turned practical. The guy suggested taking her to Maya's place and using a possession spell to safely determine her condition. He was handed an official invitation, recognizing his recent achievements. Ilias reacted sharply. He warned that such attention means one thing: the authorities have already acknowledged his actions. Sitting nearby, he explained, standing out here is only to invite trouble. Ilias listened while a little girl quietly watched nearby. Calmly, the boy said he could survive here only with allies he would rely on. His restrained tone sharply contrasted with how Ilias's fist clenched. Silence fell a 10, Ilias asked if he really trusted them. Doubt flickered on her face. After a pause, the boy admitted that he still relied on them. He named Kira, Gramps, Maya, Ban, San, and Ilias as people he trusted. He confessed that he was afraid to stand out and make even more enemies. Only a week had passed since he entered this world, and he still did not dare to fully trust others. He explained holding on to someone required courage he did not yet have. Past encounters with danger had taught him caution. Despite everything, the boy admitted, right now he trusted Ilias the most. She was stunned by how calmly and consistently he kept his face. Having received an official summons from Lord Ragdo, he decided to accept the invitation. Ilias only glanced in surprise, his decisiveness seemed so sudden. Rising from his seat, the boy firmly declared that he would repay the support he had received. They gathered together to leave first to Maya. Outside the church, a little beast girl stood under the clear sky with her eyes closed, as if savoring the peaceful air. Inside, Ilias gently introduced herself and nudged the girl to respond. While the boy and Ilias waited nearby, the cloaked woman finished her spells. Turning her head slightly, the girl laboriously formed simple words. She clumsily commented on the pleasant weather and stubbornly avoided direct answers. After discussing the controversial consequences of the spell, they moved on to possible risks. The boy asked what dangers it might pose, and the robed woman assured everything looked stable. Curiosity displaced confusion as soon as the girl brightened. Hearing the name Ilias, she looked at the boy and waited to see how exactly to address him. The boy dismissed overly familiar forms of address and pondered how to properly call the girl. After a brief dispute, he suggested a more formal option. As soon as she realized the options, the beast girl chose master without hesitation. The boy accepted her choice, and Ilias watched closely. Then he asked Maya to teach that girl to control and tame her magic. No actions began without instructions. Suddenly, another woman rushed forward and hugged the girl, stunned by how she looked. The unexpected tenderness unsettled everyone standing nearby. While they sorted out clothes and daily needs, resolving practical issues, the boy took care of Sarah, ensuring the girl could start getting used to city life. He took the opportunity to help the beast girl learn the language using Maya's spell. Now she could speak with others. He warned if she relied on him forever, it would erase her independence. Ilias saw how he repeatedly imposed the same truth on himself. Looking at Maya, the boy entrusted her with the girl's education, insisting that language and basic knowledge come first. Firmly resolved to teach her to live, he still honestly admitted his abilities were limited by the local customs of this world. Soon lessons began right inside the church. Books opened, diagrams laid out on paper, and Maya began studying the foundations of her new life. Ilya honed sword fencing in the church, while preparations for other matters were underway nearby. Meanwhile, the seamstress quickly sewed new clothes for the beast girl. As soon as the seamstress stopped, she rushed forward and announced the outfit was ready. The boy was sent outside to wait while they took care of the final fittings. He stayed alone in the yard and patiently waited while laughter came from inside. Confidence reigned in the room. Were preparing an announcement. The beast girl stepped outside in a tight black outfit. Her long hair and tail swayed gently as she showed off her new look. Everyone reacted with surprise and admiration. The boy carefully examined the length of the outfit, wondering if it was not too short. Kravchinya adjusted her outfit a bit more, made small tweaks so it would fit better and move more freely. The girl beast turned around and asked if it looked better now. The guy looked at the result and admitted that it suited her. Although the style looked modern, he believed it would not cause serious problems. After this, he asked Sierra to prepare additional clothing for the time when Ilias would be off duty. The group agreed. The design would also suit the demi-humanoid. For the help, the boy thanked and offered payment. The coins lay in Kira's palm for her work. But he warned skill must receive a worthy reward. An equal exchange, he explained, is needed when someone creates something truly valuable. The guy insisted that commissioned work requires proper payment and recognition. Sarah hesitated, dragging out her thought. She said she was not yet a full seamstress. Calmly and confidently, he answered. Everyone believed that it would continue to develop, and if the rewards suddenly seemed too generous, no one forbade honing the skill once more. Inspired by his words, Suraj promised to create even more impressive designs. The team recognized her talent and creative potential. Soon they both reached the next destination. The boy thought that Sierra was truly a reliable person. As soon as the gates opened, the beast girl stepped forward beside him. Curiosity burned in her eyes as she prepared to see the world on the other side. The boy brought the beast girl for the first time to a bustling tavern where townsfolk crowded. While they found a table, conversations were happening around and laughter echoed. He ordered something non-alcoholic for her and spoke casually with the staff. Waiting for the order, the boy had a thought. Maybe it was time to plan their next step. A bowl of food was placed before her. The boy encouraged her, "Look and eat just like the others." She watched him carefully before taking a sip herself. Imitating his movements, she slowly raised the spoon to her mouth. The taste spread across her face as soon as she felt it, her eyes widened. Impressed, she continued eating while others quietly observed her reaction. In the tavern, the beast girl ate her fill and impatiently asked for more. The boy and Ilias silently exhaled with relief, watching her eat. After that, they went out under the night sky to the castle. The boy thought she still knew nothing, yet he wanted her to live independently someday. When they talked about her future, the topic of her name came up, until it turned out that in her village she was still called only by a cruel label. Considering her origin from the Black Wolves clan, they argued about words related to color and self-identification, but none of the early ideas appealed. Eventually, they settled on a simple variation, inspired by wolf. The new name became the first step to giving her a rightful place in the world. After Ilias checked how it sounded, he approved the name with a gentle smile. The boy thought it through completely, then nodded and agreed. He, standing before her, placed his hands on her shoulders and announced, from this day on, she would be called Wolf everywhere. She slowly repeated the unfamiliar word, carefully pronouncing each syllable. The confusion melted away, and recognition appeared on her face. Her face flushed as soon as she confidently named herself Wolf. The boy instantly exhaled with relief, and his pride was unmistakable. Soon they reached a modest house. Extending his hand, he told the she-wolf that from today this place would become her new home. Wolf got used to the new name, testing how it rolled off the tongue, while the boy and Ilias carefully watched every movement. After a brief hesitation, he still agreed. It suited her. In the house, they took a step forward together. The boy declared that from today Wolf's life would begin right here. Far away in the castle, a nobleman opened a report about hidden demigods, human tribes, and recent unrest in the controlled territory, and the more he mentioned new discoveries, the hotter everyone's curiosity grew. Conversation again merged into the boy's course of action. His connection with mountain bandits, strange findings, and at the same time they summarized that he had indeed accepted the invitation to the banquet. Leaning by the window, the nobleman pondered. Even noble society could not stir him. Instead, it was precisely the changes brought by this young man that seemed to captivate his attention. From the castle window, one nobleman had already spoken about the upcoming banquet feast, but he was immediately reminded to behave properly, yet his gaze revealed a much deeper interest. Meanwhile, the boy walked through the corridors of his home, clutching thoughts about the rapid growth of wolves and about what hidden insecurities of Ilias were lurking nearby. Responsibility pressed on him with every step. He remembered how Ilias trained to exhaustion because she was afraid of appearing unreliable. Her overly delicate sensitivity to others' thoughts troubled him. Alone in his own room, he suddenly realized. After meeting Wolf, his gaze was distorted, and doubt settled in his mind. Closing his eyes, the boy forced himself to gather his thoughts. He reminded himself, his usual calm judgment still remained unchanged. The boy, a young man with black hair, prepared formal clothes for the award ceremony after he defeated the bandits in. Inside, Wolf, blonde, the hairy woman immediately noticed how his appearance had changed. Surprise flashed in her eyes as soon as she saw his elegant clothes and straight, collected posture. Near the gates, quite close to the estate, a carriage was waiting. The boy was showered with compliments while he examined himself and involuntarily realized he looked more like a nobleman than a fighter. Instead of his usual gear, ceremonial armor was put on him for the event. The polished surface gleamed dazzlingly, although the restoration had taken a lot of effort earlier. During the celebration, problems in trade quietly surfaced. Control over negotiations between the Black Wolf tribe and Tezu was temporarily handed over to Van. The boy was appointed as a mediator for negotiations with the Black Wolf tribe. In return, he would receive a small percentage of future trade profits. In the spacious hall, the nobility gathered under high chandeliers, and whispers quietly grew. Motives were suspected, and foreigners among the attendees were doubted. When the whisper became sharper, the tension in the crowd thickened. The boy felt hostility brewing and understood. This was subtle resistance from influential nobles. The crowd's attention sharpened as soon as King Tezu appeared before them. His youthful figure sharply contrasted with the authority felt in every movement throughout the hall. Glances briefly crossed between the ruler and the mediator, and inside the boy something chilled as he realized. The ceremony had a much deeper political subtext than he had expected. The boy managed to catch his eyes meeting the king's eyes, and the moment immediately vanished. While the nobility sat silently and watched, prestigious titles were proclaimed. Ilias II Roskill was presented to the assembly, a composed appearance, an authoritative posture, as befits. The hall fell completely silent. Attention clung to the throne. Jumping down on his knees with due respect, the boy received royal praise for killing the bandit leader. Immediately applause rang out. High's courage and recent achievements were recognized without hesitation. The ceremony had just ended, and the guests moved to the grand banquet hall. The tables were laden with dishes for the gathered nobles and officials. Sitting among them, the boy calmly tasted the exquisite dishes and felt quiet satisfaction. Despite the political tension, he allowed himself only a moment of relief. While the boy was eating at the banquet, he was informed, Sir Ragudo wants to meet him. He quickly swallowed and followed without any objections. Salvate Saragudo officially greeted him and thanked him for helping the team. The boy listened attentively while the nobility watched their conversation. Soon Morito Tatsu approached with a restrained, calm smile, introduced himself as king, and asked to speak privately. When their eyes met, the air seemed to thicken, silence grew heavy, and beneath the king's composed expression, the tension clearly increased. He was bombarded with questions about his origin and connection to Sir Rashalin now. He found himself under a watchful, scrutinizing eye. The boy was preparing to answer cautiously. Under the pressure of this royal trial, the boy immediately understood he was being judged, but instead of losing his temper, he did not respond directly. Turning away from the outstretched hand, he calmly approached the nearest table, and the observers froze, ignored the hint of a challenge. Reaching for the laid-out banquet, he took the fruits without hesitation. The movements were light and effortless, yet each piece had its cold-bloodedly calculated meaning. While he ate quietly, a political trap spun in his head, set right before him. Without engaging in a clash, he steered everything toward a safe line of conduct. Without any notifications, the boy moved toward the exit, but the unexpected response disrupted the king's balance. For a moment, he was simply baffled in the hall. Nobles realized the boy had quietly disappeared from the hall. As soon as the king saw he was gone, the hall erupted into confusion and he reacted immediately. Not wanting to lose his chance, the king sharply rushed forward. Just as he was about to run down the corridor, his composed appearance cracked. Frustration surged as soon as he realized the meeting ended too quickly, and his cautious plans to test the boy again proved futile. But before reaching the exit, he saw the boy calmly waiting on the stairs. The young intermediary spoke to him evenly, with confidence in every word. After that old test, the boy admitted, he finally understood the king's intentions, and the conversation with the chase mercilessly turned into a direct confrontation. The king suddenly broke his official manner. He laughed loudly so that everyone around shuddered. The courtiers rushed forward bewildered by his sharp change. Grabbing the boy by the shoulder, the king declared his interest and led him upstairs. The tension melted into an unexpected, yet familiar closeness. Sitting beside him, the king expressed gratitude that they managed to quell the bandit crisis. The boy modestly declined the honor and downplayed his own contribution. Wine was poured as the conversation shifted towards strategy. For the victory over the gang under leadership, the honor was shared between the boy and Lady Razzle. The young man admitted, his methods rely on finding weak spots, and he avoids vanity. The king watched him closely. He was intrigued by this restraint. Sitting calmly, the boy insisted, Ilias deserves praise. He explained her determination and willingness to accept help made success possible. Switching the conversation, the boy asked why the Black Wolves were given equal trading rights, and instead of ruling over them, he chose balance. Laughing at his reasoning, the king mockingly and effortlessly teased him. The boy immediately felt the sharp mind hidden behind that relaxed semblance. The conversation sharply shifted to a serious tone as soon as the king spoke about the boy's origin. Tension grew until dangerous questions began to surface. Breaking this tense suspense, a report was placed on the table. The document threatened to expose a broader problem that no side could remain silent about any longer. The king showed, in the book there was the language of the boy from the former world. He tried not to read it, but even the very knowledge put him at risk. He explained that the study of forbidden magic is prohibited by an international pact. In stricter lands, even understanding such a text can mean execution. Then he revealed the truth. The leader of the mountain bandits was once a killer in Metasand. This confession deepened the political consequences even further. Sensing that the conversation had gone too far, the boy did not lower his vigilance. Now this topic had already gone beyond trade and was stretching into an international conflict. Despite his reluctance, the king forced the continuation of the research. Ultimately, the boy was made responsible for investigating the book. The king asked how much knowledge the sealed book really holds. Foreign writing confirmed, it comes from the boy's former world. He explained that the Ugula church in Midges has enormous influence. If the cases of rhinitis led them to the bandits' base, then they might have already suspected the existence of the book. Then I assured him that some people were not spies. The king grimly noted, trust is still fragile, and political factions could quietly take advantage of this situation for their own benefit. They agreed to keep the investigation secret, not letting Ilias and Lady Razzle in. Silence was needed until Medes learned about the discovery. Eventually, the king demanded a translation into the language of this world. The boy accepted the burden and quickly weighed the risks ahead. The king, with a confident smile, dismissed the need for written records. All translated knowledge, he said, would be stored only in his own memory. The boy immediately recognized the trap. Swallowing forbidden information with a single head increased both his personal risk and political instability. Calmly, the king insisted, "This method will not allow the evidence to leak. Without documents, no faction will be able to seize the evidence or distort the conclusions." Silence fell, and it became clear how heavy this responsibility is. The burden will fall not only on the boy, but also on the ruler himself. Plan worked in, the stock of safe options ran out. The boy felt how everything was arranged into one coherent scheme. Now they were tightly held by a shared secret. The king and the boy sealed the agreement with a firm handshake. They proclaimed mutual trust and pledged to keep the shared secret in the future. When he left, the king relaxed and began reflecting on their meeting. And I must say, he admitted that the young mediator turned out to be much more interesting than he had expected. Raising his glass, he admitted, he increasingly desired to gain the boy's loyalty, and he was interested not only in simple assistance in political matters. Privately in the storeroom, he decided to win over that capable outsider for the sake of the nation. Ambitions quietly displaced amusements. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Ilya's returned home, unaware of the deeper conspiracies already ripening. The events of that evening had just begun to spread in waves. At a small gathering, the boy prepared food and praised Ilya's for her efforts, emphasizing that the celebration was her victory. Hearing him, Ilya smiled brightly. He hoped that sincere support would ease the prejudices she still lived with. In a dark chamber, the hooded agent looked around and threw a doubtful question whether those hidden records had been returned. The search around the bandits' base had failed. Anxiety only grew as the viewers watched the borders of Tezu. They feared that if the book was found and left the country, dangerous consequences would await it. In the shadow, a horned creature warned that staying without shelter was deadly dangerous. Their alliance would break. The name Red Demon Lord rolled through the chamber like thunder. 10 months after the boy found himself in another world, he set a simple breakfast on the table in his wooden house. Cooking gradually became part of his cautious routine. Without warning, Wolf flew inside with lively energy in her voice and movements. Her cheerful nature melted the silence in the room as soon as she joined him at the table. Those simple Japanese words he once taught her, she carefully incorporated into her movements and food presentation. Though her vocabulary remained small, clear progress was still visible in her speech. Even in a calm atmosphere, the boy suddenly remembered, Mayana's mastery magic was still needed for everything to hold together properly. A little later, when they were properly dressed, Wolf returned composed and resumed her measured life without adventures, but together with them. At breakfast, the boy reminded Vovk that public impression matters and nudged her to return greetings properly. An uncertain smile did appear, but her face still remained tense. Determination flickered across her face as she clung to one more attempt, was not used to natural warmth. It was difficult for her to combine eating with training a softer facial expression. Fun touched the boy's features as soon as he noticed her efforts, so he did not criticize. Heronly quietly encouraged her, giving her time to recover. Outside, Vivchitsia walked the streets with the confidence that she had already become strong. The surprised glances of the townspeople no longer made her retreat. Head Ilyas proudly moved forward while the news spread through the city. Demi and the people were officially recognized, and changes slowly began in the city. Nishi badge from Sira Ryudo, the boy entered a huge building next to Wolf. The emblem, without unnecessary formalities, granted them an audience and opened the way through the guarded halls. In the luxurious office, they respectfully greeted the king. The ruler warmly welcomed Wolf and, sitting at the table, reviewed the documents. After brief formalities, they were led to the prepared waiting room, comfortable furniture, shelves, and silence in the hall while the papers were being processed elsewhere. While Vovk was lying relaxed and playfully on the sofa, the boy was flipping through papers with restrained, polite composure and, increasingly, sharply felt that he was somehow out of place here among this courtly entourage. As soon as training sounded, the wolf jumped up and remained in place, sitting motionless. Meanwhile, he calmly watched her leave. In the royal chancellery, the king explained that a new educational program with selected candidates had started and that it was positively received. Supposedly, students would be able to choose their own subjects. But raising national standards proved difficult. Support remained limited even despite a promising framework, and the broad reformist course encountered hesitation. He sat opposite, and the boy answered Morito's questions cautiously, revealing again and again the knowledge he brought from his original world. The conversation shifted to politics. They argued about monarchy and democracy, and also whether foreign policy could really work under the conditions of Tezu. When the political questions were exhausted, attention turned to cultural development. The king asked to explain practical inventions, especially kitchen appliances. Scattered notes with detailed descriptions of amazing devices he had never seen before lay on the table. Morito noted, reproducing such instruments with magic could be useful, but understanding their basic principles is still too difficult. His restrained concentration finally turned into action. He concluded that a trusted master illusionist would be needed for the proper implementation of these ideas. As the conversation gained momentum, he suggested a short break, acknowledging that their progress was indeed steady. In the courtyard from inside out, Wolf was conducting intense training. She lunged forward with a furious impulse against her opponent. Blades clanged dully and collided again as she dodged and counterattacked without any pause. From above and from the observer's side, her furious growth was visible, although she never managed to land a decisive blow. Watching the fight, the boy admitted, despite the knight's long combat experience, there was a clear gap in weapon coordination. It was skill and discipline that determined the outcome. Above the field, Ilya's moved with stunning power. Her techniques noticeably exceeded ordinary standards, and even experienced soldiers perceived her as something truly exceptional. Rumors spread once she blocked a mighty spear with her own body, enhanced by incredible magic. Her strength surpassed even Wolfson. Her gaze did not let go, silently calling to join the training. Those who watched felt the pressure of her fierce determination. Then she demonstrated magical control to the younger girls, demanding they focus properly. While they diligently studied, the king encouraged the boy to think about learning self-defense. In the corridor, the king suggested to the boy to master techniques in Sir Ragudo's team. Later, he revealed the details. Maya asked for a few knights as guides for distant villages. Smiling lightly, the king suggested the boy accompany them and called it a valuable opportunity. This offer made much more sense than it seemed at first. Responsibility for village inspections and church affairs has already been distributed among trusted people. The plans included checking branches and constructing churches where needed, based on the proposal. The boy immediately realized this journey would open to him life beyond the castle and expand his understanding of the world. When the arrangements had quietly settled, he took on the role of a representative for training and was about to depart. Night fell on the castle as the boy returned to his wooden home. Fatigue was evident in every movement, and the distant city lights behind dimmed and disappeared. Inside, Ilya sat at the table, polishing her weapon by the fireplace. It was quieter in that quiet room than earlier at the training ground. After the greeting, he immediately realized Vovk had fallen asleep even before she started talking to him. At all, the daytime fatigue had finally caught up with her. Conversation involuntarily shifted towards training. Ilya suggested that next time he join, and she noted that Wolf's progress is truly impressive. Later, reflecting on court etiquette, he acknowledged the delicate balance required when addressing the monarch and realized that caution still remains necessary. While they were talking with Ilyas, the boy admitted that Maritu had offered to arrange accommodation for him near the castle, promising convenience and easier access to official matters. He explained that living closer made it easier to visit daily and required less travel between the castle and the wooden house, and Ilyas listened silently. Despite all the advantages, he had already declined the offer, and his decision weighed more than any practicality. Surprised, Ilyas kept asking about the refusal. He felt the reason was neither distance nor comfort. He calmly and evenly admitted the reasons were purely personal and partly for Wolf's sake, honestly showing how he was still getting used to this unfamiliar world. Under the dim flame of the torches, the boy said it simply. Anxiety still did not leave him after living in this country. He spoke calmly, but the unrest did not let go. Silence hung as Wolf watched him attentively across the table. Uncertainty appeared in his widened eyes. He turned away and told her to interpret his words however she wished, then apologized and left for the night. Her embarrassment pinned her firmly in place. Left alone, Wolf quietly repeated his phrase and tried to grasp its meaning while the fireplace crackled nearby. Gradually, understanding formed in her thoughts. He wanted to rely on her, and this thought raised a wave of unfamiliar feelings. Alone in the room, the boy lay across the bed and admitted, all this time he was the one who was anxious. The quiet ceiling gave no relief, though it was near. Even when he kept composed in front of others, the dependence still defined him. His thoughts were disrupted by the fact that fear, this attachment to life, would only grow stronger. Memories of battles and burdens rolled over him wave after wave, reminding him Ilyas had largely forged his survival in this world. Comparing to how it was once, he felt, today there are fewer conveniences but more sincerity in people, and gratitude to Ilyas only grew stronger. He recalled the last words of the condemned and understood, even in a flawed life one can maintain dignity, and from this thought his resolve only hardened. Sitting on the bed, the boy sorted out in his mind the honest people he had met in this world. Their openness brought him unexpected peace. Gradually he came to terms with the thought that a peaceful life does not make him weak. Living quietly can still be a just path. Standing by the open window, he decided to someday find the way home, responsibly continuing to live here. Peace remained his priority. Morning came, preparations were already in full swing. Supplies and equipment were carefully checked for the upcoming journey. Outside Ka. In the Wolf Castle, she abruptly declared her determination to study, while the boy calmly confirmed his role as the appointed representative. Before the gates of the Lacra Cathedral, Self solemnly introduced herself. She promised cooperation, welcoming the newly appointed candidate. The boy arrived in the bustling city and walked alongside Wolf through narrow streets between stone houses, passing merchants near the huge gate. In the silence, Wolf stopped and carefully examined him while he calmly introduced himself and maintained a polite posture before her. Noticing his black hair and unusual presence, she sensed a low capacity for mania and thoughtfully and with interest asked about his origin. In response, he told about his wandering life in various places and admitted his weakness in physical labor, also acknowledging limited abilities in magic. Later, during the ritual of spirit possession, a shining figure emerged from his body, and this became confirmation that a spirit was hidden inside the boy. The boy entered the stone fortress, built a city near the wolf, passing by carts and guards and carefully examining unfamiliar places with cautious vigilance. Stopping by the gates, the wolf cast a careful look around, composed, restrained, and immediately, without any hesitation, introduced himself with due respect. Noticing his black hair and rare features, she felt an extremely low mana in his body, and quietly, without haste, laid out his origins and roots. He spoke about his continuous wandering through the regions, honestly admitting that he had little strength for hard work, and explained his naturally weak magical ability. During the spiritual technique he had used earlier, a shining figure emerged from within him, and it inhabited what the boy secretly held inside himself, a bound spirit. Maya met the boy's gaze and began a conversation about the distorted truth. Calmly, step by step, she revealed how prepared answers hid secrets about Tezu and the Black Wolf tribe. Outside the city, their carriage quietly rolled along the road, and he repeatedly replayed his early mistakes in his mind and gathered himself together. Head stretched rolling hills. Sitting in the carriage, he unfolded a map and plotted a route to a distant fortified settlement. When they arrived, the peaceful village greeted them with simple houses and wary guards. It seemed that calm stability was maintained right under the open sky. Inspecting the watchtower and the water tower, the boy assessed the fortifications and water sources, carefully checking the safety and viability of the settlement. The wolf explained that monsters and demon lords existed beyond the region, and reminded the boy about the gate in Tezu, which connected this world with the demon realm. While they were walking, she nodded towards the distant Black Lord Killer Mountain, the demon lord, and warned about the dangers lurking on its icy slopes. As soon as the boy heard about that place, his whole body tensed like a stretched string. He remembered the terrible slime that lived there. Wonalder assured him that he had survived thanks to luck, adding, most monsters who dared to approach the village encountered the same slime and died. Wolf finished the visit with new confidence, sure that support would follow as soon as he confirmed the unusual protection of the settlement. And how Ugula defeated the resurrected demon lords by founding Ugulaism. Since then it became both a legend and a religion across the continent. In the carriage she explained, although Megis has a king, the real levers of power are held in the hands of Pope Ugula. The boy pondered forbidden magic, the pursuit of Daokal, and how the church is entangled in politics, and realized that this is what forges the kingdom's tough stance. As the carriage rolled on, the open fields and peacefully grazing cattle increasingly hinted that they were approaching another rural settlement. Noticing smaller cows in the village, the boy carefully compared them with the previous ones in the town, and quietly, with attentive curiosity, analyzed the difference in the environment. The group decided to spend the night in the village church, leaving the carriage outside until the evening settled over the quiet hills. While the elder was invited to the mayor's house, the boy stayed behind and organized the political information he had managed to gather. Alone at a small table, he studied the papers and summarized regional politics, emphasizing church authority and local governance. Deep in the night, a sharp knock broke his concentration, and he sharply glanced toward the door. The woman quietly entered. She couldn't sleep and stood before him in a light robe, while he demonstratively reacted with surprise. She glanced through his documents with amazement, struck by the meticulous details gathered from the same information. Sitting at a small table, he explained, meticulous records are the only thing he can rely on as an inexperienced candidate. Realizing this, she looked at him with warm eyes, believing that his diligence would calm people. As soon as he expressed gratitude, she suddenly leaned closer and touched his cheek, and this completely confused him. Coming even closer, she made it clear. She had another purpose for the inspection trip. This guy was frozen by it, and he did not dare to understand what was happening under her watchful presence. With a calm smile, the blonde finally confessed. She was searching for a forbidden book on necromancy, carefully tracking every expression of his. Hearing this, he forced a laugh and retreated to the door, and she remained, frozen in surprise at his sudden escape. Inside, he had to admit, behind his calm, her investigation of Dokol's matters definitely fit into the framework he had expected. Sitting alone, he replayed that earlier incident in his mind. He was burdened by anxiety over how quickly events had unfolded that night. Returning to clarity, he faced her intentions. He realized she approached him mostly to extract information, not out of genuine interest. Struck by his direct phrase, the fair-haired woman froze, confidence shattered as soon as she realized her attempt had been exposed. Stunned, she denied any guilt and begged, let him forget all this, while he calmly explained that her charm had worked. Choking with shame, she admitted that she still found the courage for this act and demanded to know why he had failed in her confidence. Through tears, she listened as he laid everything out clearly. Due to his extremely low mana, magical interference could not affect him. In the awkward silence, he reflected on his own weakness and concluded, his almost empty mana made him a curiosity even in this world. Resolutely deciding to eliminate his weakness, he stepped forward, and the blonde had already offered to transfer her mana to the boy, believing that this would balance the disparity between them. He immediately rejected the offer, recalling her previous attempt and questioning this sudden audacity. When she finally recovered, she told about a secret mission, a stolen forbidden book related to demon lords, and that suspicions were already spreading around her. She fought for lost dignity, boasted about her advanced magic, yet he still was not going to take her word for it. Completely calmly, he suggested making the existence of the book public, reasoning that an open announcement would restrict movement and prevent others from using it. And suddenly everything fell into place. The blonde understood his logic and regained her former confidence. Despite her insistence, he reminded her of that incident with the spells and tried to back down, renouncing that he needed rest. Reluctantly, he still agreed to help in the search for the forbidden book, but at the same time, he attacked her reckless methods. He was completely exhausted and decided not to reveal critical information while she impatiently interrogated him, extracting clues. Maintaining a restrained tone, he described the book vaguely, supposedly ancient and difficult to decipher, so he consciously avoided details about its true nature. She calmly laid everything out clearly. The forbidden book reacted to a specific type of magic, and it could be detected through a pre-prepared barrier. He understood her barriers around the church were meant to provoke exactly this reaction so that the book would manifest if it was nearby. Confidently, she explained how magical resonance would announce itself even from afar if everything was set up correctly. No impression, only he reproached her for carelessness and reminded her, such preparation requires proper authority and caution. Despite the tension, their shared interest in the search formed a fragile partnership. They clashed with each other in the chase for the hidden book. In Megis, the tower of the great Ugula Cathedral rose above the capital, symbolizing the power of the church across the continent. In their own halls, Pope Eupero Rosilio and Archbishop Yuka Kennick recounted recent events, keeping their faces stern as if verdicts had not yet been pronounced. Approaching the Pope, the Archbishop confirmed, Lacra was sent to investigate the disappearance of the forbidden book. The Pope acknowledged her exceptional talent for purification, yet there was anxiety in his voice in other matters of prudence she clearly lacked. Barely smiling, the Archbishop explained, her carelessness was intentional to mislead suspicions and bring hidden movements to light. The Archbishop, fully confident in his plan, revealed the scheme. While Lacra searches openly, a skilled assassin has already been sent to secretly obtain the book and secure it. Before the Pope, he assured that all precautions had been taken and promised, no action will harm relations with Tezu. Wandering the cathedral corridors joyfully, he was sure everything was going perfectly until unexpected news reached him. Shock instantly shattered his composure. After sensitive details became known, they were passed to the candidate in Tezu. Somewhere there, Lacra proudly reported that the candidate agreed to help her in the search, unknowingly disrupting the carefully constructed scheme of the Archbishop. In the corridor of the cathedral church, the Archbishop's subordinate wrapped in UK caught up with him and brought a message about the developments in La Crosse. Listening attentively, he found out, she will manage and be able to find this book even before the hidden assassin can intervene. Keeping his face calm, the subordinate asked permission to involve additional people to speed up the search. Yuka immediately nodded approvingly and gave the order quickly resolve everything, as if covering his own discomfort with an even, measured response. As soon as the subordinate quietly disappeared, the Archbishop felt an invisible presence nearby, and even in the silence of the spacious hall, his steady breathing faltered for a moment. In the huge library, the young man reported on the inspection to the noble scholar. The latter calmly acknowledged its value and confirmed that the mission is moving forward. In conversations, more and more revolved around Lacra. Her unstable nature worried everyone, and the boy finally confessed. He had already made an agreement to keep everything in balance. Gazes persistently fixed on the mysterious book. Perhaps it was somehow connected with merchants, travelers, or hired assassins who were planted specifically to interfere with the plans already in motion. Time ran out, and the scientist forced himself to proceed to an immediate analysis of the sealed volume. It lay heavily on the table, like a stone. In the yard, the girl declared with determination that her preparations were already ready, and the boy carefully weighed his next, meticulously calculated step. In the city yard, the boy unfolded plans to place barriers on the gates and along the walls to narrow escape routes for anyone with the stolen book. Secretly, he calculated all the risks, pretending to support the search for Locker, but arranging events so that she would never get the book. Nearby, armored allies noticed how he was getting closer and closer to Lacra and began to guess when exactly such cooperation had even started. Among them, assumptions spread, but some stubbornly insisted that he was simply working hard again, as during past crises. As preparations for the investigation of hidden caves intensified, the boy estimated their strength and carefully adjusted his own strategy. In the reinforced chamber, Vovk activated protective magic. She spun a rotating barrier and wrapped her body with controlled power. The boy breathed evenly and simply watched as she confidently jabbed at her shield and asserted that most attacks would break against it. At his signal, Vovk dashed forward with sharp speed and struck the barrier with a focused blow, testing how long it would hold. The echo of the impact rolled across the surface, and her face twitched. The structure held firm, not a single crack. The pressure lasted so long until the swirling force pushed her back, and this was direct confirmation. The protection worked. The boy silently weighed the consequences. In the reinforced chamber, Vovk activated her protective magic. She spun a rotational barrier that enveloped her body with controlled force. The boy looked steadily as she calmly declared confidence in her shield and insisted most attacks against it would shatter against failure. He gave the signal, and Vovk lunged forward with a sharp jerk, striking the barrier with a precise, concentrated blow to test its edge. The strike echoed in a wave across the surface, and her face involuntarily twitched. The structure resisted, and no cracks appeared. The room filled with constant pressure until the twisting flow pushed her back, thereby confirming that the protection worked. The boy only silently surveyed the results. While the barrier held, the she-wolf struggled within it, trying to organize her magic, while the boy identified weak spots in the protective form and in the timing. A sudden gust dispersed the unstable energy, and the flaws in her technique were exposed, while comrades only watched the failed attempt. At night, somewhere in the shadows, a cloaked figure silently slid through narrow alleys, staying unnoticed and approaching a secluded house. Reaching the wall, the intruder triggered a hidden mechanism and slickly slipped inside with cold, calculated precision. In the dimly lit room, the figure activated a crystal orb and remained calm, preparing to transmit a secret report. In a dim room, a rapt informant reported that Lacra had reinforced the city's defense and had already found a skilled ally. The superior listened attentively, having just learned that his partner was a black-haired young man who showed no magic but had an unusually strong presence. Orders were immediately given: gather allies and be ready for a sudden clash, especially after learning about his connection with those who defeated Dakala. In the great hall, he remained alone. The Supreme weighed the next move, clutching a crystal ball. Meanwhile, the chubby nobleman exploded with anger, demonstrating that hidden tensions were about to reach their limit. In a private room, Pappy was warned, do not spoil relations with Tezu, and advised that if he requested foreign help, he should reveal all details to the end. He ordered the assassins to be recalled, and to immediately establish contact with the king of Tezu, fearing that the situation had already crossed the line. Just as everything was settling, confusion overwhelmed him. He could not recall whom exactly he had managed to send, and the panic only grew until suddenly an epiphany struck. Suddenly, a pale man appeared before him. Without a trace of worry, he offered to take on the assassins and ordered Pappy to direct everything against Lacra. Meanwhile, the boy was walking down a narrow street, unaware that much greater forces were already beginning to move around him. In a quiet alley, the boy greeted Gazona, traveler in years who had for years slipped through the city as if he did not exist, even years before that. Earlier, he had earned the man's trust with small offerings, turning chance encounters into a steady exchange of information. Sitting nearby, the boy asked about the strange faces and found out almost nothing had changed, just the usual flow of Tezu was going its own way. Noticing a hidden threat, he advised Gason not to wander the streets at night for now. But despite the warning, the boy treated him kindly, considering the old traveler a vital source within the city. In the alley, the boy asked Gason if he wanted anything beyond sake, and quietly supported him so as not to attract unnecessary attention. Gazan accepted the help with casual determination. With the money, he planned to grow a crop while the boy watched him leave. The next morning, an urgent message about a missing book came to Lara from the Meiji side. Confused but obedient, she prepared to explain the situation to King Tezu and ask for help in the search. Meanwhile, the pale strategist barely smiled and noted that Lakra had reported everything, even about her partnership with the boy. In a locked, guarded chamber, tension was rising until officials had to admit negotiations between states could no longer delay the growing conflict. Strategist Wang proposed temporarily declaring that the book was already under protection in the treasury, and then returning it later, hoping to deflect suspicion. In a specially prepared room, where the walls were covered with magical circles, the sealed book lay on the table under a protective barrier. The boy accepted the task without hesitation and tightened his gloves while deciding to read the volume until dawn. Later, in a tight circle of watchful figures, he calmly and focusedly turned the pages, and the weight of anticipation pressed heavier against the ground with each passing minute. Under the layered magical circles, the boy began to read quickly and immediately understood. The structure of this book was much more complex than he had expected. And having studied the script, he realized ancient letters from another era were woven in there, so he had to discard usual assumptions and think flexibly. While others guessed what the church desired and what it would lead to, he held on to only one thing to extract the exact meaning from the text. Further warnings about danger and advice to return the book were ignored. He had already calculated how much longer it was safe to continue. Finally, the pages quietly turned under the radiant barrier, and fragments of knowledge fell outside, which could distort the balance between nations. In the sealed chamber, the boy concluded, the Church of Ugula did not know the meaning of the book, otherwise it would have destroyed it immediately. His sudden insight stunned the officials. The hint revealed hidden truths that neither of the two states expected. Under the glow of the magical circle, the tension thickened as he stood motionless next to the open pages, ready to continue the explanation. Beyond the chamber, the city walls lay under the night sky, and no one knew how the fragile balance inside would shift. In the silence of the alley, Gazan calmly sipped sake and thought with pleasure. The eccentric did not treat him as a tool, he treated him as an equal. Late at night, Hyzen lingered in the alley, replaying in his mind the boy's warnings about dangerous people prowling the city. Christian abruptly lost his train of thought and approached the empty house, but realized too late, thieves were already prowling there. Hidden figures quickly silenced him, leaving the body under buildings bathed in moonlight, and arranged everything as if it had happened by accident. In the cramped cell, the boy, a dark-haired youth, flinched and stepped back when two nobles clashed over forbidden knowledge. Fear spread across his frightened face. Rumors about appeals to higher authorities sparked panic, and the threat of harsh punishment became painfully obvious to everyone involved. Soon a nobleman, threatened with exposure, declared he acted for the sake of his people, and this forced the boy to confront the growing political burden. Under pressure, he calmly sips tea, maintaining composure despite the increasing commotion around him. Later, even before the arrival of the dignitaries, the boy firmly refused to hold the dangerous book any longer, seeking salvation from the looming crisis. Troubles weighed heavily on the dark-haired youth, named the boy who wished the dangerous book, and it seemed that this dangerous book could be dismissed as mere fiction. Across the room, nobles whispered about secret investigations into its origin, while he insisted, ignorance provides the most reliable protection. Curiosity pushed him further for clarity, who the killer really is and how such people operate. Suddenly, someone was felt behind his chair, and he was introduced before he could react in any way. He flinched but held himself together. He did not want to turn around. Survival required knowing as little as possible about the silent figure behind his back. Somewhere high above the chamber, the killer confessed that he served His Majesty as a private bodyguard and that he could disappear thanks to magic, and the boy silently swallowed this dreadful truth. The boy sat calmly and answered in an even, measured voice, skillfully gauging whether this power implied eliminating rivals to remain invincible. The smile on the mask immediately became a threat as soon as the killer admitted, once he intended to kill him, calling it only a warning after a stunning discovery. Pressure squeezed the boy, and he could not understand whether those cold phrases were a joke or a warning. Laughter erupted the moment the killer explained where he got knowledge about magic seal stones and promised he could bypass them, so the boy remained cautious and never looked at him directly again. After a long conversation, the killer laid out his skills and biography, and the boy listened silently and for some reason suddenly remembered simpler company. Fatigue clouded his eyes, so those nearby immediately became worried. It was clear he had gone too far. The blinding sun greeted him the next morning, and exhaustion still lingered when he went outside after a sleepless night. On a quiet street, a long-haired blonde named Ilya stood waiting, already prepared for her duties. With the same calm concern, Ilya watched his movements and understood. He was expected to stay in the castle, not wander elsewhere. Worried about the secret surrounding the book, the boy decided to reveal only part of the truth, hoping to ease the growing misunderstanding. Opposite him, Ilya listened attentively, understanding everything. Lacra had come for the stolen tome. Understanding his situation, she resigned herself. Some promises prevent him from speaking frankly, even if it makes her anxious. Despair tore her from her focused calm, and she confessed. The thought of being pushed away and simply left overboard scared and hurt her. Looking at her reaction, the boy suddenly understood everything. Her anger grew from worry, so she, more than anyone, must receive reassurance. After the boy said goodbye to Ilya's, he noticed guards rushing past him, the bustle of movements and tense voices in the narrow alley. Curiosity made him slow his pace. He felt something truly serious had happened nearby, and the air suddenly became heavy, without any explanations. In the alley, hidden among shadows, a lifeless body lay under a stained cloth that was closely watched by armed figures, not taking their eyes off everything around. Shock widened his eyes as soon as he realized what was happening, but instinct still pushed him forward even before they tried to stop him. Lifting the cloth, he encountered the cold truth of the corpse and froze under the watchful gaze of an armored guard nearby. Kneeling by the covered body, the boy listened as the guards insisted. Supposedly, the man just got drunk and hit his head, yet doubt still flickered in his mind. A sudden thought instantly stopped him. Suspicion sharpened his gaze, and he reread the too convenient explanation, as if it did not add up to anything. Remembering that special sake he had given earlier, he realized, even that amount could not have caused such severe intoxication. Wasting no time, he decided, the body must be taken to the church, and a proper examination requested, despite the unspeakable, trembling, restless background around. When he came to the conclusion, a grim certainty settled on him. Death was most likely not an accident. He quietly assumed that the man had been killed. While the boy walked beside Ilya's, he whispered an explanation. Near the church, a person unconscious during a fall would instinctively cover their head. The body was carefully laid out, and as soon as the examination began, the atmosphere immediately became solemn and somber. Detached silently, he watched as Ilya's examined the corpse with unwavering concentration. Her conclusions confirmed the worst truth. The man's neck was broken directly, not after he, drunk, had slammed into the wall. A chill ran through the boy as soon as he accepted the conclusion. The death was intentional, and now a hidden threat walks the city. When the boy dashed for the exit, Ilyas grabbed his hand and sharply demanded to know where he was rushing off to. Without taking his eyes off her, he explained. He must return to the castle and privately talk with Morito about a delicate matter before. Determination flared in Ilyas when she declared that she was already involved in this story and refused to be cut off from any danger that awaited him. He warned that the upcoming conversation would be risky and filled with regret, and asked her not to carry the burden of hidden guilt. But Ilyas did not back down. She chose determination over caution and insisted that she wanted to share the consequences with him, not leave him to clean up alone. A faint smile touched the boy's face as soon as he accepted the weight of the scroll he stepped into. Ilyas again confronted him, pressed insistently so that he would not decide everything alone, and questioned whether he truly realized the risks ahead. Frustration flared up in him, but he stubbornly insisted she should not be responsible for the conflict caused by his own decisions. Determination cut off doubts. As soon as he made a decision, they must act quickly before Lacra made their next move. Deep inside the castle, Dame Rachel waited calmly, ready to ask questions about their intentions, while events quietly gained momentum. In the castle library, the boy admitted, he chose to involve Ilyas, not push her away, and took responsibility for this decision. Dame Rachel warned, his current conflict could ruin ties with Maya and with the Ragudo team as well, if Ilyas continued to get involved in this story. He was questioned in his determination. He admitted, this path might cost him relationships on both sides, but his resolve would not waver. Barely smiling, Dame Rachel declared that he would bear full responsibility for everything that happens next, placing the burden of consequences entirely on his shoulders. Taking a step forward, the boy finally revealed the urgent truth. Lacra was about to be killed. Raising his hand, he began to explain that the crisis erupted due to actions connected with demon worshippers from the Ugula church. Impatience flared as soon as Ilyas reacted loudly. Her anger overwhelmed his attempt to speak calmly. He gathered his thoughts and insisted on starting over so that she could understand the whole situation without confusion. He admitted that they were deciphering the mysterious book, the very one that hints at the hidden motives of the church. Having laid out the plan down to the last detail, the boy explained, the goal is simple: to find the lost book and remove people's doubts about Maya. yet he still could not understand why Lacra was allowed to be chosen for death. Ilias pondered, if more people were sent to search, they would know how to hide their faces. Therefore, the morning murder was most likely committed by prepared assassins. Tension shifted to the timing. Lacra's orders arrived just after her report. It turns out the Archbishop of UK responded to someone higher up. Meanwhile, Gazan's death occurred after a request for cooperation, and this means the murder contradicted the Pope's attempt to maintain peaceful relations. Becoming a reader for the true purpose, the boy concluded, somewhere within Ugula Church, someone is deliberately challenging papal authority to obtain what is needed. As soon as he uncovered the scheme, Ilias immediately felt everything fall into place. Lacra is the heart of the conspiracy that is about to unravel. The boy was finally convinced. To seize the book, the most reliable way is to kill Lacra and take it before it reaches its destination. Expanding on his thought, he explained, the attackers already knew what was inside, so their goal is not restoration but control. Leaning forward, he clarified a detail. The volume is related to a demonic lord, not to ordinary forbidden sciences. Interpreting the meaning down to the smallest detail, he called it a record that documents the birth of the Blue Demon Lord through resurrection magic. Silence heavily settled over the room as the consequences sank into their minds, and it became clear. The book contained critical knowledge capable of reshaping future demon lords. Sitting in the library, the boy pondered that Papa Upero most likely did not decipher the stolen volume, originally belonging to Mayas. He decided someone inside the Ugula Church knows the true meaning of the information, hidden even from Papa himself. Recognition flashed across Ilia's face when she remembered that demon worshipper they had talked about earlier. Without unnecessary emotion, he concluded, someone in the church acts independently and has long controlled the killers to obtain the book for unknown purposes. When the brief laughter eased the tension, attention again focused on urgency. The day had come to hand over the book to Handlocker and decide what to do next. Gathered by the door, the group exchanged quiet whispers while the boy stepped aside and his face became resolute. Facing them, he declared that he would not sit idly after the death of his acquaintance and decided to follow the trail of those responsible. Dame Rachel calmly assigned a difficult task to Ilias. She acknowledged the danger but still accepted the path ahead. Ilias, with firm conviction, tightly gripped the sword and vowed to deliver a result that would exceed all expectations, leaving no one a chance to underestimate her. The decision seemed to hang in the air as the boy moved toward the exit and declared his intention to expose the hidden conspiracy unfolding inside the church. As soon as Ilias saw Gazan's corpse, a shift was felt in the boy as if what Ilias had been restraining, the secret side, began to surface. Uncertainty gnawed at her from within. She knew the king would now control his actions, but she could not predict which side he would take. While he was recovering, Ilias decided not to leave him alone. She feared that the path ahead would darken in his judgments. A cheerful girl was walking down the city street after securing barriers around the walls. Her face showed satisfaction, and the boy quietly observed her relaxed behavior. Soon she confessed, the mysterious volume lies in the castle treasury. The realization struck instantly as she understood the boy had already found it. Surprise quickly faded from her face. Instead, admiration flared when she noted his skill. After that, attention again fell on the unfamiliar language in the book and its dangerous knowledge of necromancy, partially understandable thanks to detailed illustrations. But before allowing her to continue, the boy made her first deliver an important message to the archbishop. The boy calmly explained, the language in the book can be deciphered in Tezu, and suggested sharing its content with the church if they are allowed to cooperate. An argument erupted instantly as soon as the girl rejected this idea. One thing scared her. It was dangerous to reveal knowledge related to necromancy. Steady resolve escorted the boy when he admitted. He was appointed by His Majesty himself, so he is the one who must interpret the language of this book. Doubt almost froze in her gaze, but careful observation pushed it away. There is truth in his words. The conditions were fixed without tricks, until the report to the archbishop and the return of the book if ultimately their proposal is rejected. Having listened carefully, the girl nodded and, without hesitation for a moment, decided to report everything to Archbishop UK. Inside the boy, confidence grew as he watched her leave. The clergy sensed no deceit in his intentions. Somewhere high up, a cloaked figure watched the city intently and waited for midnight. As soon as it arrived, the action would begin. A quiet order was given. Eliminate Lacra after she obtained the book and erase any trace of involvement. Far from here, a pale woman, speaking in an icy tone, ordered the killing of Lacra's partner so that no witness would survive the upcoming operation. In the spacious hall. Remember, the pale woman issued strict orders, demanded Lacra's death and the delivery of her partner's head intact. Calmly studying the crystal ball, she recalled the partner with black hair and felt curiosity about his unusual features. Dark pleasure flashed across her face as she stepped into the distant presence and reported the news to the Red Lord of Demons. Midnight fell and shadows concealed the assassin who watched the square, where Lacra stood beside the guards. From the surrounding rooftops, 4 hidden assassins took positions ready to move according to the carefully crafted plan. The message confirmed, one of the guards is Ilya's Richel. He is so strong that charging at him head-on is pointless, even for powerful enemies. The assassins reviewed the remaining targets, making assessments. The black man with black hair looked ordinary, but the half-human could be taken despite her intuition. The entire focus was on Lacra, a true prodigy in fighting, whose unreliability seemed to evaporate as soon as the battle began. Plans shifted to the security section. 2 attackers were sent to distract Ilya's, while the rest prepared to strike Lacra. Unaware of the approaching threat, Lacra calmly turned the pages of the book as the dark-haired man held her under the night sky. Under the flickering light of the lantern, the boy held the book steadily in his hands and asked for the church's decision. Lacra reluctantly admitted that the proposal was rejected, and she was ordered to return the book immediately. While she questioned whether he was ready without hesitation to give up such a dangerous text, conflicting feelings surfaced within him. Calmly weighing every word, he replied, Tezu sought to prevent his actions from worsening relations with the surrounding churches. A sudden distant rumble snatched Ilya's from the square and revealed a breach. Hidden assassins shifted, adjusting, and prepared to strike Lacra. When Lacra reached for the book, hesitation made it slip from her hands, and the boy, urging her on, ordered her to place carrying out his orders above all else. From the rooftops above, the assassins recognized their chance and prepared to strike while attention was divided. Blades descended on the square, surrounding Lacra and her companions before they could fully recover. The sudden clash flared at the very moment the mighty knight intercepted the attack. Her strike pushed one assassin back. Shock rippled through the group as the knight covered them, and the boy sharply pulled Lacra closer, demanding that she immediately raise the barrier. Lacra managed to raise the barrier. She deflected the attacking blades, while the boy covered her from a strike inside the radiant enclosure. Relief momentarily mixed with tension. The attackers regrouped, clearly stunned that their coordinated assault did not claim a victim immediately. Then confrontation flared. The lead assassin accused them of repelling simultaneous attacks from afar, where it already goes beyond ordinary capabilities. Ilya's confidently stepped forward, making it clear that the breach in the wall was created intentionally to lure the assassins and force them to reveal themselves. The assassins glanced at each other, amusement flickering in their eyes. The fallen book and previous moves were calculated fragments of a larger strategy. The boy quickly concluded, the attackers were May's assassins, planted for the sake of the book, not Archbishop Yuka. Lacra could not come to terms with the thought that behind the church's refusal lurked another hidden force manipulating events. Passing through the broken square, Ilya's moved forward alone, forcing the assassins to retreat from their previous positions. One attacker crashed into the wall and still got up again while the others regrouped and warned, their strength must not be underestimated. Calm but resolute, Ilya's declared that even the 3 remaining assassins would not be enough to defeat her in open combat. Ilya suddenly felt invisible magic striking from an unknown direction, causing Lacra to scream as blades struck the barrier. Dark projectiles bent the shield with blows, and the assassin warned, as soon as the barrier falls, the black-skinned man will die instantly. Panic covered Lacra when she tightly clung to the boy, while the half-human dashed forward and could not see the hidden attacker. Despite the chaos, the boy calmly pointed to the poisoned knife sticking nearby, assuring Lacra they would survive. Confusion froze on his face, but his calm gaze revealed otherwise. He was already sorting out the enemy's method, who was invisible. The boy pulled himself together, hiding his own anxiety, and assured Lacra everything would end soon if she trusted him. Across the entire square, the fighter with wolf ears kept striking relentlessly. Her blows failed to connect with the invisible enemy, and the fight repeatedly convulsively rendered her hands useless. Frustration grew as soon as she realized usual methods could not hit the killer because invisible magic dodged every strike. Determination displaced hesitation, and she unleashed a burst of incredible magical power that twisted the air around her. With steely composure, she prepared the decisive technique taught to her by the master to expose and shatter the hidden opponent. The killer disdainfully mocked her wide swing and immediately prepared to parry. He was sure that a simple palm strike could not scare anyone. But the wolf-eared warrior did not charge headlong with incredible strength. She clasped her palms and released a compressed explosion of magic. The shockwave tore through the square, revealing the hidden killer, and swept him further across the ground. Training flashed again in memory as the giant force, squeezed between the palms, burst into a precise strike. Although no one was seriously injured, the explosive bang stunned both friends and enemies. Even Ilya's was momentarily pinned to the spot. The wolf-eared female fighter lunged into the sky, then with a thud crashed down on the exposed killer, killing him back with a decisive blow that shattered the ground beneath his feet. That very moment pushed her forward. She delivered a devastating kick, completely overpowering the assassin and securing victory for her side. The she-wolf stands in the city square among fallen enemies, raising her fists in triumph. Her recent training sharpened her strength, and confidence is clearly visible in her posture. Nearby, Ilias calmly watches, seeing how the wolf is growing quickly, albeit with her rough edges. Meanwhile, an attacker in a cloak sneaks up on them, testing their endurance this night. The masked opponent rushes forward with sharp strikes, trying to pin Ilias down. She effectively deflects her blade, cuts through his attack without hesitation. Pressure mounts as the enemy prepares a decisive move, intending to end the fight as quickly as possible. Ilias remains unshaken, reading his intent even before he can fully launch the attack. Everything bursts with a sudden jolt and the field tears apart, yet Ilya senses her place even without sight. With a precise movement, she strikes back, forcing the attacker to retreat. Ilya stands opposite the armored man, calmly assessing his strength and confirming for herself that he is weaker than expected. His past betrayal defines him, but for her, he is just an opponent, a figure to be measured. Beyond the square, the wolf stays close to her nearly captured allies, while hidden enemies rethink their plan. Realizing that a direct fight is hopeless, they switch to first taking out the higher target. Determination covers Ilya's as she prepares to intercept their movement. Steel clashes with steel. The masked attacker lunges forward, and she extinguishes his attack, not retreating a single step. Bloody clash erupts. Blades clang with explosive force, shaking the cobblestones, and dust and debris fly everywhere from every strike. Taking advantage of the chaos, one enemy releases thick smokeito, cover the retreat and regroup. Ilias recognizes this tactic instantly, as soon as the battlefield is engulfed in haze. Through the thin smoke, Ilias cuts a path forward and disperses the disguised guard with one devastating strike. But his confidence shatters as soon as the blade forces him to retreat, compelled to approach the dangerous square. Suddenly, a spear cuts through the night from afar. It wounds the battlefield like an arrow. The wounded attacker freezes in shock. He cannot understand where this sudden strike came from. Above the square stands a sturdy elderly knight in heavy armor, his cloak trailing behind him. His figure radiates power as he prepares for another precise throw. Dark energy whirls between the fighters' ground cracks, breaking the escape. The trap tightens with coordinated pressure, and the enemies caught inside convulsively try to recover. Realization overwhelms the one left after the attack as soon as he sees Spear God and Tate's strongest knight standing side by side. Just as he puts the puzzle together, the tide completely turns, and fear displaces his resolve. The hunted, wounded, and disguised attacker only mocks the delayed arrival of the strongest knights, pressing on the words, if they had come earlier, he would never have fought at all. The black-haired young man steps forward and opens the trap that had been carefully prepared from the very beginning. Precisely controlling time and movements, he made the enemy believe that escape was still possible. Kaladresal puts on a stony immovability on his face when he announces the verdict to the murdered vagabond. The accusation strips the attacker of the last pretext to hide behind righteousness. A flash of light captures on the masked man's face a moment of insight. He finally understood the plan and who was behind it. His previous confidence cracks and crumbles into anxious doubt. Calmly and reservedly, the young strategist denies being a killer, trying to maintain the moral high ground, but the same cold eyes do not let go. The attacker begins to waver in his own righteousness. Accusing the strategist of hiding behind others, the wounded attacker makes a final lunge. Ilias intercepts, instantly cuts him down before he can break through the defensive line. Breaking his arm, the masked man uses the strike as a springboard. He sharply pushes off and flies back. A self-satisfied laughing, he escapes over the rooftops, leaving behind complete chaos. Silence covers the square as the senior knight confirms the enemy's retreat. The wolf shudders, and the rest gather together, realizing the threat has only partially disappeared. Anxiety grows as soon as they find the book stolen during the commotion. Its disappearance suggests that a deeper purpose lies behind the attack. Suspicion falls on the calm young strategist. His composure remains unshaken. When directly confronted, he admits the deception with a barely noticeable smile, impassive as if doubts have nothing to do with him. He is fleeing among the rooftops. The masked man confirms the book is securely hidden, despite not having killed anyone. He is pursued by irritation like a shadow, but he bets on survival, not on pride. Reaching the outer wall, he prepares to escape the area and regroup later. Blood loss weakens him, but determination pushes him into the open. As soon as he tries to climb up, a hidden barrier activates and blocks the way. The realization hits him. Lacra anticipated this route and closed it in advance. Clenching his teeth, he scratches the wall with one hand despite the pain. The restriction slows him down, but despair drives him higher and higher. Suddenly, a massive force crashes into the barrier, so that the stone shatters and fragments fly in all directions. Shock widens the ice in behind. The battlefield explodes again. The ruined wall collapses inward, revealing the strategist standing calmly before the rubble. No trace of the masked fugitive remains where the force struck. It hit precisely at the moment. Earlier, he ordered Ilias to deliver a precise, concentrated strike exactly at the point where the barrier was supposed to resonate with the stolen book. The breakthrough looked like artillery fire without any warning. Dust settles over the ruins, and the fallen attacker lies motionless among the broken stones. Observers note the brutal effectiveness of the plan and simultaneously confirm the restoration of the object. Sitting down near the debris, the strategist picks up the book and carefully examines it. The previous protective spell guaranteed that it would survive and not suffer from destructive counteraction. Later in the castle hall, officials surround him and demand explanations. Calmly sitting with the book on the table, he is already prepared to explain the miscalculated operation. Sitting upright in the hall, the strategist assures the gathered officials clarification is about to come. His relaxed posture sharply cuts through the tension filling the room. Next to the table, key figures listen. In the adjacent room, a crystal sphere begins to softly glow. The wolf sleeps and suspects nothing while the magical device activates. Energy gathers inside the sphere and reveals to those present the name of the killer. This revelation confirms the identity of the one behind the failed attack. The gray-haired observer carefully studies the orb, secretly questioning the invisible presence reaching toward it. Suspicion shifts further beyond the one already caught as guilty. He whispers, pulling himself out of a semi-angry state, and with a faint smile lets it be known, the strategist is already working further. He directly addresses the hidden mastermind through the device. A calm gaze says he has found who truly bears the blame. Within in the distant hall Silver, the herd-brain commander acknowledges Hades' defeat without any surprise. Only a barely noticeable, quick amusement flickers on his face at the moment he realizes the strategist is deliberately trying to establish contact. Returning to the castle, the strategist calmly sits before the glowing sphere, demonstrating readiness to speak despite the hostility between them. The observers freeze in tension as he leads the conversation. Through the orb, he, like a thinker, admits he gave the order to organize the assassination and utters this with chilling calmness. The strategist listens attentively, absorbing every detail for future leverage when asked about. A figure with silvery hair introduces himself and gives the name Lahite, smiling politely. His appearance sounds confident, as if he fears no scrutiny, and gladly accepts it. The conversation sharpens as the pressure of the law grows. The strategist's loyalty and own identity are questioned. The young man does not rush into defense. He maintains steady calm, ready for deeper confrontation. Against the backdrop of a flickering sphere, Lahite demands the contents of the book and claims that it has already been deciphered. The tone is unequivocal, yet he still pressures the strategist to get confirmation. Leaning forward, the strategist calmly says that such knowledge explains the assassination attempt. He implies Lahite feared exposure as soon as decoding was announced possible. With cold sharpness, he interrogates about Lahite's connections with the demon lord and hints at the consequences if this connection becomes public. The witnesses tense up. The accusation hangs in the air and presses down. Lahite tries to keep his composure, but the strategist still notices barely visible cracks in his confidence. The interrogation quickly shifts toward psychological pressure. Finally, the strategist reveals the truth. The records in the book document observations of the Blue Demon Lord after his creation. This revelation reframes the conflict, exposing motives far beyond a simple murder. Calmly continuing the conversation, the strategist explains that the Blue Demon Lord was identified as the fourth among his kind. He insists, at least 4 demon lords created the same hidden people in the same secret conspiracy. He then adds another layer. The author of the book from the very beginning approached the chosen people to turn them into demon lords. Inside the book, their abilities, habits, and future deaths are detailed. Emphasizing the volume of prepared material, the strategist concludes, a mysterious figure granted power directly to those demon lords. The pattern forms as if they were not accidentally gathered, but deliberately raised. Each lord shared common abilities, could create their own demonic territories, and had methods to transform people. Later, he reveals the truth. The Blue Demon Lord who ruled the undead was called their king, and that necromancy text ultimately fueled catastrophic wars that scarred history. Lahite silently observes, then concludes, the strategist truly deciphered the book. He notices subtle differences in speech and concludes that the young man is not native to this world. Unfazed, the strategist explains, the detailed record of the demon lord's abilities confirms his sensitivity, and the desperate attempt to steal it showed how dangerous public disclosure would be. Lahate responds with a counter-question. Does the church understand the weight this text carries? His restrained smile reveals a hidden confidence in how exactly the information was kept under control. Barely raising his hand, the strategist reveals the most terrible prophecy from the book. The dead demon lords will be resurrected. The listeners are shocked by this mention. Remaining calm, Lahade turns away and admits, the prediction was also written in this volume. The conversation ends with both sides, realizing the scale of the coming war, agreeing on one thing. Lahate questions the strategist's words, insisting, even serving the demon lord provides no clear evidence. He reaches the logic, linking it to hidden forces. Sitting calmly, the strategist shifts his gaze to Dakla the assassin, who lost a hand. He asks why such a person would trust a priceless book to someone who just arrived. He explains Dakla could not read the text himself, but still acted decisively. This contradiction shows that he learned the truth about the forbidden resurrection from another source while still working as an assassin. Dakla stumbled upon manipulations within the district circle. UK Archbishop's circle traced the scheme up to the figure, hidden behind layers of influence. Deciding that the shadow of the demon lord distorts his nation, Dakla stole the book as leverage, but the power inside broke free of control and sealed his demise. Standing next to the crystal sphere, the strategist explains, Dakla most likely hoped that some earthling could expose the figure hidden behind it. This hope prompted him to entrust the book to Death's Edge. Lagat acknowledges Dakla's ability, but drops a hint. The agreement played into the strategist's hands. A quiet smile reveals he finds this situation unexpectedly convenient. With even sharper focus, the strategist counters. The height was found hidden in the Church of Ujula, so he relied on Dakala to deliver the book indirectly. The accusation reframes the failed theft as a calculated distance. Leghaig responds smoothly, saying information is a weapon better kept in reserve. He leads the logic to the exposure risk of disclosure, praises Earthlings for their analytical skills, yet shares very little again. Finally, the strategist rejects both manipulations and imagined superiority. He insists that domination and intrigues are not needed. Turning away, the strategist declares that peaceful survival is his only goal. He admits weakness and immediately adds, stability both physical and mental is enough for him. Suddenly, hatred steps towards silence and drowns him. He realizes that such calm defiance can disrupt bigger plans. The camera shakes and tension explodes into action. A protective spell flashes between them, and the strategist reveals that he has already informed Pope Upero through Archbishop Mayu. This statement instantly shifts the balance. The enraged Pope bursts into the conspiracy and shatters it, exposing the instigator. The strategist, with firm certainty, identifies the true culprit of this crisis. Inside the Grand Cathedral, a long-haired man looks at the burly bishop around them, scattered stones and fading smoke. The attempt to take control has failed. Calm. Realization spreads across the bishop's face as he feels. The hypnosis is cracking and breaking, while the long-haired man silently watches, comparing the changes. The angel bursts out of the bishop. He proclaims resistance to further influence and suddenly understands the opponent has prepared a defense against mental interference in advance. Energy gathers in the hand of the long-haired man, compressing into controlled magic, while the bishop tries to impose domination and block any escape. Several spectral eyes flare around the bishop, reacting to the spell, but the long-haired man does not lose pace. His calculated countermove unfolds just as precisely. The bishop lunges forward sharply and strikes the cathedral's floor with all his might, splitting the stone, trying to crush the opponent with raw, devastating force. Shards scatter down the corridor, and the long-haired man remains composed. He carefully watches the failure of the strike and acknowledges the path that has just opened. Sudden pressure pulls him down, pressing him to the ground, and from the excessive weight, his limbs involuntarily bend. Movement is finally halted. Above him, a cunning magical circle weaves. It emits controlled power and continuously presses, revealing the bishop's deliberate use of gravity. Swallowing the pressure that weighs like a stone, the long-haired man falls to his knees and silently endures, while the bishop watches from afar, convinced that his dominant spell works flawlessly. The bishop acknowledges his weaknesses, maintains composure, and directly agrees. His own inferiority does not win against other archbishops, yet he still does not give up, despite the increasing pressure. Rage tightens his face as he proclaims his power, stubbornly and loudly insisting. Only his position gives him strength that cannot be measured by any standards. Pressed to the ground by gravity, the long-haired man clings to the edge of consciousness and calmly watches as the bishop ends the fight prematurely. Sudden malfunction splits the descending force, shatters the magical circle above the head, and the ghostly eyes crack under invisible resistance. Trash and debris settle on the cathedral floor, while the long-haired man steadily rises and the bishop shudders. Control is slipping from his hands. Sharp smell stings the nose, reaching the long-haired man, and he notices scattered scents near the stairs. although the bishop insists the clash is already over. Powerful bursts of electricity fly at him again, but the protective spell fails, so he has to take the hit without any magical cover. Metal barely clanged behind him on the floor, a thud rumbled, and he involuntarily glanced at a small object lying next to the fallen censor. As soon as he picks up that small stone, understanding flashes. The sealing artifact had prevented him from using magic earlier. Inside the barrier, the bishop clarifies exactly when everything is supposed to happen, and he still does not know. The long-haired man has already adjusted his plan before the trap was triggered. The bishop acknowledges the multi-layered obstacles and immediately understands that his opponent has deliberately trapped himself along with the sleeping incense in the second enclosure. While the incense dulls his body, the sealing stone suppresses magic, and he is no longer able to break the barrier around. But despite all these limitations, a barely noticeable smile appears on him. He calmly announces that the decision has already been made, and in this confidence there is too much strength to settle accounts with visible flaws. Standing in a transparent prison, he takes out a small dagger, while the bishop dismissively calls it a trifle against the reinforced defensive structures. With calm composure, he explains, preventing the interrogation means ensuring success, and victory here is not escape, but control over information. With a grim smile, the long-haired man raises the dagger and freezes, ready to settle accounts with life, cutting off any chance that the bishop could extract information from him. But the bishop does not have time to even move. The blade manages to pierce the throat, and the body jerks back, blood splatters on the floor of the cathedral. From there, observers see the figure that has fallen among the broken barriers, and the black-haired youth silently stands nearby, and absorbing what he has seen, simply watches the outcome. Later reports concluded, he took his own life when escape became impossible, and the body was secured to prevent interference. After that, key secrets were revealed to trusted allies, and the church authorities immediately moved to act, confident. Now everything is under control. Then outside the cathedral, officials announce the case closed. They say there will be an official apology and the return of the forbidden book as soon as the proper authorization is found. The boy listens silently while warnings about responsibility grow, and others are thinking, could a greater force from a distance have directed this event? When he returns from the balcony, he suggests informing Pope Europoros. He understands that the matter has gone too far for frank conversations. He was imposed the role of king, but the boy refuses to bear this burden, insisting the role of exposure should belong to someone else. In solitude, he reflects. The secret of the book can overturn history, and he realizes the main problem remains unsolved despite their temporary victory. After the report ends, the boy questions the promise of peace. It seems to him that this silence is only preparation for decisions concerning the forbidden book. The companion insists that their agreements and politics have not changed, but the boy still doubts that everything is so simple in their situation. Light joking momentarily relieves the tension, but in his soul he admits, peaceful days will not come so easily. He stands in front of the church, considers the next step, and knows, unresolved secrets still linger somewhere behind closed doors. Inside, he approaches Wolf during her training, quietly praises, and maintains the composed appearance expected of him. In the hall, a woman teases the boy for constantly weaving conspiracies next to the prince. Under her amused gaze, he finally utters a forced apology. She sternly orders him to stop misleading the daughter of her best friend, accuses him of subtle manipulations, and despite his clumsy attempts to justify himself, insists on her point. As they walk down the cathedral corridor, her tone softens. She acknowledges his effort to apologize and says he has had a positive influence on Ilya's. Looking back at the past, she recalls, once Ilya's lived chasing the shadow of her father, but recently he has become much mentally stronger. She firmly insists, the boy must carefully take care of Ilya's proper growth, and he accepts this responsibility cautiously and sincerely. Wolf silently learns until the boy approaches. His face is stern when he asks for one more private moment alone to talk. Looking her straight in the face, he apologizes without hesitation and admits his guilt, honestly, for what happened that night. He says he deliberately used Wolf as bait to lure out the killers and chose the most effective method despite knowing the risk. Without raising his eyes, he adds, he is the same as those who once used her weakness for their own purposes. Wolf decisively rejects that comparison, reminding, his anger then appeared because he was protecting her, not out of cruelty or selfish intentions. Wolf declares that his anger towards others is her most valuable treasure and insists she wants to stand beside him and help these people together. Her sudden determination pulls him from his place, and he fixes his gaze on her, surprised by the strength hidden in her small hands. When he gently strokes her head, she immediately accepts his apology, smiling, as if the matter had long been resolved. He reflects on his own weakness and impulsive decisions, admitting, She has become stronger, not the one easily fooled by emotions. Despite calling himself vulnerable, he still moves forward together, with her choosing cooperation and firm determination instead of guilt. Before going to the grave, he decides to grow forgotten crops from Gazun's book and properly honor his memory. The boy tells the she-wolf that soon someone named Lacra will come to their home. Anxiety spreads across her face as she processes this unexpected news. In the quiet room, tension rises. The wolf sits by the fireplace and tries to sort out what stands opposite her. The boy remains composed, understands that the visit could disrupt their balance. When day breaks, Wolf recalls the name Lacra and feels that trouble is already brewing. Calm does not hold the two grow increasingly worried, realizing that this appearance could break their measured order. Uncertainty spreads across her face as she tries to grasp how serious this news is. The weight of what she heard settles heavier and heavier. That same day, both rested in the town square and had no idea that events were already rolling this way. The boy leans back on the bench and enjoys the quiet weather after several exhausting days. Relief is evident in his posture for the first time in a long while. He allows himself a rare moment of rest. Around the square stand buildings restored to perfection despite the destruction left from the previous night. Magic erased all traces, so not a single stain remains here. Next to the repaired castle walnut cracks, as if the attack never happened. The swift reconstruction highlights the kingdom's incredible magical capability. Looking at the results, the boy grows increasingly inspired by the idea of learning magic himself. Curiosity pushes out fatigue as he puzzles over how to at least start with basic training. Next to him, a young girl quietly cries while he sinks into his own thoughts. Eventually, he stands up and walks away, leaving her to continue wiping her tears. Lacra runs to the boy in tears and explains that she was taken from Maya. In the Sama church, after repeated problems and confusion started because of her, confusion appears on his face as she desperately clings to him. Calmly assessing the situation, the young man concludes she was probably fired because she only worsened the situation despite her attempts to help. His indifferent reaction only fuels her irritation. Testimonies from the church confirm Lacra caused constant disturbances while waiting for Pope Euparo. Her efforts yielded no results. Eventually, she was removed. Further reports reveal, during the village inspection, her barriers performed worse than those of other priests. Even she admits her removal was inevitable. Her pleas to the young man do not move him. He refuses to take responsibility for her failures. Yet Lacra still does not stop begging for his support as he tries to leave. Lacra brazenly leads to the thought, if a young man and a woman live under one roof, problems are unavoidable. The young man harshly reminds her that Wolf is here and he will not tolerate a freeloader. Possible mistakes. Lacra insists that the situation needs her supervision. Doubt flickers on her face as she figures out what might happen without control. Despite his attempts to brush her off, Lacra again refuses to sleep outside and throws accusations of hidden motives. The young man roughly orders her to back off and go away. Holding onto his clothes, she argues, it is scary and lonely outside. His resistance weakens, but she stubbornly pulls further until it becomes inevitable. Suddenly Wolf appears, calmly eating as if nothing happened, and without hesitation accepts what happened, while the rest freeze in astonishment. The stern female knight declares that she cannot pass indifferently by a woman sleeping outside in the cold, and by this challenges the young man's refusal. Lacra celebrates behind their backs, feeling that her cause has support. The conversation shifts to house plans. It is clear there are very few bedrooms, and there is also a pantry. Then they start thinking about where Lacra can spend the night. Frustration flares when the young man proves Lacra's incompetence can hurt Wolf, and tension rises as others begin to doubt whether his criticism is too harsh. Gloomily sighing, he still considers how to rearrange the storeroom, but stubbornly insists first to confirm Wolf's opinion. Abruptly shifts to biting sarcasm, suggests settling in one room, and immediately recoils. Returning to the present time, Wolf gladly announces his agreement with Lacra, effectively settling the dispute. The boy, creaking at heart, agrees to clean the storeroom and orders Wolf to help. Lacra celebrates the victory, hugging Wolf, and leaves him clearly broken. Work starts immediately. Furniture is moved from its place, and dust is swept from the neglected room. Lacra enthusiastically jumps into the process, almost causing more chaos than benefit. Later, she relaxes in the bath and does not even suspect that a spider is crawling nearby. Calm pleasure instantly turns into anxiety as soon as she notices it. Her scream echoes through the house, and the boy and the wolf rush there. Confusion spreads like accusations flying one after another. Despite his insistence, he is not involved. When the commotion subsides, the room is already partially organized, and exhaustion overwhelms him. Others are just recovering from the incident, and the spider disappears without any explanation. Chaos breaks out right in the bathroom. Water splashes on the floor and soaks the boy, while Wolf and Lacra sit calmly in the bath. His protests yield no results, the mess only spreads further. Late that evening, Ilias returns to the quiet house hidden under the mountains. As soon as she approaches the door, smoke slowly rises from the chimney. Inside, Wolf and Lacra greet her with incredible enthusiasm, and the boy sits nearby, wrapped in a towel. This lively reception immediately shows how quickly the atmosphere in the house has changed. Ilias watches with slight surprise as the number of residents grows. Meanwhile, the boy notices how naturally the newcomer has integrated into the company. Attention shifts to something else. Ilias returns to the storage locker. Now, it is filled with valuables related to the Rachel family. The cluttered space reflects matters still unresolved and waiting their turn. Ilias carefully lifts the decorated crossbow and checks that the valuables in the storeroom are genuine, precious family relics. The boy acknowledges their weight, watching her reaction closely. When Ilias takes out the sword, a memory pierces through memory's surface about the blade once gifted to her father by the late king. This sword is a sign of her family's ancient loyalty and her service. She explains she wants to donate a few things to the church and the Ragudo team. Although sorting remains difficult, it is respect for her parents that guides her decision. Deciding to postpone further conversation, Ilias suggests going to bed earlier and, awkwardly seizing the moment, she hands the boy her father's clothes, but he immediately rejects the idea. The next morning, a message arrives from the king. He is ordered to summon Ilias to the castle. New events are already looming ahead. From early morning, the bustle begins. Food is laid out on the table, tasks are distributed, the wolf carries dishes, and the boy insists that everyone join in the feast. All four sit together and have breakfast, repeatedly noting that the house has taken in another new resident. Despite previous resistance, the atmosphere somehow turns unexpectedly warm. Night falls quietly, and each family member settles under the same roof. The once full house now seems to have calmed. Everyone drifts into sleep. The next day, Ilias wanders the castle corridors after responding to the royal summons. A huge structure rises over the city below, like a shadow from an ancient legend. Before a high-ranking noble, she is handed an official order. She's appointed to guard an important person, a clear sign that a new, serious responsibility awaits her. In the castle library, Ilias reacts with shock as she is told the new task. Behind her, the boy listens quietly until the conversation returns to the topic of an upcoming important arrival. The official clarifies, the expected pope has not yet arrived, and his arrival is delayed. Ilias is confused about whom exactly she is ordered to protect. From here, the response breaks off sharply as soon as the boy is called that very important person. Shock spreads across his face until the words reach full awareness. Calm reasoning explained one thing: his rare abilities could attract dangerous attention. Without protection, he would become an easy target for those hunting for his knowledge. Ilias immediately becomes the bodyguard. The boy awkwardly nods and accepts the arrangement as their new duel begins. The boy carefully weighs the proposal to appoint Ilias as the guardian. Doubt flashes across his face. The official tone hints subtly, asking if he is against a female bodyguard. Trying to ease the tension, he awkwardly throws out a remark that Ilias lacks charm, inadvertently irritating her. The atmosphere changes. Her composure tightens like a string. Shifting the conversation, he suggests another night Kara and adds that Gramps might be more appropriate. Ilias reacts sharply. The comparison clearly displeases him. Soon a duel is arranged in the castle courtyard. The knights gather, and Ilias steps forward with fierce determination, challenging Kara just as Gramps ordered him. Steel rings out in pressing blows, demanding an honest fight and leaving no concessions. Witnesses stand close by, and the boy clearly feels events have already slipped out of his control. Ilias stood in the courtyard while tension spread across the castle grounds. Guards watched closely as she faced her hated opponent, and her cloak swung sharply behind her. Inside, the boy learned that he was assigned royal protection, a royal bodyguard. Confusion lingered on his face for a long time, while the older man questioned why this decision was made suddenly. Rumors about Ilias' anxiety spread throughout the corridor, and assumptions multiplied. Supposedly, her place among the knights could only complicate the situation further. Authority intervened and confirmed the king's order. Hesitation surfaced, but the demand remained unchanged. Ilias was to protect the boy without any exception. Resolve interrupted hesitation, and Ilias accepted the decision, understanding that now her duty was focused on only one thing: to protect him. The boy listened as the senior knight explained. Ilias considered this task an honor. The realization came slowly. Her anger seemed to be born more from pride than from offense. Ilias approached through the courtyard, holding the sword in a taut posture, firm, collected. Her calm stance spoke more of determination than of offense over the new duties. Tension shifted to the upcoming fight between Ilias and Karagrams. Observers noticed an unusual composure in her during training. She had never once landed a decisive blow on him. Kara Gramps stepped forward and precisely spun the spear in his palm. while the wind swirled around his cloak, and his gaze sharpened with complete focus. Suddenly he burst explosively through the courtyard Ilias prepared and met him head-on, and so their clash finally began. Clang of steel cut through the courtyard as Kara lunged forward and Gramps charged with devastating force. Ilias intercepted the blow, her blade met the spear in a splash of movement. Momentum carried them across the courtyard. Observers saw how Kara maintained the pace and did not yield despite her continuous assault. Dust swirled at their feet as both sought footing. The boy watched intently as Ilias precisely controlled the spear and changed its trajectory. Recognition overwhelmed her as soon as she assessed his movements. Not to press with force in response, she changed tactics and decided only to accelerate. In a moment, Ilias vanished right under his nose. Kara Gramps was thrown back and crashed with a roar into the wall, and the courtyard trembled from the impact. Kara Gramps drove the spear downward under pressure. He shattered the stone beneath Ilias' feet, and the debris scattered as he pressed on, trying to break through her defense with sheer weight alone. Complete concentration narrowed Ilias' gaze as she maintained pressure. She studied his stance and understood. Brute force was not enough to decide the outcome. A sharp lunge tore through the yard as she broke through his defense. Her blade struck cleanly and was torn away by a shockwave that rolled across the ground in waves. Silence covered the strike site. Kara Gramps knelt on one knee, while Ilias straightened Upus if the clash had already ended. Finally, his strength gave out, and he fell with his whole body onto the stone. The boy rushed forward in anxiety as dust settled around the fallen veteran. After the match, Kara Gramps was carried out, and the knights praised Ilias' performance. The boy approached cautiously and focused. His head was still buzzing from how fiercely she had fought. She caught him on the previous words about compatibility and asked herself whom he considered stronger. A faint blush flared up as she waited for him to explain. He calmly explained. Kara and Gramps acted according to consistent strategies. The most important thing was not to pressure with force, but to rely on reliability when they executed carefully thought-out plans. He added that Ilias' colossal strength will shift any balance, and with it nearby, any clash will end too quickly. Finally, he put everything in order. True compatibility is alignment within a shared strategy. Ilias listened silently, and he was beginning to understand his measured approach. The boy gently placed his hand on Ilias' head, admitting aloud that if he relied on it too much, his own determination would weaken. She flinched at the unexpected gesture. Looking directly at her, he clarified. He would not allow her strength to become an excuse for his own stagnation. Her gaze shifted from confusion to quiet concentration. In a moment, he decided to apologize to Kara, Grenz, for causing unnecessary trouble. Ilias lowered her gazer, recognizing sincerity in his decision. Companions lightly teased him while Ilias walked ahead. Her thoughts were still confused, but calmer than before, and the atmosphere gradually returned to normal. Later, she went to the Karagrams while he was resting in bed. Her gaze softened and Ilias expressed regret for involving him in her private conflict. Kara Gramps calmed Ilias from the bed, admitting that the loss was his fault. The man said he had already heard about her worries regarding the boy. With a barely noticeable smile, he suggested, supposedly, her stubborn anxiety has deeper feelings. Ilias reacted sharply, was thrown off by the man's calm, confident attitude. Continuing, he called it not just rivalry, but love. Shame flared Yupen. She instinctively rejected these words, then in despair threatened him. The explanation slowly turned into admiration. A yearning slipped through it. Ilias listened and felt. Her feelings were more complex than simple pride. Finally, Karagrams gave an answer. The boy's strength did not fit into the nocturnal ideals. She was drawn to his determination. Darkness and her heart painfully sought how to reconcile with this truth. Sitting opposite Ilias, Clara Gramps explained. Her admiration grew from one particular trait. The boy knew how to act for both good and Evelyn, yet did not lose himself in what he did. He doubted whether she could so easily abandon the night code. Unlike her, the boy understood the moral but still managed to step over it when the moment demanded. The truth settled in her heart not immediately. At first, she really needed only one thing: for someone to acknowledge her, even though she never managed to achieve what she was proud of. Shame dulled, becoming a forced acceptance after her confession that she was still immature. His admission was somehow more important to her than she had time to realize. Nodding with a gentle smile, Kara Gramps concluded, to be recognized by those who have what you lack is a powerful and humiliatingly tangible desire. Ilias sincerely thanked Kari Gramps, acknowledging that she had finally sorted out her feelings. With a calmer expression, she left his room, and he silently watched her with approval. Alone, Kara Gramps pondered the boy's tough nature and the danger he carried, yet he was still sure the young man would never abandon someone important to him. Raising the cup and barely smiling, he accepted everything as inevitable. Although the situation hurt, it met his expectations. The next day, Ilias apologized to the boy for what happened and during breakfast clearly confirmed that she would start performing the duties of his guardian. This conversation sounded more confident than before. Later the boy handed her a carefully polished wooden stick, explaining why it would be practical. He demonstrated a modest but well-thought-out approach to defense. The boy firmly held the polished stick and said that for him it was a symbol of determination. Even with powerful allies nearby, he intended to rely only on his own strength and keep his pride. Getting ready to leave, he told Ilyas that she could take everything useful from the house. She listened silently, feeling the distance in his measured, calm tone. He remembered that he would go to other countries as soon as he no longer had reasons to stay. Ilyas looked at him. Inquisitively was confused by just the one possible separation. Focus pushed aside hesitation when he admitted his ultimate goal was to return to his original world. These words lay heavily between them. But even then he honestly admitted he does not know what will happen next and acknowledged the burden of responsibility here. Although he enjoyed this life, he could not let go of the intention he still held on to it in his heart. The guy assured Ilyas that he would not act irresponsibly. Preparing for several options was just a habit left from his former world. He answered easily but insisted, Valk can feel loneliness if he disappears, and still he will tell the child exactly how to act, carefully before handing over their future to someone. When asked about the family he left behind, he evaded a direct answer. Uttering vague apologies, he barely smiled and pushed the topic aside. After he wished her good night, he walked away, and Ilyas remained sitting, thinking about how much their beliefs differed. In the silence of her own thoughts, she suddenly realized he could walk between righteousness and darkness without any fear, and this freedom confused her, yet at the same time drew her to him. Kara Gramps reminded Ilyas she holds knightly honor, for it is what binds her heart together, and before leaving, he quietly added the boy also respected her in return. Left alone with her thoughts, she concluded, they are drawn to what both lack. Although he walked different paths, she still felt his respect for her as a knight. Sitting at the table, Ilyas felt that his future choices still remained uncertain, but now she wanted to be beside him. Night covered the quiet town. Roofs rested under the darkness that melted into the air. It seemed everything was calm here despite unresolved questions that still flickered somewhere deep inside. Sunlight flooded the room. Ilya decisively stepped forward. A new day began. She gathered herself and continued to walk beside him. At dawn, Ilyas entered his room without hesitation and announced the start of a new day. The boy resisted waking, hiding under the blanket, while she stood firmly by his bed. As he immediately understood, she wanted to protect him from sorrow, and since then, she stayed close. But when she did not move while he prepared to change clothes, a wave of embarrassment overwhelmed him. Soon the whole house was filled with simple breakfast bustle. Wolf chewed with delight, and Ilyas watched attentively, and she was already stepping into her protective role. After the meal, they went outside together. The boy walked ahead, barely tired, and Wolf and Ilyas stayed very close, heading toward the lively city. From afar, the castle closely watched their road. Ilyas quietly smiled, pleased that this new rhythm was finally starting beside him. The boy attended an official meeting in the nobleman's chambers. Among wolves and several officials, they talked about military affairs and future plans, and then he quietly left the same way. As he walked down the corridor, he clarified that Wolf had found a job and now pays contributions because he rents housing despite rumors about their shared residence. Tension shifted to her combat skills. She skillfully eliminated one opponent, but began to stall each time several tasks required simultaneous attention. Although her fragile psyche still gave no peace, she still worked effectively, following precise instructions and finishing embroidery orders with noticeable speed. Later, one observer noted that Wolf behaved kindly, and the boy silently realized her stubborn and steady attempt to adapt. The boy explained, Wolf never intended to sway anyone to another faction, only clarified her simple logic, and she awkwardly reacted to his insight. They stepped over the threshold of a huge garden with fountains, trimmed hedges, and a luxurious gazebo, where Wolf proudly showed these possessions as her trophy. Conversation shifted toward gardening traditions. The boy compared growing bonsai and seasonal blooms, while mentally matching all this with similar landscapes from his former world. The conversation moved toward magical power. Does it nourish plants in this realm? And memories of distant mountains surfaced in thoughts. Finally, Wolf told the legend about the crystal, like trees with radiant trunks and glowing leaves. The boy quietly pondered that this might be true, and noticed how Wolf stood aside in the garden, restless, as if detached, calmly surveying the views and piecing together thoughts about her strange reaction. When her gaze fell on the flowers, Vovk reacted sharply, and even excessively. Her admiration was directed not at the delicate plants, but at the weapons. As they walked along the stone path, the conversation suddenly shifted towards marriage alliances, and this sudden, overly serious question threw the young man off balance. Vov calmly explained her complicated royal lineage, several queens, half-brothers and sisters, and yet she did not lose a single beat of composure. Her role as the sole partner to the only prince remained unshaken. She added that some of the sisters became travelers or married elsewhere, so the order of succession remained stable, and the kingdom was saved from internal strife. Sitting in the garden, the prince admitted that he was tired of continuous matchmaking. He had attended dinners, but never felt genuine interest in any person. Vovk suddenly proposed cooperation to her, then accused him of supposedly preferring older women, misreading his calm interactions as romantic affection. He, trying to correct her assumption, clarified, respect for some women arises from seniority, not attraction, but she stubbornly held to her own conclusion. He explained once more, caring for Wolf means treating her differently not out of affection, but because he has taken responsibility for her well-being. Finally, he acknowledged her strength and femininity in his own way, and this confused her. The tension between them unexpectedly shifted. Vovk stood before the young man and said that since he had deciphered the book, he had no reason to stay, but at the same time insisted. The country still needed his presence. He was already about to leave, but she firmly declared that, for her own purposes, she would do everything, openly confirming she had tried to keep him in Tezu. Their conversation turned to frank honesty. She admitted that she was lonely and warned without any reason he could disappear at any time, even without warning. To settle matters, they established a formal rule. Whenever someone proposed a potential partner, the same introductions had to be made to ensure the deal was balanced. They added another condition: it forbade underhanded tactics and turned the agreement into a structured competition where no one intended to lose. Walking along the terrace, the prince announced his intention to find a worthy match for Morito, dismissing personal preferences as irrelevant to duty. Later, sitting alone in the garden gazebo, he quietly pondered, watching the light behind the trees slowly fade. Turning to a trusted servant, he admitted that he actually enjoyed conversations with the boy and regretted that there was no freedom nearby to freely make his own plans. Although he acknowledged that the boy had a lower status, he still praised his exceptional results and at the same time felt both excitement and anxiety for his unpredictable future. Calmly sipping from a decorated glass, he concluded, weakness surrounded him, so the boy's presence was not just pleasant, it was amazingly refreshing. The wolf suggested appointing a guard for the boy but warned, if she moved away from him, it would breach the contract and break their agreement. After a few days, the garden fell silent again, and the wolf felt that tension was about to rise, and political affairs would soon demand his attention. New spread of rumors. Pope Eupario arrived with high-ranking clergy and holy knights. This clearly signaled serious church involvement. The delegation passed through the city gates and headed to the castle, so both the guards and townspeople kept a close watch on them. In the spacious hall, Pope Eupario solemnly introduced himself and immediately began apologizing for closing the delicate negotiations. In the spacious hall, Papa Eupario bowed low and apologized for the trouble caused to Tezu, while the prince calmly assured that the losses remained minimal. Everything switched to the mysterious book. Supposedly, it was proof of the existence of Lahat. Responsibility for the previous mistake was quietly acknowledged. Papa promised to return the book, explaining that only 3 people understood its content and especially emphasized the sensitivity of this knowledge. After that, he identified the boy as the only one capable of reading it, narrowing the circle of the informed to a few people. Seeing in him a traveler from another world, Papa stepped forward and solemnly extended his hand for a greeting. Papa Iparov extended his hand and said he wanted to understand who this boy really was before making further conclusions. Having received permission, Papa grabbed his hand and felt a barely noticeable flow of magic inside, carefully studying the traces of experiences he had lived through. Listening to this conversation, he concluded, the boy fears unknown dangers and always prepares for them in advance. In a world where malice occurs at every step, he was tempered exactly like that. The boy accepted the assessment without any resistance, and only then was he asked to visit the grave of the victim who died during the incident. While the responsible parties exchanged apologies, acknowledging their guilt, the meeting, which a minute ago was tense, slowly released and calm, measured understanding prevailed in their words. When the session quieted down, Lalisa smiled gently and apologized, explaining that Archbishop Yuka had been worried all the way to Tezu. When the boy asked if they had ever met before, she clarified, this was her first visit to Tezu, and this was their first meeting. He still did not believe and decided to test her reaction, carefully watching the expression on her face, carefully hiding his doubts. Turning to the Pope, he asked for permission to perform a similar technique before moving on to discuss the content of the book. He explained that his method measures confidence and asked the Pope to repeat the exact words, insisting on doing it in front of everyone present. Pope Ugarat confidently stated his name as he was instructed, carefully reproducing the exact phrase and maintaining steady composure before the assembled nobles. Archbishop UK followed at first, stumbling a little, but quickly recovering, while the boy meanwhile caught barely noticeable changes in tone and pauses. Captain Yawkes firmly announced his title, his voice did not tremble, and the others again and again named their names under close scrutiny. Seeing minor differences, the boy decided to test the last participant and remained with the same calm smile. Coming across Lalissa, he similarly nudged her and closely monitored any change in her expression or confidence. Under close observation, Lalissa evenly, as she was instructed, repeated Captain Yawkes's rank. Her voice was steady, and there was no hesitation in it as the boy listened intently. Without warning anyone, the boy declared, "He is Lahite." The tone was sharp and precise, and a heavy silence covered the entire hall. Shock instantly swept through the clergy and knights. As soon as they passed the forbidden name he heard, their faces involuntarily tensed. Steel flashed from several directions. As weapons were drawn and aimed at him, the room erupted with sudden hostility. Mid the chaos, Lalissa covered her mouth with a trembling smile and slowly retreated, watching as the clash gained momentum. In the formal hall, the boy stood before the supreme clergy and nobility. He immediately realized their ability revealed both deception and hidden truths, so it was no longer possible to hide. The composed woman smiled faintly, and the officials shuddered in shock. The pressure crept toward him, the expression on her face spoke without words. She had understood from the very beginning what he was attentive to. He admitted at first he had no idea who she really was. Suspicion crept in as soon as the reported suicide death seemed unnatural and did not fit the victim's character. From that day, vigilance shaped his behavior. Every time a new meeting occurred, he carefully analyzed everything, then compared it with the secret hidden in the mysterious book. She stepped forward and firmly stated, from the very beginning he suspected Lalissa. The observers were silent, they could not confidently confirm everything to the end. As the conversation unfolded, the boy watched every barely noticeable movement. He compared how everyone was positioned and quietly measured their emotional distance and restraint. Tension sharply shifted as soon as the woman named him the only one who looked out of place. Armed guards and clergy discreetly crossed themselves around her, adjusting their positions. She recalled how he smiled deliberately, touching the archbishop. This reaction convinced her. It turns out he had already begun analyzing everyone who was nearby. He explained the Pope maintains caution, not hostility. Meanwhile, the intermediary behaved unusually friendly, although he understood well that the Pope was attentive. Standing calmly, the boy acknowledged suspicion toward him because of his appearance, yet he still clung to a slim chance. Their interest was driven not by prejudice, but by curiosity. The woman confessed that after meeting the boy, she unexpectedly felt pleasure. Her attitude revealed more than she wanted, so the boy began to doubt, had they met before? Without answering directly, she cautiously avoided the question. Noticing the tactic, he decided, she is evading without lying, and now it is necessary to test her reaction. Smiling joyfully, she praised his insight and revealed her persona, a mysterious background belonging to another world. Among the clergy, a shock reaction swept like a wave. Suspicion regarding Lalissa rose to the surface again. Calmly, she revealed the truth about her survival. A magical knife separated her soul from the original body and allowed it to inhabit another vessel. Before anyone could intervene, she explained the conditions of the spell. Only one prepared vessel could accept her soul. Everything had to be carefully arranged in advance. With eerie confidence, she declared that she had already prepared another body, so attacking the current one was pointless. Her escape had been planned beforehand. The boy analyzed the consequences of her ability. Such a spell, for the one who holds it, allows leaving the body without hesitation, completely removing the fear of captivity or death. She admitted that she was caught without hearing everything she wanted. The clergy accused her of forbidden magic that interfered with souls, and because of this, the guilt became even more terrible. She stood nearby, and as soon as she saw him with her own eyes, she shone with betrayal in her heart. His mere presence was enough to fulfill her personal goal. Having said goodbye collectedly, she settled accounts with life without the slightest resistance. Even in death, she assured, their paths would cross again very soon. Her body sank to the floor with powerless weight as chaos erupted in the chamber. The boy silently watched as others rushed to the one who had fallen. The clergy pulled a sharp magical stone from her mouth. They immediately ordered urgent treatment, hoping to preserve the body she had left. Later than everyone else, they interrogated and thoroughly checked everyone who was on site and on alert. The session resumed under increased control, under the same noticeable tension. Formal apologies were conveyed to King Tezu for the repeated incident, and now the heavy burden of responsibility fell on the clergy. The conversation shifted to the lost soul and possible movements nearby. The boy quietly concluded it was necessary to prepare a countermeasure for her next move. When the hall was emptied, the royal figure called the attendees to return to order. Tension still hung in the air, but the conversation continued restrained and focused. It was decided to dismiss unnecessary personnel and limit knowledge about the incident. The Pope was asked to carefully consider this matter privately and without unnecessary witnesses. The guards were escorting people out of the chamber, while preparations did not stop. Security was strengthened. Only key figures remained in the room. The responsibility for explanations was placed on the boy. Standing by the table, he was about to voice what remained unresolved. At first, he opened the book and immediately clarified. Its content matched the previous report up to a certain point. And then, beyond that chapter, the details had to be explained directly. The boy confirmed the problem was on the last page, although at first the text seemed trivial. The Pope felt that the conclusion only reinforced the suspicions that had arisen earlier. Returning to the last entry, he pointed to the decisive phrase. The final words marked the true end of the recorded observation. He explained the most critical thing was not the content itself. Attention should be focused on the name of the author of this book. Shock gripped the clergy as soon as the subtext became clear. It turned out that the author was connected with forbidden resurrection magic and with the origin of demon lords. Silence instantly filled the hall as the name was announced. The author was recorded as Ugula Nerea, and this dangerous truth was confirmed. The boy admitted the inscribed name matched the same hero worshipped by the Ugula Church. He was credited with destroying the demon lords. Eunice was shaken by a wave of rumors while officials pondered the hint. Supposedly, the esteemed hero might have created the demon lords himself, whom he then so solemnly defeated. This possibility was not dismissed. Tension shifted to the author's origin. The boy emphasized, the writer is earthly, although there is almost no magical power that can be measured. He explained, even a century ago the earth knew neither magic, nor the very concept of such power, and historical records confirmed this. No such abilities existed there. Turning back to the assembly, he concluded that Uglunaria most likely held very little magic. Therefore, the author's influence relied not only on raw power, there had to be something else. The guy explained, the earthlings and the inhabitants of this world were very different. The local residents reinforced their bodies with magic, whereas on Earth such a basis did not exist. Through that gap, it was difficult for the earthling to rise and become a true hero, so the name Ugulinaria may not belong to the real savior. He put forward a theory that fit best right now. An earthling named Ugulan Arya created resurrection magic and demon lords, and someone else borrowed his name and defeated them. This meant that the hero and the creator were connected. The fact that no special abilities appeared after arrival made such an explanation even more convincing. Hopper admitted that the accusation was indeed serious, but the truth would not be revealed publicly in order to preserve the stability of the church. Therefore, they decided to keep the disclosure secret. A public announcement would only stir unrest among many believers in Tezu. Relief briefly eased the tension after the case was handed over to the Pope, but anxiety still did not subside. The conversation inside Mage could lead to unforeseen complications. Having gotten out of the cell, the boy admitted, silence was not near yet. The situation still required being on alert, not relaxing. The night settled on the Mage like a giant cathedral looming over the quiet town. Beneath the calm exterior smoldered uncertainty in those who knew the truth. Outside of this, life was bustling. A lively bar, familiar laughter and voices sharply cut into the hidden crisis that bent the fragile balance of the world. Inside the noisy tavern, suddenly, a drink splashed and all eyes glued in one moment. A young woman sat so that she looked across the table straight into the night opposite, while others continued their conversations. She directly expressed a remark to him for holding a weapon openly, despite the invisible barrier that concealed them. The knight lowered his head, angry yet restrained. She leisurely chewed dried meat. She addressed him playfully, his passion flared, but he remained seated and avoided escalating the scene. Their argument did not subside, while she forcibly made him eat properly instead of shouting. Nearby, a hooded figure in chains silently watched their conversation. The veiled observer approached closer and noted, without the barrier, this pair would immediately attract attention. The lively tavern atmosphere concealed the tension tightening around their table. In the semi-darkness, the hooded youth thanked the gathered crowd for coming. Under the hood, a confident smile hinted. Behind this meeting was thorough preparation. 3 people stood against him, and tension was visible on their faces. Recognition flashed between them as they exchanged names and confirmed their identities. Without delay, the hooded youth explained the reason they were summoned. A dangerous task awaited them connected with events unfolding inside Ugula Church. One of them, as if joking, suggested killing the Pope and immediately received a calm but instant rebuff. Explaining his plan, the young man said firmly, the real targets were not the Pope himself. He wanted to remove those who had recently been close to the Pope. The youth in the hood submitted documents from which it became clear this was not a random conversation. The man himself was easy to eliminate, but his bodyguard was becoming a serious obstacle. When they learned that the guard was among the strongest knights of Tezu, they were overwhelmed by a sudden wave of surprise. But the mention that the knight was a woman managed to sow doubt only briefly. Confidence displaced hesitation. One of them reacted with enthusiasm. The meeting with a powerful female warrior seemed to ignite curiosity in him. A calm smile on his face, the youth stated that the bodyguard did not suit his methods, so he handed the fight over to those who specialize in direct violence. As soon as they learned that the Pope remained in Tezu, the agreement was carried out without delay, and with an urgent purpose, the group gathered to set off and take on the task. Chained to the wall, wrapped in a cloak, the prisoner sat silently. His gaze was dull, but behind it hid an unbreakable determination while his plans were being laid out through the space around him. Somewhere else, a hired trio was preparing to leave. Steel was being tightened, weapons raised, and the youth in the hood watched them with his gaze confident that the next stage had already begun. The boy studies chess. The pieces are arranged like kingdoms and factions, and he carefully makes move after move while Wolf watches, sensing his cautious plan. Several days passed without any news about Lahit, and in the estate everything remained the same. Conversations went as usual, and inside there was a quiet balance. But the anxiety did not recede. The boy increasingly reflected on his recent behavior, and Ilya's weighed whether the burden that had accumulated during private negotiations had lifted from him. In the formal hall, Wolf interrogated about events related to Pope Euparo, forcing the boy to reassess carefully the political consequences of each step. The message confirmed the most important thing. The Pope will stay in Tezu and attend Ugula's harvest festival, and the boy's faith grew even stronger, for the appearance once again concealed deliberate intentions. The conversation moved further to the Archbishop of UK, when the boy requested a private audience, convinced that recent church tensions might stem from hidden decisions. So he leans forward and dares to reach for sealed memories, proposing a risky method to uncover the truth buried in Lahat's past. Merida warns that such magic results in terrible exhaustion, but the boy concludes, guilt might force the archbishop to cooperate under pressure. Wolf objects to excessive use of force but still insists. UK knows the most about Lahat and must report even the smallest details. The agreement proceeds cautiously, and when the plans finally fall into place, observers notice. Since that decisive day, the boy's behavior has subtly hardened. Ilyas notices that after exposing Lahat's scheme, the boy remains calm, yet sadness still flickers in his gaze, although he treats everyone the same as before. During the next match on the board, he declares checkmate, and a series of repeated defeats clearly exhausts him while Wolf celebrates his victory. Looking closely, Ilyas suddenly realizes he has already grasped the game's strategy, and in this, there is an experience that previously had not been apparent. When teased for playing half-heartedly, he casually invites Ilyas to take Wolf's place and resumes arranging the pieces. As the tension subsides, the conversation returns to the insult originating from Pope Euparo, and the boy admits he has heard these accusations but maintains a controlled, composed demeanor. The boy listens as his ability is acknowledged, then explains, past defense shaped how he acts in battles and skirmishes. Raising his eyes, he says that side Marito, which is noticed, differs from the part that others see. He tried to clarify and honestly admitted, words alone are not enough to fully convey his reasoning. He left the room and left behind a silence in which reflection rings. Glancing back at the board, he belittles his own skill, but still carefully studies the pieces, muttering that now it will be difficult for him. Suddenly, through the cell door bursts a cruel disorder. Everyone involuntarily flinches, and the silence sinks into tense anticipation in a second. After a sudden investigation of the accident, it is found that the fallen armor made noise, and the tension in the cell gradually releases. Tension is again drawn to the board. The arranged pieces form a decisive order, and this catches Ilyas by surprise. The wolf accuses the boy of having swapped the pieces, but the boy calmly rejects these words and insists deception is already in his style. Standing firmly in place, he explains, victory does not require continuous wins, it is enough to achieve only that one result that truly matters. Marito admits his unconventional manner, recalling how even mighty leaders respected results achieved despite his weakness. Ilyas snaps at the stern look, but the boy just as calmly explains. He acts boldly only because there are concrete opponents against him. Following him into the corridor, she involuntarily admits, his achievements are much better than what ordinary knights can endure even if she does not like his logic. In the office, he explains his approach as a simple way of living, neither by force nor by mind, and speaks about his own results. She emphasizes, despite the fact that he has no skill with either sword or magic, he soberly weighs the circumstances each time and adapts without hesitation. Following behind him as a guard, she decides not to fall behind, although influential leaders have already recognized his value. The boy admits, once he wanted to remove Ilias from the role of guard, he feared constant supervision, but that incident changed his decision and views. Embarrassment seems to soften Ilias' tension. She gradually accepts his arguments and understands his caution arises from fear, not arrogance. Later, when asked how to learn something useful, Wolf eagerly demands instructions and insists on resorting to deception from this boy. It is clear how much her zeal bothers her. Boy and Ilias stood side by side, crushed by continuous movement and pressure. On the street among the crowd, the festival filled all the roads. The boy and Ilias made their way through the lively throng, and Wolf followed, watching everything and looking around inquisitively. Wolf stayed close while the boy carefully led her. Ilias watched with a relaxed face as responsibility slowly shifted to him. A quiet moment showed how the boy with strange caution cared for Wolf. Ilias noticed the difference and silently pondered his behavior. The boy focused on preparing Wolf for future independence. Ilias understood his intention. Wolf stared forward stubbornly and was already beginning to grasp what it means to rely on others. Caution guided the boy as he limited any influences around Wolf. Nearby, Ilias froze in amazement, observing the depth of his careful thoughts. Excitement suddenly overwhelmed Wolf as soon as she recognized a strong desire to obtain a weapon. Her reaction reflected how increasingly tangible the influence of her recent surroundings was becoming. Reflections continued as the boy carefully weighed her choice. Meanwhile, Ilias thought about training, and Wolf's interest steadily shaped her future path. An armory appeared full of tools and equipment. Ilias entered confidently, while the boy remained cautious and quietly observed everything. In the workshop, the blacksmith had enough calm. He accepted their request without fuss. The boy looked closely and felt beneath the usual appearance hid true craftsmanship. Tension rose in the shop when the blacksmith sharply reacted to their request. The boy stayed composed while Ilias watched and saw the master's strict standards. Wolf stepped forward with excitement, confidently introducing herself. The blacksmith found it interesting. He examined her with curiosity, while others watched her liveliness. Tension shifted as the blacksmith looked over both the boy and Wolf. Ilias quietly admired Wolf's potential and cast a more scrutinizing glance at the boy's condition. The conversation moved toward getting weapons for Wolf. Ilias supported it, but the boy resisted, so he decided not to make unnecessary decisions. The decision ripened at the moment. The boy chose the simple option, and the blacksmith had to read it. He felt firmness in a calm, restrained manner. The boy handed over the oil without extra words, intended for caring for wooden weapons. The blacksmith accepted it, noting practical wisdom and careful preparation. Instead of seeking strength, the boy took the instructions and went to learn repairs. Ilias immediately noticed this. He understood the boy was betting on support, not on fighting. Meanwhile, Wolf enthusiastically tried several types of weapons, but no matter how hard she tried, none suited her, leaving her confused about her own skills. After careful observation, the boy concluded Wolf's natural strength lay elsewhere. Her past actions showed a completely different fighting style, one that suited her better. Resolutely, the boy proposed to create something unique. The blacksmith only had to listen and let the decision be born. He would win by relying on the true potential of Wolf. Carefully, the blacksmith examined the drawings the boy brought. His face brightened. He recognized that the design had both practicality and a clear goal. The agreement was quickly confirmed as soon as the blacksmith accepted the request. The boy remained calm, ensuring the plan stayed within reasonable limits while others quietly observed. Soon the blacksmith began preparing measuring materials and laying everything out in place. Wolf and Ilias stood nearby as the work maintained a steady pace and confidently progressed forward. A strange flash passed over the boy's face while the blacksmith worked with unexpected speed. The rhythm of the strikes revealed a skill far exceeding the level of ordinary craftsmen. Night settled over the workshop, while forging did not stop for a moment. Inside, the blacksmith focused only on one thing, finishing the work by the promised time. The next day, the finished equipment was revealed before them. Wolf, Ilias, and the boy exclaimed in surprise because the created item exceeded all expectations. Pride swelled in the blacksmith as he handed over the finished wrist gauntlet. Wolf quickly put it on and stirred with excitement. Its unique design enhanced her abilities. Energy sharply increased as Wolf tested the gauntlet outside. Her movements became powerful and uncontrollable, as if the weapon revealed a force overflowing within her. Evening fell as the group moved on after testing. Wolf joyfully announced it, and Ilias and the boy quietly confirmed her progress was real. Following the instructions, the boy emphasized improvement rather than labels. The she-wolf listened attentively, already feeling how important it was to refine her own natural strengths. Under the night sky, Wolf burst forward with energy while the boy and Ilias walked behind. He quietly pondered her character and that she needed mentorship through experience. Watching her from afar, the boy thought about how to compose her character. Careful planning showed his approach. He wanted to diversify her emotions and bring out different feelings. The town was quietly dozing. Lights flickered in scattered houses. Silence fell on the people, and after the daytime events, a balanced, silent pause settled. Nearby, not far away, a young girl was crying loudly and demanding attention. Wolf remained calm, and because of this, the contrast between emotions was striking. Later, the lively streets again played with festivity. The boy did not relax, watching to ensure that Wolf did not adopt bad behaviors, which frequently happened nearby. As soon as the harvest festival began, the streets lit up with colorful decorations. Wolf shone with joy, while the boy and Ilias carefully observed this lively whirl around them. When the very structure of the celebration became clear, it was visible how everything came together. Crowds moved through the streets, and traditions united the whole country through the ceremony. Lacra's attention shifted as soon as her absence was mentioned. The boy noticed this immediately, while the celebration continued without any pause. Mid the festival's noise, the boy sat quietly and read intently. While the surroundings buzzed with unceasing energy, Ilias noticed how he held himself and monitored the information. Calm composure appeared in him as he reviewed important data. His thoughts were already moving toward the next goal, while the celebration buzzed around like a distant hum. Quiet analysis continued until the boy reviewed information about Lehiate. Ilias listened as his reflections connected the festival time with possible hidden movements. Additional conclusions showed the power of Lahita was weakening, and he increasingly relied on others. The boy calmly compared possibilities, and with each moment, he formed a clearer idea of who currently held the balance. Curiosity pushed Ilias to find out who might be sent next. He calculated the situation, around festive surroundings and the conversation serious. Logical deduction narrowed the options as the boy dismissed certain threats. Calm, focused thinking pushed him toward a more realistic understanding of the opponent. Finally, attention turned to the list of adventurers with dangerous reputations. The boy carefully studied the details, preparing for everything to explode with events at any moment. On the noisy festival streets, he flipped through the report describing the dangerous traveler. Her bloody past surfaced in detail and his heart clenched because she was already in the city. Suddenly, he stopped. Ilias' attention tightened. He noticed a change and felt something unusual pulling into the field of his consciousness. Mid the moving crowd, a woman with a huge weapon confidently approached closer. Her striking appearance matched the description, and a quiet tension settled around her. Recognition settled in him as the boy quickly assessed the situation. Options flashed through his mind, and the threat became clearer with each passing moment. A cold smile spread across the woman's face. Danger was growing. There was so much intent in her gaze that it had long since gone beyond the bounds of a usual visit. Tension flared instantly as Ilias, the boy, and Wolf reacted. Each was already on alert, recognizing the threat waiting for them in the bustling festival crowd. The plan worked immediately. As soon as the boy led the fight away, Ilias understood his move without any pause, and Vovk prepared to act without losing a second. With sudden force, the wolf carried the boy across the roofs. Below remained a dangerous woman. Her presence tore and shattered the festival raging beneath them. The confusion grew as soon as the boy realized the enemy was not keeping distance behind him. Ilias confronted the situation head-on and drew the opponent's attention to himself. Cruelty flared up when a mighty blow shattered everything around. The attack scattered chaos, showing that the real targets were innocent people. Chaos explodes in the courtyard. The night clashes with the merciless attacker, and frightened residents flee as buildings collapse and dust rises upward. The knightess quickly moves forward, tightly gripping her sword and squeezing determination out of herself. Her vigilant gaze aims at the opponent ahead. Her enemy delivers fierce blows and the ground cracks from the shock, but the knightess holds the pressure, remaining in a defensive stance. A mocking smile flashes on the attacker's face, but the knight does not retreat. It remains firm, unwavering, in its mission to protect people. Panic spreads through the streets, yet the knight still fights, allowing civilians to escape from the growing destruction. A young strategist watches the chaos from afar, calmly weighing the situation while his companion below prepares to assist the knight, who is holding on with his last strength in the fight. Without hesitation, he steps forward. He approaches closer to the battlefield and draws the enemy's attention while nearby the knight stands up again. Collected and confident, he identifies the attacker, questions her motives, and maintains control despite the tension compressing the space around them. The woman responds with a smile, but the strategist reveals that he knows about hidden schemes. Her calm is shaken, and a deeper conflict creeps out. When the tension presses to the limit, allies arrive and prepare for confrontation. And the strategist's calculated deception tips the scales. The enemy is momentarily confused and does not know what to do next. The boy notices Parshiro's arrival while still observing the tense battlefield. the man approaches confidently, and everyone gathered nearby sees him, both allies and enemies. Recalling Parshiro's past in his mind, the boy assesses him as a dangerous opponent, calmly admits waiting for reinforcements is no longer possible. Meanwhile, the enemy reveals a magical barrier that encompasses the territory. Civilians can escape, but no one can enter, so the battlefield is isolated. The barrier spreads through the city streets, trapping the remnants of fighters inside, while figures at a distance try to break free from beneath the flickering walls. Feeling the silence in the sealed zone, the boy orders his allies to disperse and cautiously prepares himself for the inevitable clash ahead. The boy orders his allies to keep their distance while the knight charges forward. Her swift strike manages to surprise the enemy and forces him into a tight defense. Strong shockwaves rolls down the street, the knight attack hits, and everything around trembles. The enemy withstands the blow but quickly regains balance and prepares to retaliate. Gathering strength again, the knight anticipates and delivers a fierce slash. She throws her opponent backward through the shattered ground. Suddenly, a warrior in heavy armor bursts into the fight, launching a destructive assault, disrupting the flow of the night and pressing so hard that she might get trapped and completely swept away. As the skirmish intensifies, the knight is surrounded by enemies from all sides, but she does not budge. She holds her ground and is ready to face them, despite the growing danger inside the sealed battlefield. Rage finds a strike where the warrior just flew off. A quick push lands, the fierce fighter crashes with a roar into the broken courtyard, and the fighter with bald ears rushes forward, relentlessly accelerating. Blood floods the attacker's face, but she stands and smiles as if the wound does not matter to her, while her opponent cautiously prepares for the next strike. Not far from Parshro, they confidently continue moving forward, picking up fox and eared fighter, while the knight recedes. Coordinated actions pull control of the battlefield in their favor. Since direct combat is disadvantageous, the wounded enemy releases a strange power, and it turns the battlefield into a terrifying energy. Dark forces break out, twisting everything around, while the warrior strategically retreats, forcing her opponents to stay wary. A dangerous transformation unfolds right before them. Massive weapon emerges as soon as the enemy releases the terrifying demon Divas. Its dark form tears through the air, while the knight prepares to face the threat face to face. The monster writhes and twitches from brutal energy, embodying destruction and hunger, while the enemy confidently advances behind it, directing its bloody attack. Despite the danger, the knight stands firm and engages in a clash with the demonic blade, while her allies watch cautiously, ready to intervene if the fight becomes even fiercer. At a certain distance, the boy quietly observes, vigilantly ensuring that civilians are evacuated as quickly as possible, and that the chaos around the sealed battlefield leaves minimal casualties. Having analyzed the situation in detail, he breaks down each encounter, relying on allies to pull the fight toward victory, while he maintains control over the conflict unfolding beyond the barrier. Meanwhile, the enemy raises the grotesque demonic sword and presses it forward. While the knight steadies her stance, she knows what this weapon is capable of and how its power intimidates. A bloody clash erupts, the ground trembles as the huge blade cuts into the knight, and she has to dodge with no unnecessary movements, precise body strikes without a single mistake. After a closer look, she finally recognizes the true nature of the weapon and realizes the sword devours the magic around it, growing more powerful with each strike. The attacker moves forward confidently. The demonic sword, in his belief, will unquestionably bring victory over the lone knight. The knight, despite the obvious danger, holds with unbreakable determination, breaking through the swirling darkness and refusing to surrender on the enclosed battlefield. The boy watches closely and understands that Elias' endurance and magic are rapidly fading. The demonic sword undermines them during the prolonged clash, weakening them each time. In parallel, Vovk fiercely clashes with Parshro. Her movements are swift, but each step increasingly exhausts him as the relentless pressure drives him into a tough defensive struggle. Impatience grows uncontrollably. Parshoro intensifies the attack and exploits Vovk's inexperience, although he is aware of her considerable magical power and hidden potential. With a sharp surge of rage, he plunges into a powerful strike, shifting the course of their duel and threatening to break her resistance. Despite the growing danger, Wolf endures and turns for a counterattack, while the boy casually reveals the enemy's identity, recognizing Jelista as the wielder of the demonic sword. A giant vortex bursts from the demonic sword. The newly armored warrior releases devastating energy. The knight freezes in shock. The enemy's partner has already entered the fight. The user in the haplet armor advances with fierce determination, directing the blazing power straight at the tangled weapon, and the battlefield trembles from the impact force. Nearby, the boy watches to ensure Wolf's safety and calmly observes the flames shooting upward. He notices a sharp surge of magic and prepares for new complications. The witch's flame catches the demonic sword and begins to consume everything around, while the boy carefully studies this phenomenon and records its strange properties. The first to realize the danger, the warrior explains. The one that burns is the effect of magic igniting itself and instantly demonstrates the terrible destructive power of this weapon. After a brief analysis, the boy understands. Wolf's magic flared up from the enemy's power, so now a dangerous chain reaction is unfolding that could engulf her completely. Assessing the scale of the threat, he calculates the risk of a catastrophic explosion if the blazing magic continues to spread without pause and without control. Suddenly, heavy shackles fall upon him. They bind his movements, but he does not panic. He remains composed and still ready to act despite this unexpected obstacle. With force, he pulls him into the air. The boy hangs helplessly, while his allies panic and react to the appearance of another hidden enemy on the battlefield. In the heat of battle, the knight notices a new threat and immediately prepares to confront the invisible opponent, while the clash inside the barrier intensifies. The enemy exposes another accomplice, who confirms that he is responsible for the invisible barrier. Suspended without support, he suddenly clearly understands how carefully everything was planned and sees. The warrior with bald ears rushes forward to confront the newly revealed threat. Suddenly, darkness covers the surroundings, distorts space, and devours the battlefield, leaving the boy powerless to resist. He is crushed by this titanic might. In a moment, he opens his eyes in a wooden structure he has never seen, lying next to a barely glowing flame that quietly flickers in this oppressive silence. Confused but alert, the boy slowly gets up, not understanding where he is, while distant echoes of battle fade somewhere beyond this mysterious enclosure. The boy wakes up inside a dark wooden structure, tightly bound and unable to move. He realizes he was lucky to survive the capture, but he is still in the hands of enemies. Lying helplessly, he fears the worst, imagining how his allies have already been defeated and how uncertainty, like a cloud, covers his thoughts and further fuels his anxiety. Outside, the enemy group gathers again, irritated by the retreat, but confident they will face their opponents once more on another battlefield. Inside the building, a hooded figure silently watches while the kidnappers discuss plans. She is struck by the boy's calm appearance despite his situation. A woman approaches casually, carefully, with curiosity examining him, while the bound boy remains composed and patiently waits for the right moment. The boy regains consciousness inside a wooden building, still tied up, until a woman approaches and calmly confirms that he has finally woken up. His kidnappers gather nearby and make it clear. They spared his life for a specific purpose. They keep a close watch on him and do not lose control of the situation. Tension fills the room as soon as it becomes clear what this group wants. In their eyes, confidence and the same expectation regarding their captive. The mysterious leader in a cloak reveals the truth. The boy is kept alive to eliminate a target named Lacra. Stunned by the revelation, the boy flinches, trying to understand what is happening, and realizes he has been drawn into a conflict much bigger than he could have imagined. Lacra's self, a 25-year-old woman, was once abandoned near an orphanage and grew up alone, hardly making contact with anyone. Breaking free from the orphanage, she served in the cathedral, where frequent accidents kept her away from others, and Lacra stubbornly continued her combat training and basic magic. Under the leadership of Archbishop Leka, Lacra steadily improved her abilities and achieved her first monster subjugation. Later, the unconscious youth encountered Lacra, and her companions. Their invincible presence and unpredictable power instantly turned any resistance and explanations into empty noise during a tense confrontation. Quietly observing, the youth felt that someone harbored anger towards Lacra, so he decided to uncover the truth about her shadowed past and the conflict unfolding right here. Along, a man with long hair, bound in chains, stood calmly while Lacra confronted him, and the youth was surprised. He could speak normally despite his threatening and hostile presence. Maintaining cold composure, the man shackled in chains stated that he would speak only when necessary, and his restrained manner confused everyone who encountered him in the dark building. He calmly addressed the boy with black hair and explained. The hunters were chasing several targets at once, but at the same time secretly received orders to finish him off on a hidden request. Accepting the truth, the boy realized he was captured, deliberately used as bait to lure other targets into a carefully planned trap. Captor confirmed the plan, showing allies assigned to hunt powerful figures, while the boy sat in prison waiting for the arrival of their planned victims. The bonds tightened firmly as soon as the prisoner was not allowed to voice that he wanted to hunt. His rage spilled over onto Lacra Solf, and the boy watched him impatiently from the shadows. Before drawing conclusions, the boy calmly asked why he was being pursued, and learned. Revenge against Lacra forced the man to relentlessly chase and hold hostility. Weighing everything, the boy doubted that Lacra was capable of murder. In this male image and stubborn conviction, he felt something deeper. He continued to press, meeting the captive with a bold question, and so in the dark room hung a tense silence that confused both allies and enemies. The man revealed a tragic past. From childhood, he was raised as a victim by a demonic father, and this fueled revenge and unwavering hatred toward humanity. The bound man listened without the slightest flinch as the boy exposed his revenge. He wanted to restore his father's honor, and unknowingly revealed a painful truth without any tenderness or warmth. With unwavering confidence, he admitted, the father never loved him. Yet he still remained higher than the people who, for survival and their own whims, gave up their own child. Suddenly releasing his power, the prisoner declared that he survived thanks to harsh training, and added, during the fight with Lacra he, unknowingly, killed the demon father. Filled with rage, he stated that his father's honor was disgraced, and swore revenge both from the human and demonic side as his dark presence grew ever thicker. Having figured out the plan, the boy realized, he was captured not by accident deliberately, so that Lacra would confront Avenger and push them towards an inevitable clash. The offended Avenger confirmed his own plan. He left the boy a chance to live until the other targets disappeared, and in this was iron determination and terrifying confidence. Without a trace of anxiety, the boy answered calmly. He hid the tension and carefully observed the kidnappers, simultaneously reading their intentions in the cramped, semi-dark room. Having scrutinized everything around, he understood the main thing. The hunters united not out of loyalty, but for profit, so their vulnerable spots could be turned into a chance to survive. Resolutely to flee, and the boy began to devise a plan, relying on logic and patience to break out of the dangerous trap that had tightened a ring around him. For now, Lacra did not suspect. She stood calmly inside the cathedral and did not yet know that her return would inevitably escalate the confrontation. Lacra rushed through the cathedral corridor, apologizing wearily for the delay on the run, and blamed only herself for coming late and disappointing those who awaited her appearance. Reaching the chamber, she listened anxiously while others tried to calm down. Elias, realizing the danger he had faced, acknowledged his responsibility for being entrusted to be her guard. Despite the tense atmosphere, La Crosse Blunt's remarks initially sounded like mild reproach, but her timely appearance proved decisive. She prevented the situation from deteriorating and earned sincere gratitude. Later, wandering the market, she felt a strange presence. Curiosity urged her, and she went to investigate this mysterious adventure. After he processed the source, Lacra came across a hidden barrier blocking the entrance and confidently broke through it. Lacra broke through the barrier and confronted the attackers, appearing so suddenly that they flinched. Her arrival shattered their plan and forced them to retreat. The attackers quickly disappeared from the roofs, abandoning their target, while Lacra remained alert and with growing anxiety watched their escape. Inside the cathedral, Ilias recounted the danger he faced, admitting that he would have been killed if Lacra had not intervened in time. Listening quietly, Lacra pondered the incident, not understanding why the attacker needed this, and knowing no act that could have provoked such hostility. Despite doubts, she accepted the thanks of her companions, realizing her intervention saved a life and prevented the enemy from carrying out their plan. Gathered in the room, Lacra and her companions discussed the dangerous enemies, admitted that negotiations were powerless, and feared only for the safety of the hostage. The tense expressions on their faces increasingly revealed anxiety. While they silently grasped how severe this threat was, it also became clear how urgently a decision was needed. The guard suddenly handed over a letter. Everyone was jolted as soon as it became clear. It contained decisive information about the hostage's fate and the demands of their enemy. While reading the message, they came across instructions for a meeting at Western Plaza with harsh conditions and a warning. Any disobedience would end in immediate execution. Far from the city, the hostage was still sitting in a remote cabin, unaware that the confrontation would soon decide whether he would remain alive. Wrapped up in the cabin, the boy looked directly into the face of a sadistic threat. His kidnapper was considering how to maim him so that no chance of escape remained. The woman responded, confidently boasting of her healing magic, and without hesitation prolonged his suffering, only for her own bizarre pleasure. Nearby, the long-haired Avenger remained indifferent. He allowed the situation to drag on and silently watched, not intervening in the bloody exchange. Clinging to a desperate chance, the boy, while gaining momentum, head-butted a wooden pillar, deliberately maiming himself to immediately provoke the desired reaction. Blood gushed profusely, but he forced the woman to heal him by sheer will, cunningly turning her cruelty to his advantage and maintaining a stone-like hardness despite the pain. No matter how painful the blow, the boy seized a pause and activated a small magic circle, stubbornly holding the tension inside to show what his limited magic was capable of. Gasping, he honestly admitted, his weak magical ability does not grant him accelerated recovery, so he has to rely on endurance rather than powerful healing blessings. His kidnappers dismissed him as insignificant, they decided that shackles and wooden weapons would not allow him to escape or foil their plans. In despair, he did not lose self-control. He carefully tracked every movement and snooped around looking for the slightest chance to turn the situation to his advantage. Step by step, thinking calmly, he noticed the hostility of Equic towards Lacra, understood the reasons for their actions, and held captivity with unbreakable determination. Observing his kidnappers, the boy studied their behavior, and the longer he watched their actions and relationships with each other, the clearer it became. Instability was only growing. Understanding their characters, he still felt that true understanding was far off, so he did not know how they would behave in unpredictable circumstances. Resolute, the boy accepted the risk ahead, deciding to go beyond his usual limits and put himself in even greater danger to achieve his goal. His anxious composure attracted glances. He surprised the woman who had noticed his strange facial expression, silently holding calculated determination as if everything was under control. Calmly explaining his condition, the boy confessed. Without realizing it himself, he adopts the behavior of others. It was this peculiarity he used as part of his strategy to survive captivity. The woman looked at the boy with admiration, enchanted by his anxious gaze and the way he maintained a calm and inscrutable expression despite his terrible circumstances. Nearby, the kidnappers mocked his manner of holding himself. They said there was something troubling in this restraint, yet at the same time, they acknowledged the amazing stubbornness he showed in captivity. Remaining seated and tied up, the boy accepted their hostility. He feigned humiliation, presenting himself as insignificant, while hiding his true intentions behind deliberate submission. Although he appeared weak and vulnerable, he carefully fed their assumptions, allowing them to underestimate him, and patiently waited for the moment to finally act. After midnight, Ilias reads a letter with a detailed description of the hostage exchange at the Western Square. She carefully weighs the situation, unraveling the political motives hidden behind this threat. Suspicion flares as soon as she begins to think that rival factions are controlling events from the shadows. Plans are made instantly as preparations begin. A swift courier is immediately dispatched, while allies line up to fulfill the harsh conditions imposed by the enemy. Elsewhere, a royal figure accepts the continuation of the strategy. Recognizing the danger ahead, he allows the group to carry on the mission without his direct involvement. Finally, Ilias moves forward quietly, with unbreakable determination, and the burden of responsibility presses so heavily that she clearly feels the enemy has already calculated every step she takes. Ilias receives a harsh reprimand from the chief, ordered to cast aside reproaches and fully take responsibility for the unfolding crisis. She acknowledges the order with firm resolve. Soon the preparation accelerates, companions gather, the threat becomes clear, and a devoted assistant eagerly vows to help, decisively supporting Ilias to protect the safety of Herhai's leader. Wolf decisively steps forward and refuses to withdraw from the mission. Confidence spreads as she insists on joining the operation, despite warnings hinted at by others. Ilias hesitates, feeling the enemy's strength and the danger ahead. She doubts Vovk's involvement because she fears she cannot guarantee the protection of the young demi-human. Unwavering Vovk proclaims her unwavering devotion and firm determination to protect her master. Her fierce resolve encourages the entire group as they prepare for the dangerous road ahead. Ilias sharply warns, the enemy cannot be defeated by direct confrontation. A balanced strategy and firm choice are needed to overcome the looming threat while having all available advantages. Her supreme authority reinforces the order, commands her to cast off nocturnal pride and overturn unfavorable circumstances, once again reminding Lady Rachel that the same responsibility lies with her. Accepting this burden, Ilias decides, the rescue of the hostage is above all. She will risk everything, moving forward towards the dangerous mission ahead. She stops and reflects on the strange nature of the hostage, recalls her old Defitan, the vow to protect him and save his life grows stronger, even if any consequences come. With unwavering determination, Ilias dispels hesitation and goes all in, stealing her heart just as she prepares to face the enemy and fulfill her sworn duty. Ilias walks under the night sky, silently hoping that peace will not move from its place despite the dangerous mission that already awaits her. Somewhere else, a wounded young man stands in the ruins and looks into the distance where the moon shines through the silent forest. His injured face is quiet endurance, shadows hide emotions, but determination still holds on the exhausted expression. Freed from chains, he takes a step forward and slowly gives thanks to those unseen as the cold night envelops him. Before retreating, he calmly raises a finger as if about to reveal something important, and his battered silhouette dissolves into the silence of darkness, vanishing without a trace. On the quiet western square near the city wall, the city bell rings through the night sky, and Ilias and her companions arrive at the designated place. Glancing over the empty square, she notices a strange silence. the festival crowds have disappeared, and the space has been deliberately cleared. Without taking her eyes off the darkness, Ilias confirms the evacuation and gives the readiness signal determined to face the enemy even if it costs her life. She calls the hidden opponent, forcing him to show himself, while the tension spreads across the empty square. The enemy responds mockingly, shows that the hostage is gone, and exposes their treachery so Ilias is left to stare into a dangerous and uncertain confrontation. An indomitable, disheveled girl with earrings, named Wolf, frantically searched for the missing master, standing next to a composed woman in dark clothing. Without warning, the calm woman launched an attack decisively, without any hesitation. She cut the master and splattered the blade with blood. Wolf was frozen in shock because the attacker showed no hesitation for even a second. Rage pierced Wolf like a whirlwind, and she rushed forward recklessly, straight at the enemy. She was sharply stopped by an ally, intervened in time, and prevented the move from causing even greater harm. Heavy chains burst outward, binding the enemy woman and preventing her from causing more damage. Soon the master emerged from the vortex of power whole and unharmed, although the blow was visible. Relief washed over Wolf as the clash shifted toward restraint. The wounded man stood without bonds, while the woman with a sharp gaze studied the blood on his shoulder. Her accusations were immediately brushed off, and the tension between them thickened. Cold determination froze on her face as she warned, if he tries to escape, she will kill him. Nearby, the soldiers retreated and chose quiet observation. Faith in the wounded man suggested one thing to them: they expected him to endure. Despite the pain, he did not lose his composure. Calmly and attentively, he measured the distance. The awareness of his own freedom slightly shifted the balance. Chains entwined his hands, and the barrier locked the square. Determination hardened in his chest as he prepared to face his father's killer. The chains burst outward as the disguised priest suddenly lunged forward, vowing to take the life of his enemy to restore his father's honor. His face twisted with rage. The young woman looked calmly and seemed not to understand what was happening. She admitted that she had never killed anyone before. Her confusion sharply contrasted with his furious rage. Shock flashed across the priest's face when the truth about his adoptive father, the former defeated devil, surfaced, and anxiety immediately spread among the spectators. Anger flared up in him again. He condemned her past victory and declared that he intended to regain lost dignity. The chains tightened on his trembling hands. Instead of fear, the woman raised an everyday curiosity about which one of them was the devil, and this uncertain doubt confused the man even more, driven by a furious thirst for revenge. In fury, baring his teeth, the disguised priest thrust the chains forward, unleashing a merciless attack meant to instantly crush his opponent. Sharp shock waves exploded outward across the square. Steel links collided with resistance, scattering dust and tearing apart the stone pavement. From afar, officials froze with anxiety, and the enraged attacker, cursing merciless revenge, broke the limit of restraint. His intent to kill flared with new strength. Before that strike could fully unfold, the opponent closed the distance, and with decisive speed and devastating force pushed him down. Despite the terrible blow, the priest forced himself to straighten up. He felt the enemy's delight, and how his own determination only grew stronger. The clash became much more dangerous. Chains swept across the square in arcs, knocking down walls and tearing through stone, while the fight between the two figures continued relentlessly. Against the backdrop of destruction, the wounded man sank down to a ledge. Blood flowed down onto his shoulder, and distant explosions echoed muffled behind him. Dark thought surfaced as soon as he began to ask himself, since when his attachment to this world had started to crumble, its value was increasingly cracking and falling apart. Fatigue settled deeply within him. Each time he stood between justice and cruelty, constantly swinging between opposite extremes. Later it became clear, passion alone would not save him from sudden loss, so a quiet longing for a simple, peaceful life without unnecessary worries grew within him. During the frantic clash in the square, the wounded man remains sitting, watching the destruction unfold, and clings to that quiet desire to live peacefully without interfering. Leaning against the wall, he barely smiled despite the wounds, for a firm resolve to protect that tiny dream had already matured within him. Wolf suddenly lunges forward and with a precise kick strikes the opponent's partner, not losing control, provoking his reaction and testing the defense under sharp pressure. Momentum shifts to a counterattack. She is thrown back, and another figure watches, recognizing the full intensity and speed of this ongoing clash. A powerful sharp strike cuts through the ground and the barrier flares instantly, stopping the attack and locking the power inside the controlled space. Even despite uncertainty about the opponent's methods, Wolf does not budge from his position, maintaining the rhythm and not faltering a step. Dark energy rises around her, and she stands firm, focused, aggressive, as if about to launch an attack forward and overwhelm the opponent with relentless intent. Sharp ram bites into the air. The strike tears energy outward, and somewhere far away an observer watches the unfolding battle with quiet concern. Elsewhere a man sits, stunned against the wall, freezing as a wave of anxiety reaches him. Chains shoot out from the blonde, spreading in all directions as she restrains her power and tries to take control of the situation without causing fatal harm. Tension rises as her opponent confidently advances and refuses to retreat, driven by determination and unwavering intent to continue the fight. Harsh force crashes downward, chains break strike after strike, hitting hard and flooding resistance, while the distant man silently watches, calculating the outcome but not intervening. The wounded man remains calm, while chaos unfolds around him, and fear spreads nearby just as others realize the clash is spiraling out of control. Chain surge tears through the battlefield with furious power, spreading in all directions as the opponent unleashes overwhelming might without restraint. Wolf stands firm behind the barrier, watching the towering dark figure, holding defense bound by chains and carefully assessing the threat. Rage builds as the enemy charges forward, pouring strength into a direct attack and forcing Wolf to react quickly under mounting pressure. A sharp, devastating blow hits her defense. The barrier twists and tears, but the figure withstands the onslaught, stubbornly holding positions against the dangerous attack. Wolf focuses and strikes precisely, shattering the enemy's weapon into fragments, neutralizing the threat and seizing control of the battlefield. Fragments scatter as Wolf advances forward and claims the advantage, simultaneously urging the opponent as if to say, "Stop," because the fight is already decided. The opponent does not lose rhythm flowing through chains and shadow, and his resilience shatters the conclusion about victory that Wolf had made earlier. A fabulously towering armored figure rises, embodying accumulated anger. The battlefield sharpens from her presence, and everything around presses with merciless force. Chains frantically coil again and again, striking Wolf's defense without any pause, each time proving he will not break. The attack continues relentlessly, driving her into an exhausting fight to the edge. Fear spreads among the passers-by as the situation worsens, while the wounded man remains calm, studying the Wolf's hesitations and the limits they reach. He recalls her restraint and understands. She refuses to kill even when overwhelming hostility and mortal danger approach her from the opponent. Somewhere from afar he weighs options. Direct attacks will yield nothing, so he begins to seek another way to break this pause stalemate. Chains relentlessly tighten around Wolf's barrier, draining his strength, while the opponent increases pressure, aiming to finish him off to complete exhaustion. Panic covers the spectators as the chains draw even closer. A chaotic attack floods the stage and presses Wolf to the final collapse. Suddenly a loud clash erupts. Both fighters collide with each other. A wave of impact rolls across the ground, and the opponent pushes forward with merciless pressure. Tension cuts the air as the woman with the weapon suddenly realizes her sword is draining energy, so she must once again weigh the risks whether to continue the fight. The man carefully watches her movements. He notices practiced behavior and instantly sees the trap already hidden in the very start. The fight intensifies. They exchange sharp blows, and the man presses, repositions, and tries to disrupt her rhythm and seize the advantage. Confidence grows in the swordswoman. As long as she maintains control, she feels the weight and strength of her weapon and prepares to outlast her opponent. The adversary smugly twitches the corner of his lips, ignores the pressure, keeps his composure, and prepares to respond to the relentless assault. Suddenly the ground shifts beneath him. Hidden magic reshapes the terrain, disrupts his step, and throws him into unexpected imbalance. Wolf immediately moves forward, seizes the start, and launches a direct attack, maintaining control over the changing conditions of the fight. Close combat continues. Both exchange sharp blows, neither yields, and the clash flows back and forth in tight quarters. Despite the disruption, the opponent regains stance and responds, strikes upward while Wolf rises higher, and the fight continues from a more advantageous height. Wolf seizes the moment of opening, sharply closes the distance, trying to take control of the opponent during a brief moment of vulnerability. But the opponent reacts instantly, intercepts her strike with overwhelming force, stops her advance, and turns the situation against her. Next to the barrier, he remains unharmed while the observers watch. Chains still coil in the depths, endlessly spinning and maintaining pressure in the confined space. Those behind the barrier react with concern. They understand well, escape is impossible while the fight outside is only unfolding and gaining momentum. Panic spreads among them as they strike the insurmountable barrier, unable to intervene, until the fight reaches a critical turning point. Wolf launches a concentrated attack and directs the force forward, trying to disrupt the enemy's continuous chain assault. The opponent withstands the blow and immediately responds. Chains fall down with a clatter, and he continues to press at close range. From afar, the man observes closely, puts the picture together, and concludes. The chain behaves like a living creature that reproduces each time it is struck. While understanding ripens among the observers that the form itself is a flaw in the strategy, it becomes obvious. It does not work, so the approach is changed in response to its endless capability. Wolf acts instantly, dodges a heavy blow, does not fall, and waits a moment to adjust and respond to the endless series of attacks. The she-wolf jumps high, trying to break free from the chains that squeeze her, and the rival reacts keenly, keeping every movement in sight, growing increasingly tense. She changes direction in flight, dodging the pursuit, while the chains squeak and tear, trying to catch her before she manages to get to a safe distance. The pressure increases. Several chains rise and surround her position, blocking the escape route and driving her into a narrow corridor. Strategic landing, she clears the ground and prepares a new defensive position to stabilize the situation. As soon as a fresh barrier is erected that blocks the path and prevents further advance, the opponent grows increasingly irritated. Her attempts to force a direct fight are repeatedly pushed back. She reveals her intentions and holds the barrier not for defense, but to control the battlefield and restrict the enemy's movements. Hovering above everything, she surveys the chains in the tight space, preparing to use their behavior and accumulated energy. Carefully examining everything, she finds the source of their power and understands. The shackles become heavier because they absorb mana and continuously regenerate. She sharply closes the distance, disrupts the mana flow, and strikes to weaken the shackles and remove their enhanced properties. With precise timing, she attacks without pauses, not allowing them to recover, forcing the shackles to lose strength and eventually turning them into ordinary bonds. The fight is twisted by a dark vortex. It changes the rules of the game, forcing Wolf to adapt while the opponent tries to regain control over the flow that is already collapsing. Only momentarily stepping back, the opponent lunged forward, closed the distance, and managed to land a heavy blow before Wolf could fully react. Despite the strike, she hangs in the air and quickly restores balance, while fragments and chains scatter around from her controlled movement. Frustration grows in the opponent. He already sees the advantage slipping away, but Wolf does not lose rhythm adapts and maintains composure. Just in time, she bursts into a counterattack, breaks enemy combinations, breaks through forward, and wraps the opponent under continuous pressure.